And really looking forward to tonight's show. Fight Night Picks !Kicks. Make sure you head on over to the website, fightnightpicks.com. We've got all sorts of great stuff. The full card betting guide, the full previews, the podcast, episodes of Early Stoppage, and might I add, you should check out the store. There's all kinds of great products over there. We have the new shirts, new merch dropping all the time, including that new red Under Armour t-shirt. So head on over to the website, fightnightpicks.com. And as we always say, let's get into it. Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Vertiball. Head on over to their website. It's vertiball.com. And listen, it's an awesome product. It's a local company out of New Brunswick, Canada. So make sure you support those guys locally as well as Fight Night Picks. But they're the only mountable portable muscle massager. They can stick on any smooth surface. They've got an industrial strength suction cup. Can support over 100 pounds of pressure. You can get really into those deep knots. I have one here at home. I use it for my back and my shoulders from holding up that Fight Night Picks Pick'em trophy. But listen, make sure you check them out. It's a great product. Like I said, they're recommended by physiotherapists, masseuses, and chiropractors across Canada, the US, UK, and Australia. And they're used by countless professional athletes like Minkah Fitzpatrick on screen there, as well as Clelin Ferrell of the Raiders. So if you head into the cart, make sure you check them out. So I've got a Vertiball massager in my cart right there. Use the promo code FNP. You're going to save 10% off your order. You're supporting this company here that I'm very passionate about in New Brunswick, Canada, and you're helping out us as well. So make sure you check them out, vertiball.com, promo code FNP, 10% off your order. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. It's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and Matt Allen.
Oh boy, Matt, and we are looking forward to, listen, the fight companion, UFC 259. We're getting done with Kenney and Cruz. What a great fight. Looking like Dominic Cruz is really going to seal off a big win here. Bob saying that Cruz is fighting great. I mean, he won the first for sure. He definitely won the third round, and if he ended up with a second, I wouldn't be overly surprised. But a big fight and a big win for the former champ there. Longtime former champ. Arguably the greatest bantamweight of all time. They're showing you significant strikes, but I don't really think they really tell a great deal about that fight there. But if this is your first time with the boys, the Fight Night Pick boys, welcome. We're looking forward to this. So we're a little loosey-goosey here with the fight companion, but we're really looking forward to a very, very busy fight card. Really good job again there from Dominic Cruz at the end of the round. Just ending it on top. Should be able to get the win in that one, Matt. And overall, just, again, a great night of fights. We had plenty of finishes. The last few ending in decision, but overall, I mean, like I said, a great night.
Oh, yeah, there's been a bunch of wild finishes. There's been a ton of fights, really, that could be nominated for Fight of the Night. Right now, I've got Phillips and Yadong. I think that's probably my leader. But overall, such a great night of fights as we see a highlight for the NBA All-Star Game. So if not doing anything on Sunday, watch that, I guess. I probably will be.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's going to be a great one for sure. And again, I mean, I'm really looking forward to see what we got out of a decision in this one because like we said, I mean, really close one. Dom obviously out in terms of total strikes. He also was able to land the takedowns that were very important in that third and final round. So again, I would expect him to get the win. Jonathan's got it, Kenney 29-28. I had the second round for Kenney. People on Twitter call me crazy. What do you think?
I thought Dominic won this fight 2-1. It's weird, though, because, okay, Dominic Cruz... First of all, Dominic Cruz with the number 11 next to his name just looks weird to me. It's like when Robbie Lawler, like, at this stage of his career that he's at now, where you see him with no name, no number. It's just weird when you kind of grew
he's
up...
15.
Yeah, well, just when you grew up watching these guys in the top three or having a belt around their waist, it's always odd when they no longer have that. But good win for Dominic Cruz against a really talented opponent. And I know Casey Kenney isn't a ranked fighter, but he's a very, very talented fighter. The only thing that does concern me, and I'm going to tip my hand right now, I want Dom to fight Jose Aldo at 135, an all-WEC matchup. It would be phenomenal. But my problem is, Casey Kenney isn't the fastest striker in the world, and really, I look at Casey Kenney as kind of a dumbed-down version of Pedro Munoz. They're both very powerful, they're both really good technically, and they both have stellar ground games. The difference is that Pedro Munoz just does everything a little bit better. My problem is, if Dominic Cruz does want to get back up to that title shot, he's going to have to fight a bunch of guys who can kick the heck out of your leg. Like Corey Sandhagen fights at this weight class. He's bigger than most guys, he's an absolute knockout artist. So it's a great win for Cruz, but for me, I do find it hard to see where he goes next after this fight.
Getting that decision here, again, I would expect Cruz to be able to get the win here.
Good
that was
fight
definitely a pop and popcorn type on my card. Are we getting a split here? Wow. There's a lot going on. If it's a 30-27, I would say it's got to be Cruz. Yeah, exactly. It's Cruz that got the win. So maybe not a huge surprise, but I mean, again, Cruz was a decently sized underdog. You weren't sure what exactly you were going to get out of him. Casey Kenney was good with the leg kicks, and then he just kind of stopped.
Exactly, and kind of the last minute of that first round was Casey Kenney's opportunity to win the fight. And I don't just mean he was going to knock him out, but if you just look at how that last minute played out, if Casey Kenney was able to just keep on replicating that, counter Dom's punches with your leg kicks, we probably would have seen a slightly slower Cruz in that second, especially the third round. Kenny might have been able to come back, but great win for Dominic Cruz. Listen, I thought he was completely shot, and I'm not afraid to say that. The guy hasn't won in 4.5 years. Well, I guess he just won now, but really great job for Dominic Cruz. It's nice to see a guy like that get back on track. Like they had said, he's 35 years old, but he hasn't taken a ton of damage in his career. I mean, his knees have taken a lot of damage, but that's more in the training room than anything. So hopefully Dom can, maybe this was just the warm-up fight. Next fight, he'll look even better. Who knows? But nice to see Dominic Cruz in the win column. It always is.
Brian is eager to get into it. Brian, let's get into it. I mean, yeah, it was a great fight really to cap off the prelims. A lot of people were surprised about the decision over on the Instagrams. We got a robbery for the Song Yadong fight. Bit of a surprise there. But overall, Matt, I mean, a really great level of prelims. Very, very good fights. I mean, compared to last weekend's 9-fight set, we really got a lot of great ones. So we'll flip it back over. We'll have a look at this main card because, again, it is just absolutely stacked with talent. Of course, again, our last fight, one of the better ones that we were going to have, but Thiago Santos, Aleksandar Rakic. I mean, how can you not get excited for this one?
I've said Aleksandar Rakic is going to be champion, and I don't say that about a lot of fighters, okay? It's not like I'm like Ariel Helwani. We're like, wow, if I give you the rub, it means a lot. But no, it's really hard to say a guy's going to become champ, but I look at what Aleksandar Rakic is able to do, and a lot of people say I'm overhyping him, but that's fine. He is the best athlete in this division by far. And athleticism, I know I keep on bringing this up. I sound like a broken record. You don't need to be an athlete in MMA, but if you are, it is a massive advantage. And we don't see a lot of guys at 205 with the combination of his explosiveness, not just on the feet, but also in his wrestling. And a lot of people say, oh, Rakic, he's just going to take you down and lay on you. Do you remember what he did to Jimmy Manuwa? He kicked his head basically off his shoulders, and it's one of those brutal knockouts of all time. So I really like Rakic in the next fight, but I'm really excited. Thiago Santos never has a boring fight either.
And I mean, in agreement with Craig P. Higgins, Ed Can, and Glenn Bacardi, I had Rakic as one half of the Fight Night Picks !Kicks parlay. I dropped the decision in the Elliott fight against Espinoza. I had that when we were on Line Sniper the other day, but I have the over 1.5 in the first title fight. But our next fight, Matt, we have Islam Makhachev taking on Drew Dober. And again, a lot of people like to talk about this when you have the grappler in such a good fighter in Islam Makhachev. You have such a good striker in Drew Dober. We got to hit up the Blue Dash and the Super Chat.
Great question, first of all.
Saying thoughts on Phillips winning a ceiling. It was a fight of the night contender. We had it as the Fight Night Picks fight of the night contender. And listen, it definitely delivered for sure.
Such a fun fight.
But you look at that fight, and listen, for Song Yadong, I mean, a good fight on his part. Like, exactly. It was a good fight for both guys.
And we brought this up earlier. He's only 23. Like, you're going to get better. And the fact that he's able to have close fights with the likes of Kyler Phillips, Marlon Vera, who he holds a win over, albeit controversially, and Cody Stamen, like, at 23 years of age, you shouldn't be fighting guys like that. You shouldn't be in the top 15 up bantamweight. And the fact that him and Kyler Phillips are two of the better young stars in that division, I think lightweight is still the best division in the UFC. I still do. But bantamweight is right there with it when you look at not only the top 5, but really the whole top 15. Kyler Phillips is an interesting case, too, because you saw how good his striking looked in this fight, but you got to see a little glimpse of how good his wrestling and his jiu-jitsu is, and they mentioned it on the broadcast. He's been doing jiu-jitsu since the age of 3. Like, Kyler Phillips is the total package. He really is, and it's nice that he is finally starting to catch a stride in the UFC. Didn't have the best start, but it's not how you start, it's how you finish, and I really do think Kyler Phillips is going to be at least in the top 10 for a while. It's hard to say top 5, because, again, in the top 5, you have the Aldos of the world, the Corey Sandhagens, but you look at Kyler Phillips, and he does give me some Sandhagen-y vibes. Like, he just does a lot. He's very dynamic. He's awkward, but in a great way. Not in... I know Tim Elliott won.
But you saw Kyler Phillips, I don't want to steal your thunder, you saw him cut angles and dip away. Like, listen, it wasn't to the extreme as Dominic Cruz in the first round when he's dipping one way and totally going the other way. But you look at the way that Kyler Phillips fought that fight against such a high-level striker. You've seen him take on Cameron Else that was supposed to be halfway decent on the ground. You saw him fight Gabriel Silva, who only has a ground game. Exactly. So, really, for me, Kyler Phillips just keeps passing these tests. And to pass the Song Yadong test, all right, now in my mind, Kyler Phillips, holy smokes, this guy is definitely a force to be reckoned with. That was the test that you had to prove. And for Song Yadong, He fought a competitive fight,
Exactly.
and that's the thing. He fought a competitive fight against Stamen. He fought a competitive fight against Marlon Vera, and he fought another very good fight against Kyler Phillips, and you can't take away from either guy in that spot.
Honestly, the only thing I think that you can fix for Song Yadong, if he cuts off the cage a little bit better, he could have won that fight. Now, Kyler Phillips has phenomenal footwork, so maybe he would have had the answer to that, but Yadong was doing a lot of following of Phillips, and then when Phillips would plant and really throw, you could tell how much power he landed with. But I really like what Phillips said after the fight, not really his inspirational speech at the end, but right before that. I like what he had mentioned. He said they were asking if he was surprised Yadong didn't go down after the head kick, and he was like, yeah, a lot of guys have finished with that head kick. But I like what he said right after. He said, this is a wake-up call. These guys in the top 15 aren't just going to go down after one shot. Like, they know how to be sound defensively, and you like that, because you can tell that Kyler Phillips is making the adjustments even while he's in the cage. And for a guy that young to show such high fight IQ, I really do think the sky's the limit for him.
So the Blue Dash, we appreciate you in the super chat. Mitch is going with Drew Dober. When we're talking about this fight, Islam Makhachev, big favorite, but again, we saw that Drew Dober has an excellent right hook. Adriano Martins had an excellent right hook. So put the pieces together. Drew Dober definitely has a shot in this one. I just like Islam Makhachev and his complete game. And the stat that I find very telling, and I don't know if the UFC site's going to have it right here. They will. You look at the strikes landed per minute to absorb, and you look at the number for Drew Dober. And then you have a look at the fact that 72% defense, 56% significant strikes. That defensive number is huge.
Oh, it's massive. And this fight is going to be interesting because, yes, Drew Dober's the better striker. I don't think Makhachev's getting his respect as a striker himself. Now, I don't think he can go out there and win a 15-minute kickboxing fight with Drew Dober. I think he'd be really stupid if he even tried to. But I don't think for as long as this fight's on the feet, Makhachev is in danger. I think Dober's a very good striker. But I think the guys who he has knocked out in the past... Listen, Nasrat Haqparast is a very good fighter, but he knocked him out moving in. So, okay, it was a good knockout over a good prospect. Alexander Hernandez's chin is questionable at best, and he knocked him out. He's beaten guys who I kind of expected Drew Dober to beat. This is the big step up in competition. And for Drew Dober, even if he loses this fight, I don't think it's the end of the world. If Drew Dober can go out there, stuff some takedowns, win a round, and make this fight competitive, people are saying Makhachev is the next Khabib. So if you can go in there and at least have a competitive fight with him, it's not going to completely destroy your hype. Like, you can still be around in the top 15 and beat a lot of good guys. It's just, for Drew Dober, I don't think he has crippling power. I think he has good power, and I think you need crippling power to beat Islam.
Matt, if we head on over into the chat, Anthony says, me versus Hans Molenkamp. I'm drinking a Guru Energy. So, yeah, I'm not on that monster. Ed, you don't think the guys are going to come out swinging? Mark, we appreciate you hanging out with the Fight Companion.
Somewhere.
And Mitch hitting us up in the super chat. A+ team. Cruz called out Ali.
Aldo, I hope. Aldo beats him, and I'm just going to say that now.
It'll be an interesting fight, Matt. We'll move into our title fight. Hopefully he didn't call out like Aljamain Sterling. Thiago Silva saying Thiago or Rakic. We both had Rakic to start. I've got him on the question mark kicks parlay. Petr Yan taking on Aljamain Sterling. Wow. And Joe asked a good question. So let's answer Joe's question there. What did you think of the Nzechukwu fight? That Carlos Alberg was not ready for prime time.
It was just a weird fight, and I don't really know, because Carlos Alberg looked good until he didn't, and it was weird. He kept on doing that Izzy thing where he holds your hands up at your guard. The difference is, Adesanya comes with elbows, he goes to the body. Alberg was doing a lot of, like, freezing there, and he wasn't going to the body. And then the second round, when he did start to go to the body, it was kind of too little too late. He himself had already fatigued quite a bit by then, so for Alberg, I have no idea what you do. Like, maybe he is just a Gokhan Saki who, like, he can have fun fights in MMA, but he might not beat those top-tier guys because his gas tank's questionable, and he might not be able to defend kicks or takedowns. Good win for Kennedy, though. Like, he showed a great chin. He had to go through a lot of adversity, ate a clean head kick, and was still able to win by knockout over one of the more dangerous kickboxers. So, it was a great win for Kennedy.
And Matt, I mean, on this one with Yan and with Sterling, again, we're talking about two of the most well-rounded fighters in this division. For Petr Yan, mainly known as a striker, but he can get it done a lot of different ways.
I mean, your boy Mini Vitor Belfort, Silva de Andrade, had to find that out the rough way. And you look at what Petr Yan was able to do to D. Silva Andrade, and listen, Andrade isn't the top-tier fighter by any means. That was hard to watch. He gets him in a crucifix and just elbows him for what feels like minutes in that fight. So, Yan does have a very good ground game, and I liked what his jiu-jitsu coach had said coming into this fight. I don't remember the exact name, but it was in an article on ESPN, and he had said, listen, just because I'm training Yan in jiu-jitsu doesn't mean I want him shooting takedowns and engaging in the grappling with Aljamain Sterling. I'm just teaching him how to be defensively sound and get back up to his feet. And then, the next time we work together, I'll have a little bit more time to train in the jiu-jitsu with him. It's a good outlook from a coach, because The thing I always hate is you have a grappler goes to a striking coach and they become Bangkok ready overnight, where that coach just has it in their mind that like, hey, you're this new thing all of a sudden. But if you're Petr Yan, defend the takedowns and force us into a boxing fight. Aljamain is a great striker, but there's not many guys really in the UFC who could strike with Petr Yan on a pound-for-pound level, if you will. So I think if Yan can keep this on the feet, his power will eventually start to get to Sterling, probably around the 4th or 5th round.
Matt, I'm really looking forward to this one. Why Kenney never betting against Kyler Phillips again?
I don't blame you.
I wouldn't either. Matt, co-main event. Megan Anderson's taking on Amanda Nunes. And listen, there's a lot of people that are taking Megan Anderson to get a finish. And that's probably about it because I don't see her winning a decision against good old Amanda Nunes. So it's a really tricky one to try and predict, and to try and say a lot of nice things. And that's kind of been my narrative the whole week. And I've been nice about it, and I'll keep being nice about it. Again, Megan Anderson, nice right cross. She has brooding type of footwork where she just kind of continues to move forward, real gangly type of stance, but it works for her against most of her opponents. And really, if she takes on a very upper level of, jiu-jitsu practitioner, wrestler, she's going to struggle. But when you fight the Zara Farrens of the world, you're able to get through. When you fight Norma Dumont, who took the fight on somewhat a short notice, moving up a weight class, she was able to get the win there. And since then, we've seen how good Norma Dumont can look. Against Ashley Evans-Smith, she looked great. So for Megan Anderson's, there's opportunities for Megan Anderson to win. It's just they're a lot more few and far between than they are for Amanda Nunes.
You beat someone who beat Ashley Evans-Smith. You want to fight Amanda Nunes? Was that the sales pitch for Megan Anderson? Now, I'm not going to be as nice as Craig, but I'll say this much. Amanda Nunes seems like a great mom. That's really nice to see. She seems very happy in her life. But she's better than Megan Anderson at everything. Like, they're showing the highlight reel of her head kicking Holly Holm. We both thought she was going to beat Holly Holm. Never thought in a million years she would head kick one of the better just kickers in the UFC. Of course, the cyborg knockout. Like, Nunes has crippling power on the feet. She is one of the best submission artists in the division, and she's a really good wrestler. And oh, by the way, doesn't get tired anymore. So for Megan Anderson, it's going to be tough to beat Amanda Nunes. Really, her only shot is that one big punch. Maybe she could toe her in the eye like she did Kat Zingano, but I really doubt that's going to happen. So it's going to be an uphill battle for Megan Anderson. This is very much one of those, like, hey, we'll keep you active, Amanda fights, but hopefully Megan Anderson can at least make this a competitive fight.
All right, Matt, we both have Nunes in that one. And then we get to our main event. I mean, you're talking about great fights in, one of the weirdest divisions right now in MMA is light heavyweight because you have some up-and-comers. Obviously, everybody's excited about Jamal Hill. We've seen the Johnny Walker experience for a little bit now. Ankalaev, Prochazka. So we have a lot of fighters making moves and starting grooves. Before they knew we were gone, awesome to hear that song tonight. But I look at this fight, I mean, Jan Blachowicz taking on Israel Adesanya. I mean, Blachowicz is a great striker. He just does it in different ways compared to Israel Adesanya.
In a very stiff way. I feel like patting Jan Blachowicz on the back would be just like hitting a wooden table. There's not a lot of give to the man. And for Jan, it'll be really interesting because Jan's going to have to wrestle at some point in this fight. And he's a good wrestler. He's not a great wrestler by any means. It's not an area of his game that we really see that often. And that's what makes this fight really tough. Jan Blachowicz has a very good ground game. He has great jiu-jitsu. He just struggles in the wrestling department that gets the fight to the ground to where he can use the jiu-jitsu. And for Adesanya, I say it a lot, footwork is the best way to defend a takedown. It's the same way, how do you get out of a submission? Well, you never get into it in the first place. So for Adesanya, if he can stand at range, if he can use his footwork, and just never let Jan really get into that grappling distance, I think Adesanya can just pick him apart at range. I very well could see this fight going the way of like a Brad Tavares fight with Adesanya. He might not get the finish like he was able to with Costa, but it's going to be Blachowicz being somewhat apprehensive on the outside, and Adesanya just pot-shotting him for the most of the night.
Jan Blachowicz is one of those guys, so unorthodox too. So Kenneth making a good point, going for Izzy but scared for him. Don't sleep on Jan's ground game. And that's the thing, I mean, you look at the wins that he's had so far in the UFC. He gets behind you, he chokes you out. He gets on top of you, he chokes you out. He gets your back, he chokes you out. He could probably take home a leg with him, and he just wrap his little bracelet around it and take it home with him. Airmail to Poland. But I look at Jan Blachowicz as he's a bit of a stiffer striker. He's one of those guys that kind of moves his core when he goes to throw his hooks. And it works for some guys. And it's worked for him to the point where he's got gold around him. So it's such an interesting fight. Again, contrasting strikers. They had that whole thing unembedded of how they gave Israel Adesanya his great big chain. Will he wear it? We'll see. And Joe saying that the odds are pretty good for Izzy, but Jan's got that Polish power. It's a hard one. It is a hard one. It really is. Like, be honest.
Oh, it is. I'm not going to... Listen, I love Jan Blachowicz, okay? I'm not a big fan of a lot of guys anymore since we cover the sport so closely, but like Jan Blachowicz, I really like to watch him fight, and he's a great example of a quote that I bring up from Wreck-It Ralph. You don't got to be a bad guy to be a bad guy, and Jan Blachowicz proves that. He's just happy all the time, and he's one of the few guys who genuinely seems to enjoy the process, and it's nice to see. For Jan, too, if he can win this, I would love to see them do Jan Blachowicz in Poland after this whole pandemic's over.
And it's over to share.
Could you imagine? MMA in Poland is massive already, and to have a guy like Jan Blachowicz, former KSW champion, is Polish, fighting in his home country, that would just be a sight to see. If they could somehow fill like a soccer stadium, that would just be a really cool thing moving forward that I wish we could see, but... It's going to be tough for Jan. And it's weird, too, because the storylines are something that you always kind of got to think about when we do have big fights like this. And for Adesanya, okay, he wins this, he becomes champ. You're basically guaranteed to be in the Hall of Fame anyways. Jan Blachowicz, if he wins this, does he say, like, hey, John Jones, where you at? Because for Jan, yes, Glover's, he's kind of waiting there. Of course, the winner of Santos and Rakic is going to be right there as well. Jan, I doubt, ever moves up to heavyweight. It's going to be really weird to see where both guys go next and who... they both have their sights set for.
It would be interesting to see Jan move up to heavyweight. Like, I'd be down for that for sure. Jan Blachowicz taking on Stipe Miocic. Who wouldn't want to see it? But if we're getting ready for our first fight on the card, you have Thiago Santos taking on one really tough out in the Austrian, Serbian man himself, Aleksandar Rakic. Matt, I mean, it's one of those fights that, you know, Williams excited for it, saying, let's get into it. And Chito Ventura saying, Izzy's the man. He's got more moves and he's faster. I agree with you in the pick. And that's kind of what I was going with when I made the pick. But I look at this fight, Matt, Santos-Rakic. I mean, since Rakic lost his pro debut, he won 12 fights in a row until he lost to Volkan Oezdemir. And really for Volkan, it was the leg kicks that really made a big change in that fight. Scored with the judges, scored with some of the fans, but not a lot of the fans. So Oezdemir wins that fight, and Rakic has to go back to the drawing board. And then he just keeps winning. And it's one of those things where you can't really deter this guy. Like, it's really difficult to stop Aleksandar Rakic.
He's got pressure for days, and you really do need something to earn his respect early on in a fight. And even Devin Clark was able to do that, and Rakic just went after him. And Rakic, I'm going to say what I said in question mark kicks, he's a bit of a tryhard. And I do mean that in a great way, because it's not like he's a fighter who... I'll use Kelvin Gastelum as an example. Kelvin Gastelum's a little bit lackadaisical in the way that he fights. He's not always pressing the action. Rakic is going 100 miles an hour for as long as the fight is happening. And for a guy like Thiago Santos, he's got that Goldilocks zone in his striking, where if you're not too far away and you're not too close, he can knock you out. But he's only going to get like a millisecond where Rakic is in that range, and he's going to have to catch him moving into something. I think he's more than capable of it, because it's Thiago Santos we're talking about, who has the most knockouts in middleweight history and a bunch of knockouts in light heavyweight. But I do think the wrestling of Rakic is really going to give him problems.
And I mean, Robo GAM, great commentary. We appreciate you. Isaiah talking about Santos before surgery. Glenn saying no need Santos. We got somebody hanging out from the ATL. You got great shoe stores in the ATL, and I'd love to go to all of them. Jawan is saying, yo, what's up? You're watching from B-Dub Dubs. You just ordered Manscaped. And listen, Jawan, I miss B-Dub Dubs. I haven't been to one since... I don't even think I went to one last February, so it's been a long time since I've been to B-Dub Dubs, but I missed the closest one to me is probably 2 hours and 45 minutes away in Bangor. So I wish I could go.
We'll try to hang out there at some point in the future.
But I look at this one, Matt, and again, you've got Rakic. He's been in 2 different co-main events, when he fought Jimmy Manuwa, when he fought the aforementioned Volkan Oezdemir, and he had a main event, only a 3-round one against Anthony Smith, where he dominated. So you're taking on an Anthony Smith in that fight, a middleweight that's moved up to light heavyweight, had a lot of success, very similar to Thiago Santos, but Anthony Smith is probably the better grappler. I mean, we've seen it in a lot of his fights. The Volkan Oezdemir fight that's behind you, that was a great example of a very complete Anthony Smith, where he kind of withstood the pressure early, put it on Volkan, got him down to the mat, finished him. So I look at Thiago Santos in this one. He just has to land one power shot, and everybody knows it.
Well, he's got Mjolnir tattooed on his chest, and maybe you guys aren't as nerdy as I am. That's Thor's hammer, and that's so intimidating. If you're standing in a cage looking at a guy with a hammer on his chest, that man is probably really, really good at fighting, and I love watching Thiago Santos fight. I don't think that's much of a hot take. I'm pretty sure we'd all be in agreement with that. He's an absolute wild man, to steal a word from Joe Rogan. I'm curious to see, though, if he can defend the takedown, and if he does get taken down, does he have that explosive power to get back up to his feet anymore after those ACL surgeries? Because you see some guys, and I'm going to use a basketball reference because, of course, that's what we do around here. Kristaps Porzingis has had a lot of knee injuries, and at this point in his career, he just can't play defense because of it. He's not as mobile as he used to be. For Santos, against a guy like Glover, it's tough to be mobile. He's always on you. He's pressuring you. You are going to be moving backwards. Rakic can employ that exact same style, though. For Santos, I really do think this fight comes down to how he gets back up to his feet. Because Rakic, I think, will strike with him for a little bit, but he's going to go for the takedown. And, yeah, I think that takedown is going to come early and often for Rakic.
Mitch brings up a good point. Lesnar's sword tattoo is another story. Thiago Santos making the walk in here. Will he throw a body kick? Because that's another one of those kicks that he uses quite well. He used to use the leg kick as almost a rangefinder, but he hasn't really done much effect. I mean, his last fight only threw 2 of them. In the Jones fight, it was 27-53. And in the fight before that against Blachowicz, 26-36. So he's really able to land. We got somebody hanging out from the Appalachian Mountains of Virginia.
West Virginia. Sorry.
The Appalachian Mountains that start up in New Brunswick, Canada. If you go up to Mount Carlton, great spot up there.
Lovely spot.
Miss it. Yeah, overall, again, though, Matt, this is a great fight. I mean, 2 guys that are proven finishers. Maybe if you're siding a decision, maybe you're thinking the younger fighter here, Rakic at 29, is going to be able to one that's going to be able to withstand some of that barrage. And will he get dropped? We've seen him get dropped so far in the UFC, too.
I'm not a clairvoyant, Craig. I wish I could tell you right now if he gets dropped. I will say this. If he gets dropped one time, he's getting finished. I don't think Thiago Santos needs to hit you twice. I really don't. And for Santos, listen, Glover Teixeira, we know his game plan by now. It's get dropped, get into mount, finish my opponent. Not a lot of guys can do that, unfortunately. And I really doubt Aleksandar Rakic is the type of guy who can eat an overhand right, look dead, and then somehow end up winning the fight by rear naked choke. I cannot stress just how excited I am for this fight, because it could end in 5 seconds, or it could be an absolute drubbing of either guy for 15 minutes.
Michael Chaplow, you definitely know Mount Carlton, sir, and I'm glad you're tuned in as well. As we get particulars on Aleksandar Rakic, they've got him as a -175 favorite here, representing Vienna, Austria, and Serbia as well. And that was kind of the commentary early on in the night when Uroš Medic was able to get the big win over Alon Cruz, and the referee went night-night during that fight. But a great finish for Medic. You can't take it away from him. This should be a great fight. So what we'll do with Fight Night Picks and the Fight Companion, we will pop that timer up there as soon as this round starts. We get a blank right now. If you're following along at home, there's definitely going to be a delay. More meant for the playback and the resolution that you're watching on YouTube right now. But as soon as it starts, maybe pause your TV, try and get it in sync with us. I'm sure we'll have a little bit of a lag as the night goes on. But that's pretty much the nuts and bolts of this one, and I'm really looking forward to this fight, Matt.
So like we always say, let's get into it.
Matt, with a premature let's get into it, didn't say it in unison, it doesn't count. But again, overall, very interesting and important fight in this 205-pound division because, again, you got a title fight in the main event with Adesanya, and he's taking on a really tough out in Blachowicz. You've also got Glover Teixeira that weighed in 204.5 pounds yesterday, so it'll be interesting to see who the winner of this fight gets next. That's what I'm really looking forward to here.
I'm so excited for this fight. I really am. I think this fight's going to be absolutely insane.
All right, Matt, first
You get a glove tap.
round, here we go. We've got Rakic holding that right hand up quite high, and you have to anticipate the high kicks of Santos as well. He'll really chop all 3 levels if he does get moving. One of the things that we saw out of Thiago Santos in his last fight was the fact that, and there he goes to throw a kick, a little off balance, but he will start to flex his hips a little bit just to show it, to give you a different look. But Rakic right now cutting off the cage with Santos beyond the 2 black lines.
Not a lot of guys make Thiago Santos look small, but Aleksandar Rakic is doing that right now. Like, just frame-wise, he is massive for 205, and it will be kind of interesting. He's 29, so I doubt he's going to grow that much more. But if he will ever fight at heavyweight, because, again, heavyweight, it's not that they're less skilled, but let's be honest, heavyweight's normally the least skilled, and then you get more skilled as you go down. So it would be interesting to see just a guy of his size and frame. He probably walks around like 230, so maybe he could have future at heavyweight at some point.
Santos starting to feint with the hips, as mentioned there, but I mean, he's switching stances quite well. He's throwing his legs out there. Again, more than we saw in that Glover fight, where you had to worry about the threat of the wrestling quite a bit. And with Rakic, it's always there, and that's one of those things that you always have to keep in mind. He is a great striker, but he has a very dynamic ground game, and I know it's one of the things that we had heard when we were on the Line Sniper show yesterday, or the day before, was the fact that, you know, ATT Zagreb is built around Aleksandar Rakic. Everybody's there for him. Lands a nice inside leg kick there, does Rakic. And very interesting to see, because both these guys are meeting right there.
And it will be interesting, like you mentioned with Rakic's camp. I'm always curious what's better. Is it better to have like that champ camp where everything is centered around you, like Glover Teixeira has that? Or is it better to have like an ATT where you've got a bunch of killers all the time? You've got a few coaches that kind of have to share all those fighters. So for Rakic, I think he does have a really good training just regime around him. I love his ceiling. And like I said, I do think he'll be champ one day. But so far, both guys pretty tentative in this fight. I think they both realize the power that their opponent does have. And I'm kind of surprised Rakic hasn't even attempted a takedown yet. You know he's going to be a little bit worried about entering that distance with Santos. But again, I expect a takedown very early from Rakic.
Chito Ventura, if we showed the video, we'd get kicked off of YouTube, and I'm not ready to get kicked off of YouTube. So we'll just keep doing what we're doing, and you keep doing what you're doing. Rakic, again, doing a good job so far of really setting the stage. Storytelling sucks. Well, sorry, Chito. I'm sorry, buddy. But again, yeah, you got to look at it. I mean, Rakic, again, doing a very good job of cutting the cage. And for Santos, you make a good point. For most Thiago Santos fights, yeah, he'll respect the power a little bit, but normally we see him blitz forward. We saw it once where he got caught by the head kick of Rakic, so it'll be interesting to see how this one goes. Nicholas wants us to show the fight. Nicholas, you're barking up the wrong tree. Santos really starting to land here now as he catches the kick of Rakic.
Yeah, and Rakic's being lazy with that right hand now. Now he brought it up, thank goodness. But yeah, he was dropping it a little bit. If you're Rakic, though, he hasn't thrown a lot, but at least he's not getting hit, and he is controlling the cage, and those are good signs so far. I think once he does get Santos up against the cage, he probably will attempt a takedown. Again, surprised he hasn't done it yet, fighting an opponent with basically no ACLs. But again, very evenly matched fight. Neither guy doing that much.
Be interesting to see how it goes on. We got about 1:45 remaining in our first round. And again, Rakic doing a great job of minding distance, keeping that lead hand out there, keeping Thiago Santos on his back foot. And as he switches over from southpaw to orthodox, doing a good job of kicking the lead leg of Santos. We saw him kick the rear leg, being Santos's right leg early on. Evan Longoria tweet popping up. That's a bit of a surprise.
One of the better AL East third basemen.
Used to be, yeah. Rakic misses on a head kick attempt. 1:15 remaining in our first round.
That head kick was kind of close. Santos almost ducked into it. He did get down like a little early, but still, that was close.
Yeah, and again, for both of these guys in a 3-round fight, bit of an interesting feeling out process in the first round.
It has been so far, and this is going to be a tough round to judge. I would say it's going to be one of those weird rounds that comes down to cage control because that's the last of the judging criteria, but again, neither guy throwing that much, and for Santos, a guy who's known for being that wild man, he's going to move forward, he throws in combination. This is much more the approach that he took in the Jan Blachowicz fight, where he was a little bit more reserved, and he forced Jan to be the aggressor, and he turned himself into the counterpuncher, but Rakic is getting very close when he is throwing his hands, and that's a good sign if you're a Rakic fan.
Rakic doing a good job. Again, he's keeping that hand up there, worried about the kick that we've seen so many times. I mean, you want a great Thiago Santos fight, of course, that Jack Marshman fight, a reason to keep your hand up there for sure. Red Sox fan for life 13 saying, let's go Santos, who's on the back foot. 20 seconds remaining in our first round here. And holy smokes, what a close round. Not a lot of action. Rakic really offering up some different looks here. Santos continuing to switch stance, and worry about the kicks.
Yeah, and again, Santos, it's weird that that Rakic is having such a kick-heavy offense against Santos. That was a good left hand, though, as Santos tried to close the distance. Again, weird first round. I would give it to Rakic ever so slightly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you on that. I mean, it's a really close round. It's one that you kind of had to look forward to. Missing the topology picks from the FMP boys as well. Y'all should set up a league for viewers to pick along. Listen, I've thought about doing something like that. That's a good point by John Porter there. The fact that, maybe that'd be something that we do in the future, something that we hook up on our own site, fightnightpicks.com. You can check out the merch. Listen, Red Sox fan, you're going to like this. From 2013, I'm doing the Mike Napoli jersey, but you can get the Fight Night Picks jersey. You can get the shirt as well. But, again, very close round in terms of the total strikes. Rakic pulling away. Rakic is a massive dude.
And Duncan, Devin Clark might have the biggest legs just on the world. I don't think it's a negative that these guys have smaller legs than Devin Clark.
Conan Silveira looks like he's talking to Thiago Santos right in the soul. That was a very intense conversation that we just saw there.
We saw Conan Silveira at an outdoor
Mountain Equipment Co-op.
Yeah, that was neat.
Mike Chaplow, you were there.
He was.
Hope Santos' knees hold up 100%.
Goodness. It'd be bad if they don't all of a sudden. Again, I expect Rakic to go for a takedown at least at some point in this round. I doubt he's going to play on the outside with Santos. Interesting that it was such a feeling out process for both guys. You saw Santos kind of go for a little bit at the end of that round, but really not much for either guy on the offensive end in that first round.
Matt, that's one of those things out there. Matt Groidel, I mean, listen, there's a lot of pop and popcorn fights out there. You just got to know when to hold them, I guess. And it's one of those ones where I just do my best to, only go with 2 or 3 on a card, not go too crazy with it, sit back and enjoy it. The best part for us is the question mark kicks, the fight companions on the pay-per-view. We actually get to have a conversation. It's more of a dialogue and less of a one-way street of us just talking into a microphone, getting tired of listening to ourselves.
You sound like Garth Brooks setting up his Facebook page. It's a dialogue.
I just like to get physical, playing music. But again, more of the same here in the second round. Santos reaching with a kick.
Yeah, and for Santos, it's odd because he can kick off that lead leg, but he's not like an Edson Barbosa who has that really fast lead front kick to the body. So he does sort of have to wind up into it like Cowboy Cerrone against Miles Jury. And for Santos, you mentioned it a lot. You fed horse for a while. Hasn't thrown a lot of leg kicks in this fight. We've seen that be a weakness for Rakic in the past. If anything, Rakic is the one using the leg kicks. And against a guy who has questionable knee health, that's probably a really good strategy. But again, very surprised I haven't seen a takedown attempt.
Lead leg kick again from Santos, and I hate to continue to harp on it. There wasn't a lot on that. And I get it, like some of them are distance finders, but when he throws a lead leg kick out there to find distance, really heavy on his back foot, really far back in terms of the weight, working the body though is Santos here, and you have to think that would pay great effect in a longer fight. But we're into the second round, and we're not halfway through, but we're getting there. It's a bit of a surprise.
And especially with low output like this, you can't really rely on your opponent to get tired when neither one of you guys are doing much. Again, for Rakic, I expect him to be much more takedown heavy, force Santos to work. He's very heavily muscled. Fill that muscles full of blood, and then try to tire him out. But Rakic more than happy to play on the outside. And again, for Rakic, this might not be the worst path to victory. If you can stand on the outside, pot shot your way, you're making Santos miss every single time. And that's the good thing about Rakic. He does have pretty good footwork, too. He's not just going to be there to be hit. He's a guy who will move his feet and his head together. And that's something that we haven't always seen from him, so it's a new little wrinkle that we're starting to see.
Santos really starting to unload with the hands, and now we have Rakic pushing the clinch up against that back fence. Again, might be a little bit of a surprise because you did see Santos start to unload a little bit, start to get happy with his hands, and that's always a good spot if you're Thiago Santos. When he starts to throw in combination, you've got to look out. CC on that email to Jimmy Manoa.
If I told you at the start of the night, Craig, that Aleksandar Rakic, Thiago Santos would probably end up being one of the more boring fights of the night, would you believe me?
I probably wouldn't. Honestly, I probably wouldn't because, we've had so many good fights. The Cruz Kenney fight was a great one. The fight between Yadong and Phillips was great. And Zechku taking on Carlos Alberg. I mean, that was an exciting fight all the way up through. It's been a great night of fights. I tell you who's stuck in my mind out of all of these fights, because again, we got a little bit of clinch work from both of these men. Rakic trying to work the takedown, but he's just not really forcing it so far. Ronnie Lawrence, Vince Cachero. Like, if there's anybody that shone bright in the last 2 weeks, I want to see Ronnie Lawrence fight more.
As Craig tries to be a hipster. Listen, I think there's been a lot of great performances on this card. For Dominic Cruz, it was a great fight, and that's been the great thing too. Even when the fights have gone to decision, Askar Askarov, another guy, I thought he was good. I didn't think he was that good. I didn't think he'd be able to go out there and just beat Joseph Benavidez at every aspect of MMA. And that's the great thing about these cards. Cards that are stacked, of course you're going to get excited for them. This whole card has probably lived up to expectations, and that's been the great thing.
Matt Groidel, Kai Kara-France, what a fight against Bontorin. Bontorin had his back for about 4 minutes of that round, and then Kara-France willing his way up and really able to get the knockout done, and what a finish in that one. Again, we got about 1:05 remaining in the second round. Very close. Santos is able to, with his back up against the cage, land some really nice knees up there. Joe likes Lawrence, so see? And I'll do my Tracy Lawrence impression later, but again, it's Rakic controlling distance, but neither guy really doing a whole lot because, again, you know that they respect each other's power here.
Yeah, Rakic is up 2-0, I would assume. He's done more, even though he hasn't done much. And that's really the best thing I could say. Like, did Derek Lewis beat Francis Ngannou? I guess, even though neither one did that much.
Did Cyril Gahn beat Jairzinho Rozenstruik?
It's an awful fight, and I wish I never watched it.
It's really difficult. Red Sox fan, not really able to watch the card. Well, I appreciate you, sir. Rakic's fighting like he doesn't want any smoke. Phoenix Graves, don't disagree from you. For me, this second round, I've got it for Santos. Again, the knees in the clinch, the forward pressure, good combination there from Rakic at about 15 seconds.
When Rakic is letting his hands go, he is landing. He's the much more accurate of the two. So, yeah, I think Rakic has won this round. I don't think the slight knees in the clinch of Santos were enough to win it. I think they were good strikes, don't get me wrong. Probably his most significant of the fight. But you just kind of saw it there. A lot of missing from Santos. He's loading up a lot on his shots, and I don't know if he's looking for the power punch. But again, if you go into a fight looking for a knockout, more than likely you're going to lose the decision, and that's kind of what we're starting to see right now.
Strikes very close so far. 31 for Rakic to 29 for Santos. Rakic, again, landed that nice jump knee on the way in. You had to figure, again, with that last shot, pretty good one for him. Looks like the majority of the highlights we're seeing are for Rakic than for Santos. Again, a nice body shot that kind of tickled the cup a little bit, but we won't talk about it. Santos did have moments in that one. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a very tight round. I mean, either 19-19 or a 20-18. Scarecrow, boys, I call the method round of the Kennedy upset. City Kickboxing. I mean, hey, that one for Kennedy was nice. You know, give credit where credit's due. We had a tough time trying to get a read. Even in some of those kickboxing fights that I went back and watched, I just totally hit the wrong button there. But even in the kickboxing fights that I watched, you could see Albert kept his head up there, but usually he got the respect of his opponents with his power. It was just a tricky look, and man, the gas tank was not good.
My bad. I didn't know Kennedy would eat a clean head kick in the first round and come back like a zombie. It was a great performance, though.
All right, Matt, we're getting ready for a third and final round. The second round, very tight. The first round, Rakic. So you really need to expect hot and heavy Thiago Santos out of this one, I would think.
You would think so. And I'm assuming Conan Silveira is probably screaming at him in the corner, along with Yana Kunitskaya. I think Rakic, yeah, he's either up 2-0. Maybe it's 1-1. Personally, I thought Rakic won the second, but it was a close round. When neither guy does anything, it's really hard to make a solid stance. But again, Santos going to have to be that guy who we saw at middleweight. Moving forward, being dynamic, throwing a lot of kicks, not being afraid to go to the body, head, and legs. Not going for offensive takedowns, though, and that's not the version of Thiago Santos I like to see.
Whoa! Thiago Santos goes for a takedown, which you would think would be the worst thing for him to do in the fight. Eats a shoulder strike from Rakic. I love the shoulder strikes. Let's get into it. But really, again, you saw the live betting odds if you're watching the pay-per-view. Minus 450 for Rakic at the end of the second round. I was kind of surprised by that because Rakic coming into this one, what was he, a minus 225 or thereabout? No, sorry.
175.
175. At one point at open, he was quite a bit more of a favorite. The money came in on Santos as the week went along, but very interesting to see that.
This just hasn't been a great fight. That's it. It is what it is. I thought it was going to be phenomenal. I thought Rakic was going to go out there, probably ground and pound Thiago Santos. Haven't learned a lot from either guy. I still think Rakic has an insanely high ceiling. I think he'll have gold around his waist at some point in the UFC. But this is the type of performance that really hammers that home. And I know you were really happy when Gon beat Rosenstrike. And yes, a win is a win. But when you're trying to get a title shot, when you are really close, it doesn't just matter how you win. It doesn't matter the result. It matters how you win. And for Rakic, if he does just kind of do what he's been doing, cruise to a decision, it's a good win. I should really learn anything more about Aleksandar Rakic at the end of this fight.
And the trouble is, Rakic ranked 4th, Santos ranked 2nd, Glover's up there, you've got Adesanya, you've got Blachowicz, like, really, a really important win. And yeah, I mean, it's going to cause a problem for either one of these guys in terms of seeding in the division. We got about 3 minutes remaining. Rakic was working at a southpaw there. Landed a couple of nice kicks. Now he's back over to orthodox. Santos starting to land. We got about 2 minutes and 50 seconds remaining in our third and final round. And it's a close one.
This has been a weird fight. It really has been. We're seeing like bizarro versions of both guys. I thought Rakic should be out here being much more aggressive, trying to force the action, at least against the cage, maybe on the ground. But yeah, Santos just kind of winging shots, and he's coming close with some of them, but he hasn't been able to land to the head at all yet in this fight.
It's an odd game plan from both guys because, again, from Santos really investing in that body kick now in our third and final round. Maybe if you work the body, go to the head. And that's something that we've seen from a lot of different fighters, especially ATT fighters, and so much championship experience in that gym. I mean, Coach Mike Brown, Conan Silveira, the list goes on and on. And, of course, you have a great ATT fighter in your co-main event, Amanda Nunes, who's taking on Megan Anderson. But as we close in on 2 minutes remaining in our third round, Thiago Santos starting to press the action here. Rakic has to get busy.
Really? Neither guy's done that much. I mean, Santos has landed a couple extra strikes, but I don't really think either guy's running away with this round. We've had one round, probably Rakic. Round 2, it is what it is. And round 3 has been pretty close. If Rakic can get this takedown, though, up against the cage, maybe he's able to get something off on the ground. But Santos did a great job with those Travis Brown elbows.
Santos was going for a little bit of a guillotine, but again, really nice elbows there as well from Thiago Santos. Rakic continuing to push the pace, and he has not been able to take down the Brazilian in this one.
Really surprising. I thought Thiago Santos' takedown defense was poor at best. I thought he did a good job against against John Jones, and that was it. But good job for Santos so far. He has been sound defensively. He's shown that, listen, maybe his ACLs aren't still snapped. Maybe he has recovered them a little bit. But yeah, weird fight from both guys. Rakic just kind of holding him up against the fence. Nothing too significant going on right now.
About a minute remaining in our third and final round. And again, if you're scoring this third round, Santos has been the busier fight so far. Rakic trying to push a pace, trying to take him down, not able to do it. Thiago Santos attempting his own takedowns. Just an odd game plan. Shoulder strikes from both guys here in the clinch. Not something you see very often.
This fight hasn't been good, Craig. I just gotta let people know. Oh, good right hand by Rakic. See, Rakic finally landed. Again, when Rakic throws his hands, he has good accuracy at range. It's just, he hasn't really thrown much. And I understand you're fighting Thiago Santos, one of the better knockout artists really ever. But you gotta throw something at some point if you want to win a fight. And I still think Rakic probably won this fight by decision. But it was much closer than it should have been and than it had to have been.
Yeah, really, really tight one. 20 seconds remaining in our third and final round. Rakic faking the takedown. You think it's a bit too little too late so far in this one. Santos switching stances. He's now operating from southpaw. Both of these guys just kind of doing something. Just doing something. Sean Smart's got it 30-26 for Rakic.
I'll agree.
Oh, boy. You know what? If we're scoring that fight, let's score it for disappointment.
29-28 Rakic, but no one won that fight.
Thiago Santos with more strikes. Obviously, he was able to accumulate those in the third and final round. You had Rakic in the first and second, outlanding him. Moment you wish you could see at least a reflection. Not going to happen, though. I'm sorry. So sorry. I'd like to know what the scores are out there from the fans because... yeah, that was a really, really close fight. Of course, we're going to see some odd tweets, and we'll see where they take us. But, again, total strikes going to Santos. He outlanded in the third round. Glenn Bacardi, Santos gets a decision. I'll eat my bet slip. How much for Fight Pass? I don't know how much it is where you're at. I think it's still $9.99, is it not? Blue Dash, $29.28 for Rakic. I mean, going through, not a lot of knockdowns because there wasn't any. You look at the total strikes. Again, Thiago really landing to the body. But you see Rakic head and at the legs. Brandon, I have no idea what Joe Rogan's saying, so let me know.
Yeah, we can't hear him.
I'd like to know.
Yeah.
Because Joe's given his props to a few guys, and I was really, really surprised out of it, to be honest.
So have I. This has just been a weird card all around. Been a great card. Listen, that was the only bad fight on the whole card. There's been 15 fights, or there will be 15 fights on this card. So, again, I think Rakic probably got a decision, but I'm not all that confident. That fight wasn't good.
Let's hear it from Bruce Buffer to give us our official decision that we actually can't hear. It'll be very interesting to see who they ended up going with. Looks like it was unanimous. Oh boy. The fate of the question mark kicks parlay riding on this one. Huh. Yes, thank goodness. Oh boy, Matt, we got him with Aleksandar Rakic. And you have no idea how good I feel about that one because it's been a wishy-washy night. And it's one of those ones where Rakic got his brown belt, but he didn't even grapple.
I mean, good for him, though. That's still a nice moment. Good job from his coach. That's nice.
Oh, thank goodness. All right, so we got Aleksandar Rakic. Our next fight, Matt, I'm really looking forward to it because... that's a good point by Phoenix Graves. You know what? Oh, man, that coach is strong AF. I'm going to put the subtitles on. That's a really smart thing to do. That's going to be really distracting because they put the subtitles exactly where that's going to be. Exactly where we're going to see the timer. So we'll see what happens there. But Phoenix, I appreciate you. Glenn Bacardi, thank you to the MMA god. Sean McMinn needed that one. Sean Smart, I don't actually know what the score was. I'm going to update the Instagrams. It looks like the coach and the fighter are going to have a close moment there. It looked like they were dancing closely at a high school dance too. And this was always the song at the high school dance.
I could stay awake
just to hear you breathing. That was
We didn't plan that before this either. Good
Wow.
job, Craig.
That was pretty good. Does watching the fight with no sound make it less fun for you guys or no difference?
I mean, I'm having a blast right now.
I'm having a pretty good time. We got 227 people tuned in live. We appreciate each and every one of you. It's a lot of fun. No boozing tonight.
No.
I got the guru energy for staying up late. I've got the water.
I've drank about 7 Red Bulls today and had about 16 BioSteels, so we're feeling good. It's 11:45 where we are. Just having a good time watching the fights. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our rendition of Aerosmith.
Oh, man. Gotta hit that text, love. Well, I appreciate you. And again, yeah, it was an interesting fight, but just like Cyril Gahn's performance against Rosenstrike, leaves a lot to be desired. And if Rakic had an impressive win there, you have to think it's either Glover or you're the next in line for some sort of title fight. Interim or otherwise. It all depends on our main event. But you look at Rakic now, well, who's left?
I don't really know. It's weird where 205 is right now because it seems like you have the ascending and the descending, and we don't really know where everyone is right now. You've got the guys on their way out. The guys like, I hate to say Thiago Santos, but I don't think he is top 5 worthy anymore. I think he'll be around the top 10 for a long time. Don't get me wrong. I still think he knocked guys out, but at least the top 5 he's not. You've got guys like Jamal Hill on their way up. Yuri Prochazka's in the UFC now. Like, there is a lot of exciting talent there, but there is a lot of... Like, Paul Craig's in the top 15. It's nothing against Paul Craig. It's just when I look at the top 15 of lightweight, for instance. I don't know
lightweight sucks.
No, it does. Lightweight?
I'll like... If we're being critical.
Lightweight's the best division in the UFC. Maybe Ally Quint is still there, but I would very much argue lightweight's still the best division. It's very hard to even get ranked at lightweight or at a bantamweight or at a welterweight. At 205, you really only need maybe 3 good wins, then you can get up into that top 15. And for Rakic, yeah... You'd have to assume he's going to have to go back and maybe fight another top contender. I doubt they're going to give him Glover next. Glover's probably going to fight the winner of the main event, or who really knows what's going to happen there. But for Rakic, I would assume maybe Glover, or he might fight... I don't really know who else is out there at 205
Duncan
right now.
Stobner, you make a good point. I wasn't impressed with Rakic either. I assumed, again, like his last fight against Anthony Smith, it was a main event, it was a big spot, and you know how porous Thiago Santos' takedown defense was. However, I'm assuming Thiago Santos just drilled takedown defense because it was great tonight.
Oh yeah, he actually looked pretty good. Again, I don't think this is it for Santos by any means. I still think he's a very dangerous striker on the feet, and against guys who aren't bigger than him and have really big distance advantages over him, then you're not going to be able to beat a guy like Santos. If you stand there in the pocket and try to strike with him, he is going to put you down. A guy like Jamal Hill would probably have a hard time with Thiago Santos just because he is a primary striker who will stand right in front of you, and he doesn't have the size advantage over a guy like Santos. So, again, I don't think this is it for Thiago Santos. You lose a decision to Aleksandar Rakic. It is what it is. There's no shame in that. I still think he's got great striking. He's still very dynamic on the feet, and this isn't it for Rakic by any means.
Scarecrow 586, Glover is still bringing it. I mean, he probably should have got the title shot against Jan Blachowicz if you're purist, and he did weigh in at 204.5 as the alternate. Blue Dash, Rakic fight the winner, Prochazka Reyes. I think that's a great one. That's a main event coming up not too long in the future. Matt Groidel, you lost your parlays. Oh, Matt, dude. Son of a gun. Oh, well. All right,
Did you have Carlos Alberg on 12 of them? Because there's some sorry bastard out there.
Sean Simmons, how y'all boys pick against Cruz? It was a split decision because you didn't know what you were going to get out of Cruz. The trouble was you lose the Garbrandt in a title fight. You lose to Cejudo in a title fight. Well, those are 2 of the best fighters in the division at the time. So, listen, it was a tough one. Glenn Bacardi saying that Rakic wants a title shot. No way, Jose. No way, Aleksandar. Go back to ATT Zagreb. Train some more takedowns. Work on the cardio, have a 5-round fight. Because for me, Rakic is in that same club as Zabit Magomedsharipov. You're great. You're impressive. You got to fight a 5-round fight.
I agree to a certain extent. I don't think Rakic is a guy who's going to have trouble in a 5-round atmosphere. I don't. I think he's got very good cardio. We've seen that in the UFC.
Now, to really get into it, Hadil saying you're joining us. Thanks. We appreciate you. Joe Dirt, he wants the likes. We got to toss in the likes. Pop things up a little bit more. The really key comment that I have to get back to, and it was up a little bit, wasn't impressed by Rakic. A lot of people watching. Now I've lost it. But if you're looking at these fights, Matt, I mean, we had such fire on the prelims. A little bit of a downer in that one, but we'll bring it back. And now you have Islam Makhachev taking on one really tough out in Drew Dober, who's on a knockout streak. So it makes for a very interesting fight. And I'd like to get your take on it. Do you see it as black and white, as Dober's got to knock him out quick, or it's going to be a long night?
Yeah, I do. Now, yes and no. If you're just asking the black and white, does Dober need to be striking to win, and does Makhachev need to be grappling to win? No, I do think the striking of Makhachev is slightly underrated, just because everyone says it's bad, and I don't really think it is. He has good power, he holds his hands up, and that's really all you can ask from someone who has as good of a grappling background as a guy like Makhachev does. And for Drew Dober, he has good knockouts. He hasn't knocked out an elite fighter yet, though. And once you knock out elite guys, then I will say, okay, you're a real knockout artist. Dober's knocked out Nasrat Hakparas, who's a good fighter, but he's not elite. He knocked out Alexander Hernandez, who's got to stop complaining about losing every GD decision he's in. So I think Drew Dober's good. I don't think he's on the level of Islam Makhachev. I really don't. And a lot of people out there...
That was a comment. Sorry.
No.
Cut you off. John said you were hanging out from Papua New Guinea. It was really early for you. When is the Izzy on fight going to be? All right, so we got this fight. That's 15 minutes. I'm assuming this one's going to go decision. You got another fight that's probably going to go into maybe even championship rounds in Jan and Sterling. Then you've got a co-main event that'll end quick. For me, I bet you by 2 o'clock our time, which is in 2 hours, I bet you we're going to have a main event. Do you think so? Maybe a little bit
I can't
sooner?
predict the future, and I'm not a time wizard, unfortunately.
I'm trying to help. I'm just trying to be a good guy.
Probably. I would say, yeah, basically, well, they still keep the same amount of time for every fight, so it is going to be 15, 30, 30, 30. So yeah, by 2 o'clock, the main event should be coming around.
That's 2 o'clock our time, so it's in about 2 hours. So if people
Here's the thing. People say don't sleep on Dober. I'm sleeping with the windows open and the air conditioning on. I don't think he has a big chance.
That's how you ruin an air conditioner.
That's fine. It's also you sleep perfectly at night because your room's really cold. I don't think Drew Dober has a chance in this. People, Adriano Martinez is a good right hook, and so does Drew Dober. Adriano Martinez caught him coming in with a check right hook. Drew Dober doesn't have that kind of speed and timing, and that was more of a lucky shot, let's be honest. And that's not the same fighter who we have nowadays with Islam Makhachev. I think Drew Dober's a good fighter, but this is a terrible stylistic matchup for him. If Drew Dober was fighting Paul Felder tonight, then maybe he'd be able to beat him at 155. But you're talking about a guy who got taken down by Alexander Hernandez after he was already hurt. Islam Makhachev is one of the best wrestlers in the UFC. I think he's not only going to take him down, I think he's going to absolutely mop him on the floor. I really do. And maybe I'm not giving Drew Dober enough respect, but I think there's a lot of people out here who are just trying to find a way for Drew Dober to win where I just don't see there is one.
Well, I'll be interested to see what happens. How wasted are these guys? Well, I'm drinking an energy drink, and Matt has water, so I'm not very wasted. That would probably be pretty unprofessional, really.
Would be.
I'm trying to respond to the Instagram comments at the same time. Pretty awkward stuff. But we did have a comment where we were told that city kickboxing is overrated. And I didn't agree with that one. But we'll see.
Yeah, they've only got 3 belts between 2 of their fighters. Or, well, maybe by the end of the night. Who knows? How can you call them overrated? That doesn't make any sense at all. There's a lot of weird hot takes out there. I'm really excited for next weekend's main event that we're getting the promo for. A lot of people think that Leon Edwards is going to run over Bilal Muhammad, and he's probably going to win. Let's be honest. Leon Edwards, one of the better fighters in the division. No one respects him at all. But Bilal Muhammad is a real test at 170, and you don't just run over Bilal Muhammad. I know Vicente Luque knocked him out pretty early, but Bilal Muhammad, especially the one that we saw in his last fight, striking, goes to the body, goes to the head. You know how good his cardio is. You know how good his wrestling and his grappling is. He's going to make this a fight with Leon Edwards. It's just, Leon Edwards, I really do think he's going to be around in that top 5 and the top 3 and maybe even have the belt one day.
Michael Chaplow, great question over there. And Anthony, if Drew Dober wins, I'll pour the rest of that energy drink over my head. I'll do that for you, pal. If you like that, I'll do that. That's how confident I am. But Michael, with UFC getting more aggressive with the cuts, do you think Benavidez has one coming his way, or will at least keep him safe? I think he's one of those guys that he probably still has room. He's not a former champ. I'm sure he gets paid quite a bit, but we don't get to know how much he gets paid anymore.
Okay, Megan O'Leary said a long time ago in an interview that Joseph Benavidez is going to retire when he doesn't think he can fight the elite anymore. And after the Sergio Pettis fight, that was before the Sergio Pettis fight, I thought, okay, maybe that's it for him. But he lost a split decision after a long layoff. You can have some excuses there. Then he lost to Davison Figueiredo, the current champ, so no reason to retire. This was the first loss where you're like, okay, Benavidez did look a little old. He didn't really have many good moments in that fight. I don't think he would use his relationship with O'Leary to try to stay in the UFC. I think Benavidez probably realizes it's time to hang him up, and I kind of expect him to at some point throughout this week. And it sucks to say it.
So one thing that we had on early stoppage, and listen, I'm sure a lot of you missed it, but if you're a podcast fan, it's out there on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but it's also here on YouTube. John Franklin and I host that show, and we talk about everything and anything in MMA. We have different segments. They're always rotating segments. The point is, we had an over-under segment, and that's what I had in the thumbnail, and a lot of people probably got catfished on it, thought they were going to find more out about this, but one of the things that we had was an over-under of how many times are we going to get a promo for next weekend's card. I set it at 1.5. We've had 1 this whole time because, as always, the emphasis is on the pay-per-view and less so on their fight nights, really. Now we're getting ready for Makhachev Dober, so they kind of rolled over it after a preview of just your main event and a little bit of the card. But another question that we had, and that was kind of the one that we're getting Joe B's done, Rip Joe B, was how many retirement fights are we going to get? I set it at 1.5, and I picked the over. Now, Cruz looked good, so I don't think he retires. Joe B looked a step behind against a guy that's not totally known as a striker. Askarov has good striking, but not totally known as a striker. And then you still have Amanda Nunes. Is it a foot in, foot out? I think that's what they're trying to play on this week, and I think, you got to pump Megan Anderson up. That's why. But, yeah, I might have been wrong on that one. I picked the over 1.5, but I think with Joe B, it's tricky.
Joe B's the only guy in this card who could retire after tonight. I don't think Nunes does. I think she's more than happy to just keep on getting like money to beat up a bunch of people who she's probably going to beat anyways. Because for Nunes right now, she's beat the toughest competition available to her. So now it's not that it's going to be, softball tosses or anything, but she's already done everything. And I think that she can just stay around, keep on fighting fights, and keep on winning them. For Cruz, it's interesting. He looked good, but he didn't look elite. And that's the thing. Maybe I'm looking too much into it, but I don't know if that Dominic Cruz can beat top 5 guys. I'm going to have to see it. Maybe he goes out there and dips and dodges his way to another win, but it will be interesting to see where he goes moving forward.
Another good comment up there, Christian Molina, Ige Tucker, who you got. That's a big Canadian fight there. I mean, Gavin Tucker was getting ready after, and it was a decent turnaround, but he was getting ready for Cub Swanson. Now you're taking on Dan Ige. Totally different fighter. That's a style clash between Ige and Tucker. I love the fight. I have a hard time on that one.
I do too, but it's weird. If Gavin Tucker beats Dan Ige, I think it won't be very good for his career. And I've told this to Craig. Gavin Tucker is a great fighter. He's a really, really good fighter. He's super exciting. He has a lot of those X factors. If you beat Dan Ige, who I do believe is one of the more beatable guys in the top 15, then you never have an easy fight again. Edson Barbosa is number 15 at featherweight right now. And let's say Gavin Tucker fights Edson Barbosa. You know whose chances I don't like in that fight? Gavin Tucker's. And it's nothing against Tucker. It's just, I don't think his striking is at that level to fight the guys in the top 15 yet. I think he's a great example of a good, well-rounded mixed martial artist who can mix things up. But when you're a good guy who can mix things up, you're going to start fighting specialists at 145. And then you're going to fight a guy like Max Holloway who can defend every takedown and beat you up on the feet. I just think it's tough for him after that fight. Can he beat Dan Ige? I think he can beat Dan Ige. I just think after the Dan Ige matchup, it'll be interesting to see who they match up Tucker with if he is able to win.
It'll be an interesting one for sure. TJD22, you got a $500 parlay live right now. Nunes, Jan, Makhachev, Medic. Medic looked great in his fight. Sanjin's here for the Izzy show. 8% owned on, I'm assuming, Kenney and Shukwu. Should I take Israel by submitting? No. Losing, sorry. Sean V. Got him! I'm really looking forward to our next fight. I know there's a question up there. Do you think Islam's going to get it done by submission? This is one of those ones I just chalked up the pop and popcorn for me because it was a tricky one. Again, Drew Dober is the type of guy, just like we saw Trevin Jones earlier in the night, Mario Bautista's all that in a bag of chips. And you saw Trevin Jones go out there and throw that super uppercut.
Craig has a handful of Wolf tickets right now, and he's just throwing them in the air. And again, Drew Dober is going to have to show me something he's never done in his UFC career before to win this fight. I don't think you change overnight and become a new fighter. I think Drew Dober still has average takedown defense at best, and he's about to fight one of the best wrestlers in the UFC. So stylistically, do I think Drew Dober could beat guys in the top 15? Of course I do. I think he could beat some guys in the top 15 without a doubt. He's a good example of a guy who can mix it up, but he's got good power on the feet. It's just Makhachev doesn't give you the opportunity to knock him out. He will strike with you for all of 5 seconds until he starts for one of your legs. And with someone like Drew Dober, he can defend the initial takedown attempt, but when you chain wrestle, which is exactly what Makhachev does, then he starts to struggle. So I think Makhachev wins this one pretty easily, guys.
Yeah, Kenneth, you make a good point. Jan with that body bruise on Dom, that was one of the most disgusting injuries I've seen. Islam Makhachev making the walk. He's got Habib in his corner. Did Dana White have dinner with Habib? Did he convince him to come back? No, he didn't because the guy's retired. That's just silly talk. But of course, a lot of people in the Islam Makhachev camp, they want him to be the next Habib. And apart from that fight against Adriano Martins, he's looked amazing. So we'll see what happens for Islam Makhachev in this fight. Of course, the Arman Tsarukyan fight was one of the ones that a lot of people like to think back on. And maybe even you discount Islam in that fight because there were moments that Arman Tsarukyan had openings. We've seen since Arman's one heck of a fighter. Davi Hamos, you look at the fight that he had his last time out on short notice because he wasn't supposed to fight Matt Frevola, and he did. But, I mean, I think Arman Tsarukyan, another one of those young guys, is going to be around for a long time.
He's all that in a bag of chips, and Islam Makhachev was able to out-grapple him, and that's what's so impressive. Islam Makhachev out-grappled another guy who is on that, top tier for grappling. Now he's fighting a guy who's been taken down by a guy who was rocked. I don't know how this fight's competitive. I really don't. And I do see a lot of people, there's a lot of, Drew Dober can get the knockout. Drew Dober can get the knockout. You don't see as much of that when there's a guy who is a 3-1 underdog like you have in this fight. So I'm curious where the people are getting the confidence for Drew Dober from.
Matt Groidel, rather. I disagree. I think Habib is one of the greatest pound for pound. I mean, listen, it's hard for me to concede my Canadian feelings with George St. Pierre. John Jones, Demetrius Johnson are also up there, but overall should be a great one. Mitchell saying everybody knows that Habib's coming back. It's just a matter of time, really. If you want to shut the captions off here, Matt, I'll give you the handy-dandy controller there, because I think it is going to cut out our timer. But, and it's too distracting for me to follow either way. So if there's anything interesting that happens with their commentary, I'm sure it's not on the level of ours,
No,
JK.
goodness.
But I think this is going to be a highly interesting fight, especially for this lightweight division, because for Islam Makhachev, again, originally booked with RDA in a main event, he has to pull out. RDA gets Paul Felder. Great fight. And then we have this.
Yeah, and a lot of people are picking Drew Dober, and I don't understand why. And I've beat that dead horse for a while. But Makhachev, here's the thing, though. People got to stop saying he's the next Khabib, or he could be better than Khabib. Khabib never lost a fight, ever. He never even really had a competitive one. He just beat everyone really, really easily. Islam's lost. He's had competitive fights. I don't think he's nearly as good of a striker or a wrestler as Khabib. I just think it's a lot of pressure to put on a guy this early on in his career. I understand he trains with him. I understand, the background and all that. But can we just stop making that comparison?
All right, Matt. Getting fired up.
right.
Good point there by Glenn saying either of you boys see the belts changing hands tonight. Jan Sterling, really close fight. I went with the over 1.5. I have Jan to win, but that's a really close fight. In the main event, and Mike Chaplow at 217,
True.
That's the thing. All belts changed hands. I don't see Megan Anderson winning, unfortunately for her. And in the main, again, I have Adesanya. So for me, I've got one belt changing hands. We're in agreement on those. Kenneth loves the super cam.
I do too.
I think it's neat. I mean, it's cool. Like, they're trying new things.
Again, you can never hate on them for trying new things. The UFC broadcast was the same forever. And then now that they are on ESPN, they do seem to at least take more chances with their graphics and whatnot. So, again,
To me,
never a bad
I
sign.
really enjoy as we get ready for our first round. Again, if you're following along at home, you probably want to sync up with us, but I'll get the 5-minute timer started as the fight starts. Yeah, I mean, we got a great one here. Dober with a real shot. A lot of people going with Dober so far. So we'll see what happens in this one. We get the start of our very first round. And like I said, I mean, Islam Makhachev, you go from a 5-round main event against a former titleist to a guy that's kind of been there and done that. He's been there for a long time. Drew Dober, for the most part, his losses are to, some of the better guys. And some of these wins here recently, maybe not against top 15 fighters, but up-and-comers, guys that have had a lot of wind in their sails. And Dober's been able to just end 3 hype trains in a row.
He's not doing it for a 4th time, and I'm going to look really dumb if he is, because I've really planted my flag in the Islam Makhachev corner, but again, Drew Dober's a good striker with good power. I don't think he's a great striker, and I don't think he has great power, and I think you need both those things to beat a guy like Makhachev.
Dober really starting to invest in that leg kick there. We've seen that so far early. Both guys trying to fight for the pocket here. In the center, Dober's starting to push a little bit of a pace here. Makhachev eager to stand as we draw a minute into our very first round. Again, Makhachev going for the takedown. That first takedown, single into a trip, and he is on top working from half guard. So, ladies and gentlemen, friends and pals, everybody of all ages, Islam Makhachev gets a takedown very easily in our first round.
Wild how that works, isn't it? It's almost like the guy with a lifetime of wrestling experience can take down the guy who's been taken down a bunch in the UFC. Drew Dober, defensively, it will be interesting because I go back to the RDA Paul Felder fight, for instance. RDA, super good black belt, an amazing wrestler. Paul Felder is at least good enough defensively to make him work in every position. Make him work, make him work, make him work. And someone like RDA, who has an endless gas tank, you won't be able to really tire them out doing that. But for Makhachev, if you are able to stay really sound defensively, you might be able to fatigue him a little bit in that 2nd and 3rd round to make the takedowns a little bit easier to defend. But other than that, I don't really know where the path to victory for Dober is.
Gary Vaynerchuk saying watch the left hand on the screen. Gary V, MMA fan? Does he have a management company? Yes, he does. So it'll be interesting to see as MMA moves forward, when you have such a big guy invested in it, how that's going to grow. We haven't seen a lot. We've seen a few tweets here and there, but the agency definitely has quite a few big fighters that jump ship as he got into it. 2 minutes, 48 seconds remaining here in our first round. Islam Makhachev trying to pass from half. It looks like he'd almost be willing to jump right into mount, but really doing a good job. Trying to soften up the body a little bit. Drew Dober, sound defensively from this position. Hasn't really given up a whole lot.
I mean, he's stuck in half guard pretty bad. If you're Drew Dober, work to get up to your feet. There shouldn't be anything else that you're doing other than trying to stand right now. And it's much easier said than done, again, against someone who has had a lifelong experience with grappling. But again, for Dober, he's either going to develop that like Alexander Gustafsson takedown defense where it's like, okay, my first move is insane, and then from there I might be able to get held down. But Dober doesn't even have that first explosion back up to his feet. Max Holloway is another good example. Now, to be fair, Max Holloway is a very, very good grappler, but
Makhachev passing. He has Drew Dober totally mounted.
Yeah, so Islam Makhachev in full mount on Dober. In the middle of the cage, too, which is not a good spot for Drew Dober. If he was able to wall walk up to his feet, he might have a little bit more success. But even saying that, all these guys from this school of wrestling, the Habibs of the world, the Makhachevs of the world, they're so good at letting you use the cage to get back up to your feet just to take you down again. They constantly break your base away. So maybe the middle of the cage could be the best way to get back up to your feet, but I just think Makhachev's going to keep on taking them down. This is going to be the fight.
Corbett going with your comment here saying anything you guys want to see in the main event. Seems like Izzy winning definitely benefits the promotion. It does. It'll be interesting to see what they do with middleweight. You got a lot of big fights booked there. You still do at light heavyweight too. Again, Prohaksha Reyes is a big fight. You got Rakic just winning that makes it interesting. Ben, we're not showing the fights. Don't be a dingus. Canadians might be the nicest people on the planet.
We try.
I've met some rude Canadians too, but yeah, you find you go other places in the world. It's a little different. Islam, again, he was comfortable from mount. Dober kind of bucked him off. He's working from side control. Now he goes back into mount. Dober gives his back. Wow, the scrambles of Makhachev. But Dober doing a good job here.
Yeah, but Makhachev's so good at grappling. No matter where you go, he's going to be able to follow you. And like you said, that was a great move by Drew Dober. It's just when you're dealing with someone on the level of a Makhachev, you need something better than just a good move. You need something great as he's about to try to go for the crucifix, which honestly is one of the more hard to watch positions in MMA, but like you said, Drew Dober, not giving up. He's super game, but this is going to slowly sap the strength from Drew Dober as the fight progresses.
We had a wizard position.
Oh my goodness.
Islam Makhachev going for an insane armbar. Wow.
He's got to get that foot over the head, though.
This is one of the craziest moves I've seen in some time. He's pulling hard on this arm. Doesn't look like he's got it.
Oh, now he
cinches it in. Dober trying to pick him up. We got about 10 seconds remaining in the round. Wow, what an interesting move from Islam Makhachev here. Now Dober's sitting in guard, but we got about 2 seconds remaining. That's the end of our first round, Matt. What an impressive round from Islam Makhachev. And he's the type of fighter that, I mean, he can just do that over and over and over again.
Why do you think I've spent the last 15 minutes saying Drew Dober has no chance in this fight? I'm sorry, guys, but fight for a Drew Dober. He's a good striker. And here's the thing about Drew Dober. He's not one of those guys, I'll bring up Dustin Poirier, who he might not have the wrestling, but he's got the black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he's got very, very good striking. So even if he is fighting a fella or someone who can take him down, he's going to be able to threaten off his back. He's going to be able to work up to his feet. Drew Dober doesn't even have that. So for Dober, again, you have that chance to knock him out on the feet, but other than that one small opportunity that you might get at the start of every single round, I still think that Makhachev's going to take him down, and this is going to be the fight.
Yeah, I mean, Makhachev made it look really easy. First takedown attempt he was able to do. A good point by SC Shoup saying that defense was good too. I mean, Dober did a lot of the right things, and he did end up in Makhachev's guard. So a good move, especially for a guy like Dober. Now, of course, you don't want to be in the guard of somebody that's so dynamic like an Islam Makhachev. But if you really focus on it, I mean, a power puncher, maybe. You never know. Opportunity for him. Now we get started into our second round. And again, a fight that we've had moments. Drew Dober really trying to land early. Wasn't really able to do a whole heck of a lot with it. Trying to land here as we start our second round. For Dober, again, it's so difficult to beat a guy like Islam Makhachev. But what do you have to expect out of a guy like Drew Dober to get the win?
Again, you've only got the one punch. I cannot set it up any better than that, and I wish I could have more. But Drew Dober's doing a good job of defending this takedown, but we're going to see. It's chain wrestling, chain wrestling. Get someone to the cage and then take them down. That was a beautiful inside trip by Islam Makhachev, something that we see Henry Cejudo use a lot, and Cejudo's really the best example of this because what he would do is he'd get that high clinch, he'd get double underhooks on his opponent, kind of hold them with a high clinch, and then use the inside trip over and over and over again. And it's a beautiful thing that Cejudo can do, and we just saw a really good example of it from Islam Makhachev up against the cage.
Great job by him in the first minute of our second round. Of course, we saw on the screen some people giving it a 10-8 for Makhachev in that round. He did a lot of impressive things. He really kept good top control, but he was busy too. It's not like watching a Jake Shields fight. Jake Shields probably wouldn't have pulled for that armbar and gone full send at the closing seconds of the round. But Islam Makhachev now working. He's trying to get from half guard and push position. Drew Dober's working his best to get back up to his feet, but not really able to do a whole lot.
You really can against a guy like Makhachev. He's got the submission ability, he's got the ground and pound, he's got just the overall control, and you see him just really be able to slide into mount early and often throughout a lot of these grappling exchanges. For Drew Dober, this is going to be an exhausting style to deal with. And again, I'm going to go back to Poirier against Khabib when he said in his corner, I can't keep this MFer off of me. Like, these guys from Dagestan must be a pain to fight because they are chest to chest with you for as long as the fight goes, and they do not give you an inch. And for Makhachev, I like that he went for the submission late in the round. Listen, Drew Dober's probably not going to knock you out with ground and pound with 30 seconds left in the fight. So I really do think that it was a smart move by Makhachev. I understand he gave up top position for all of 3 seconds, but if you're Islam, you can go for that submission late in the fight. You're not really at any threat of getting hurt yourself in these positions. So for Makhachev, I would expect him to kind of do those riskier moves at the end of each and every round.
And I mean, a really good point by Corbett saying it's like a violent version of Bryce Mitchell, Charles Rosa. It is. But you watch Bryce Mitchell flow in that fight. It was something to behold. And then you go back and you have a look at the fight against a really tough out. You had Rosa just a couple of weeks ago taking on Derek Minner. And Derek Minner, holy smokes.
He looked great in that fight. He really did. And for Makhachev, listen, more of the same. He's just in kind of a, not really mount or anything. And yeah, he's just completely dominating Drew Dober on the mat. This fight has not been competitive in the grappling whatsoever.
Islam Makhachev, again, trying to work here. He's trying to pass from what looks like guard. Now there's butterfly hooks from Drew Dober. And now we're back into mount. Full guard from Makhachev. I mean, Dober's trying to be busy. You have to think his entire camp was based around defending the takedown and being active off of his back. Diego Casas bringing up a good point. I mean, domination. Yeah, it is pure domination. So you have to imagine, Makhachev, he's ranked right now. If he's able to get this win and he's able to get the clean sheet against Drew Dober, you have to think another ranked opponent. Who can you imagine? I mean, I can think of a few names off the top of my head. We're not going to get a Paul Felder. No. I don't think RDA because he had the win against Paul Felder. There's only one name that I can think of, and it's a long shot due to injuries. I'm thinking future champ Devin Lee.
Okay, I was going to say another one. Benny and the Jets, Beneil Dariush versus Islam Makhachev. Beneil Dariush, here's the thing. People know him for his striking. It's very good now. Do you know what else Beneil Dariush is insane at? Grappling. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he is phenomenal. We just witnessed him out-grapple Carlos Diego Ferreira, who is a fellow very accredited grappler. So, honestly, even if they wanted to do the Carlos Diego Ferreira fight, I would like that quite a bit, but I would really like to see Beneil Dariush, Islam Makhachev, because that's kind of like the fight between the ultimate dark horses in this division.
We just passed a minute remaining in our second round here so far, and again, it's just Makhachev really just continuing to pour on the pressure from guard here. Drew Dober's not really offering up a whole lot. Makhachev doing a good job, and Glenn Bacardi, Islam tenderizing him to a decision. That's pretty much what we're getting here so far.
Yeah, it's just been rinse and repeat takedown attempts. Good ground and pound just to stay active throughout each and every round, but again, Drew Dober's got to work to get back up to his feet. That's got to be his only goal. Wall walk. Use your back against the cage. Do whatever you can to get back up to the feet because you're not going to win a fight just by laying on your back, eating ground and pound for 15 minutes.
Phoenix, you're the best. You're moderator on here. I appreciate you. I disagree. Islam's not that boring. I think he's a lot of fun to watch.
I'm going to meet you guys in the middle. Like, I'm not paying money to watch Islam Makhachev. Like, I'm not like, wow, Islam's fighting this weekend. I got to stop everything that I'm doing. I can watch it the next morning. But yeah, he's an extremely dominant fighter. And you know what the answer to that is? If it's boring, find the answer to it. Like, somehow find a way to defend his takedowns. Find a way to not let him do that. It's much easier said than done because you look at guys like Khabib, you look at guys like Islam Makhachev, they don't have this much success just because they're getting lucky. Like, they're extremely dominant with their wrestling, and they have the cardio too. We see a lot of wrestlers, and this is more of a North American wrestling phenomenon where you can kind of wrestle yourself into exhaustion, but a lot of Russian wrestlers, they don't really have that issue. They can stay there. They use the trips to their advantage. They do incorporate a lot of judo into their takedown attempts, which is something that's very nice. So, again, the third round, I'm telling you right now, Drew Dober's not winning this fight by knockout. He's not going to offer much more. You're going to see more of what you just saw in the first 2 rounds.
Not really close or competitive between either of the two. As soon as Dober went for that hook, Islam changing levels. Like, you talk about a guy that's really learned from one singular fight where you have to think moving forward, it's always going to be the conversation. If he ever does lose, it's probably going to be by a hook. He'll get knocked out by something. And a guy like Dober, he's got that in his back pocket for sure as we get ready for a third and final round. But, yeah, I mean, Drew Dober, a guy that carries a lot of weight at 55, and you have all the weight of Islam Makhachev on top of you the entire time. I understand it. Again, a lot of people, you're saying, yes, he's a boring fighter, this and that. I can understand that too, but, I'm the type of guy that gets jazzed for early prelims on a Bellator card, so.
Okay, Robin Black, this isn't exciting. I'm with you guys on this.
Islam doing a great job. But, I mean, clinching up so far. There was a little bit of striking, but you got the trip from
that
Islam.
was a nice takedown.
This guy is absolutely insane at what he does and very justified in being as big of a favorite as he was. I mean, you look at it in the striking exchanges, very, very, I guess interesting is the word, because as soon as we're going into a clinch, we're going to try and land some knees. We're going to try and land some hands. When we're at distance, we're going to strike enough that we can take this guy down. And that's really been a great game plan out of Makhachev. Of course, you have Khabib Nurmagomedov in his corner. We're closing in on about a minute in so far. Islam really pouring it on to Dober here now.
Yeah, this is why I was legitimately getting angry before the fight at all the people who said Drew Dober was going to knock out
Nobody
Islam
likes
Makhachev.
to know it all, though. Eh?
Well, hey, Craig, he is a massive favorite for a reason. And for me, it will be interesting. Do you think he could get RDA next because it was a fight? I just said... It's weird, because this sucks. The UFC is a business, and you want to match up big names with big names. And Makhachev, he's not gaining a lot of fans fighting like this, but it's very hard to beat a guy who does fight like this. So, do you think he will end up getting an RDA or one of those bigger names in the lightweight division? Or do you think that because of his style, he's going to have to beat a lot of guys in the top 15 to really work his way up?
We're about a minute 30 into our third round. I mean, Dober is trying to work at an arm, trying to work at a Kimura. You've got Islam Makhachev topping him out, head and arm triangle. Wow.
From the opposite
What
side.
a win for Islam Makhachev. Just stuff that you don't see done very often. What an impressive win in this third round. Great finish there from Islam Makhachev. And he was just too much for Drew Dober tonight.
The grappling of Islam Makhachev is absolutely insane. He can submit you from anywhere. He's just good no matter where the fight takes place. And yes, his striking might leave a little bit to be desired, but I think his striking is slightly underrated. I really do. And I'm curious to see who they match him up next with, because Drew Dober is not an easy guy to finish. The last time he was finished, I believe, was by armbar to Beneil Dariush in a fight that was fairly close before that. So, again, I think that's my pick for who I'd like to see Makhachev fight next. I would really like to see him and Beneil Dariush, because Dariush has the grappling and the takedown defense to at least force Makhachev to become a striker at some point, and then his jiu-jitsu is absolutely lethal if it does hit the ground.
I mean, looking at the top, you got Brad Riddell taking on Gregor Gillespie.
He's above that.
There's not a whole lot of fights that are booked. I mean, Tapology bumped Khabib down to 16. I have to think you're probably going to get a better fight. I mean, Dos Anjos doesn't have a fight. Carlos Diego Fea is coming off a loss. He doesn't have a fight. You got McGregor, Felder, Hooker, but they probably wouldn't do that. I think it's going to be Dariush. You wouldn't give him a guy like Michael Chandler. I don't think that's the play. So for me, probably Dariush, maybe Hooker, maybe CDF, and again, Kevin Lee being the dark horse, the real dark horse. But what an awesome win there for Islam Makhachev. Like, just total domination in that fight.
Yeah, he looked phenomenal, and it will be interesting to see who he gets matched up with next, because I think he's an absolute problem for really everyone in the UFC right now. So it'll be interesting. I don't think he's Khabib 2.0. I don't think he's as good as Khabib, but I do think he's going to be at least a top 10 fighter on his worst day. So really excited for Makhachev's future in the UFC.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting thing. And for Drew Dober, again, I mean, this is a guy that's continued to kind of reach up to that top 15 and then have to build himself back up. So for a guy like Dober, probably another prospect is what you're going to see out of him.
You would think, but it is weird.
Thiago Moises next?
Yeah, that's
Hernandez connection?
There you go. Thiago Moises next. That'd be a really good fight. Moises probably does what Islam Makhachev just did to him, though. You got to give Drew Dober guys who, they'll wrestle a little bit, but they are primary strikers for the most part. I think Dober and Moises is a good fight. Good shootout, Craig, but I doubt they're going to match a guy off a loss against a guy on so many wins like Moises, but great win for Islam Makhachev.
Huge win for Islam Makhachev as we get ready for our first title fight, Matt. First of 3. It's just like UFC 217. I was so excited for that card. I have vivid and wonderful memories of that one. But again, we have 2 really, really good fighters in Petr Yan taking on Aljamain Sterling. Sterling on a heater of a win streak. You don't see people beating Corey Sandhagen unless you're like Jamal Emmers, but you don't see people beating Corey Sandhagen like Aljamain Sterling did. And I mean, for Sterling, it's the striking, it's the pressure, it's the wrestling. He's really a jack of all trades. He's taking on a Russian who, listen, he's only tasted defeat once. It was by split decision to Magomed Magomedov. He comes back out, totally changes his game plan, beats Magomed at his own game. Then he fights a really tough fighter in Matos. Those 2 guys would be linked up in Bellator that you saw last year. Great fight there, but you look at Petr Yan for everything that he does. He throws great leg kicks. He really does a good job investing in the body. It's his combinations to the head that are great. He has good takedowns of his own. And he has an underrated ground game that we don't hear about because he's been managed and really kind of kept as a secret out of Tiger Muay Thai for a long time. You don't hear about his ground game. But it is there. So this fight, to me, you circle this one with a big red marker on your calendar. This is the fight you're looking for. When we were talking Fight of the Nights, it was this, and it was Sung Yadong, Kyler Phillips. I love this fight.
I'm more excited for this fight than I am any that's been scheduled. I really am. I think Petr Yan and Aljamain Sterling are so clearly the number 1 and number 2 best fighters in this division, and I got a little bit of heat for saying that, but I really think that's the case. A lot of people out there are like, oh, if Sterling fought Sandhagen 100 times, Sandhagen would beat him like 90 times. He just got lucky. No, he didn't. Aljamain Sterling has that like Damian Maia level jiu-jitsu. Now, no, he doesn't have the same style as a Maia, of course, but the way that he is so dynamic on the ground, he goes for legs, arms, necks, everything, and the way that he can incorporate his wrestling with his jiu-jitsu is something that we don't see that often. I really like the overall game of Aljamain Sterling, but I really do think Petr Yan's going to go down as the all-time best bantamweight. I really do. I think he can beat Dominic Cruz. I think he can beat TJ Dillashaw. I think he can go down as one of the all-time great fighters. I do, and it's his ability to make in-fight adjustments that set him apart from really everyone else in this division, and almost really in the UFC. You don't see a lot of guys like Petr Yan in the middle of a round, not after he's been able to talk to his coaches, figure out little intricacies of his opponent's game, but Petr Yan is constantly learning and adjusting to what his opponent's doing, and against a guy like Sterling, who he shows you a lot. He doesn't really hide a lot from you. He's constantly throwing something. He's always doing something. Petr Yan's going to be able to download that, and the more you do, the more information you're giving him to download, and I just do think that as this fight progresses, as the cardio of Sterling starts to fade, and as Petr Yan starts to land with power, I think Petr Yan's going to take over.
A lot of love there for Aljamain Sterling in the comments section, and deservedly so. Like, this is a really tough fight. That's why I just went with the over 1.5, and if it hits, we hit the question mark kicks parlay, and if it doesn't, I'll be disappointed. But if we hit it, I'm going to be really excited because it's been a good night so far. But yeah, I mean, I look at this one, Petr Yan, the wins in his sales, and he's the type of guy, and this is going to be like an NBA 2K reference from like 2012 when this mattered. The kid, as Dana White would say, is a ring general. You watch the way that he fights, and once he's downloaded your game plan, and we've seen it, certain fighters come up, they put the pressure to him. He shells up like Alistair Overeem in a way, and then he bursts forward. And then once the fight goes on, he's starting to push the pace, and it never goes away. Matt always likes to liken it to the tide. It's just like erosion at the beach. You got to watch out for those dunes. And Matt, there's always conversation around environmental destruction and how dunes really save properties. But if you look at Petr Yan, this guy is one angry sea of a fighter.
He really is, and the fact that he can get it done in really any aspect of MMA is so impressive. And I don't want to liken him to Jose Aldo just because it was the last fight, but he is similar to Aldo in the fact that he's such a good striker, no one talks about his grappling. Now, if Petr Yan shoots a takedown in this fight, it's probably because he's getting pieced up on the feet. I think that's the last thing he should be doing because Aljamain Sterling really is that type of grappler who, for any period of time you're on the mat with him, he can submit you and you are in danger. So I think Yan will have a lot of success on the feet. He might go for a takedown slightly later in the fight if he does notice Sterling is fatigued, because at that point, and that's the thing about Yan, he might be a power puncher, but he's got great cardio too, and he's going to be there for as long as he's in this fight. I think Aljamain Sterling's only way to win this is getting a submission in that first round and a half, maybe 2 rounds.
All right, Matt. So again, we focus on this fight. Aljamain Sterling representing Longo and Weidman MMA, and it is such an interesting fight because you would think it on a piece of paper, it's going to be a clash of styles. Everybody's going to tell you that. But again, we've talked about it. It's not so. So I look at this fight. Insane strike differential for these two guys. I had to write the number down so we had it. So if we have a look at it, you look and Aljamain Sterling, 4.82 to 1.94 landed to taken.
Whack.
That's insane because of that taken number. You usually see it in the 2s and the 3s. 1.94, and Sterling's been around for a long time. And then if you look at Petr Yan, 6.32 to 3.25. The guy just continues to throw at you. So it is really tough. If you want to watch good striking for Aljamain Sterling, again, the fight is the Jimmy Rivera fight. You can liken him somewhat to Petr Yan and the fact that Sterling really going to wrestle heavy, really going to push a pace, doesn't invest in the kicks as much, doesn't really throw a lot of body shots like a guy like Petr Yan will, but listen, that is what it is. And if you want a good fight for Petr Yan, well, Douglas Silva, Andrade, the fight against Jose Aldo, the Matos fight, the fight against Magomedov, the second one. There's a lot of tape that you can go out and kind of draw this and that from Petr Yan. And listen, it's not like his game's totally changed from what we saw in ACB at the time, but you look at the way that he fights in the UFC, downloads his opponent's game plan. So I would expect in this first round, it's going to be a heavy burst out of Aljamain Sterling. Unless, and we've seen this recently, He wants to conserve his gas tank and take a little bit off.
He's going to have to, because if he comes out here guns blazing against Petr Yan, he's not going to get the TKO, because Yan can eat cinder blocks and has insane cardio. And again, for Sterling, this is going to be a tough fight. I really do think. And for people who are confident in Sterling, I'd love to get your take, because I do see this very clearly as Yan has really reactive hips, and he's great at exiting on an angle. So if you're Aljamain Sterling, how are you going to get him down in the first place? I understand if he is able to get him down, then Yan is in absolutely a ton of danger. But Yan's striking is so crisp. He's so defensively sound, and he has such high fight IQ that I think it's going to be a tough fight for Sterling. And again, I'm going to say it. I think Petr Yan is going to go down as one of, if not the greatest 135-pound fighter of all time. I really do. You look at this whole skill set combined, he really doesn't have any massive weaknesses in his game. So I think this is going to be a phenomenal fight. And I do think Aljamain Sterling is going to be his hardest test in this division.
And a really good point. Gemini Jake, I'm glad that you're loving the commentary. It's a lot of fun for us to do this. We try our best to get in and out of the comments section. But the support in the chat and the super chat and people picking up the merch on the site, it does mean a lot to us. So we really do appreciate you and everybody else that's in the comment section as well. And I mean, you know, you focus on a fight like this, you really do have two of the best bantamweights that are out there in the world right now. I mean, Sandhagen's up there. We saw Aldo have a great fight his last time out against Marlon Vera, but there's so many good bantamweights. And again, if you're talking about the best division in MMA, right now, for my money, I don't look at lightweight as much anymore. I'm looking squarely at bantamweight. There's a list of prospects a mile long that are making their way up. There's a great list of prospects and fighters that are over with Bellator and some of the other organizations as well. So I love this one. Aljo the GOAT saying, how does a small cage affect things tonight?
I don't know.
That's
I
a
don't
great
know
question.
if it ever has. That's the thing. I haven't looked into it that much. I don't think the stats are very different between big cages and small cages for finishes.
They were.
But I don't think it's a big enough discrepancy for me to really think, oh, wow, this is in the short cage, Aljo's going to win. But if it was in a big cage, Jan's going to win. I've yet to see a fight where the cage size has really influenced my prediction. And if any fight would really give that away, then it would have been DC versus Stipe. And it really would have favored DC in that fight. And Stipe beat him in the closed cage or in the small cage. So I think Jan's going to win this. I really do. I think it's going to be a phenomenal fight. And 135, you're right. It's either 135, 145, 155. Like, that's the most talent-rich kind of area in the UFC right now. And for Petr Yan, if he's able to go out there and get an impressive finish over a guy like Aljamain Sterling, I'm not saying he's going to be a big star by any means, just because he doesn't speak English, so it is kind of hard to become a big star. But I think for an entertainment fighter, I think Petr Yan's going to be one of those guys like Justin Gaethje you always have to watch.
Michael Roth makes a great point. Does the tide flip one way or the other the longer the fight goes? I think it does. I think it favors Petr Yan, a longer fight in this one. And listen, I believe that Aljamain Sterling's in fight-ready shape, and if he wins, then I'm going to be wrong. But to me, the longer the fight goes, yeah, Matt the Mick, round 5 Yan, I just do think that, yeah, Jan's got a great shot. Winner should be top 5 pound for pound. Aljo the GOAT, I think you're right there too. However, I don't believe in the UFC's rankings, and I don't believe in the pound for pound scale at all. It's very silly, and it never really works all that great. SC Shoot, can we get Lewis versus Francis in a phone booth?
Love it.
I'd be down for it, but does anybody want to see that rematch at this point?
Not really. Oh, yeah, at this point I do, because Derek Lewis out here knocking out wrestlers for some reason, but it would be great. I'm assuming we'll get that rematch at some point in the future. Hopefully it's not as bad as the first one. I guess it can't be worse. That's good news. So hopefully we do get Derek Lewis Francis in the future as they keep on showing Petr Yan beating up Uriah Faber.
Alex Trujillo with the $5 in the super chat and then hitting us up saying, I used the adult version of your first sponsor and your new sponsor, Manscaped. Never been happier. Thanks for doing God's work. Well, listen, you can check out Manscaped, manscaped.com, promo code FMP, 20% off and free shipping, and get the refined cologne. Now, I spritzed it earlier on, and I got it in my mouth. I didn't get it on my popcorn on the Question Mark Kick show, but it actually does smell really good. I use it now every day. I've been a cologne guy for a long time. I know that A might sound like a flex, B might sound like kind of a dink thing to do.
I'm more on that team.
However, you know, if you have a nice subtle cologne that is just right there at all times, it's nice. It's nice, and people will respect you, but it can't smell too much, so it is good. Brad H saying nearly 4 hours of content from FMP. How are the boys holding up? Well, Brad,
tired and fired up.
I had an energy drink for the first show. I got another one for this one, and I've been pounding the water, the creatine, and the vitamins. So I might work out after this one, have a nice sleep, wake up tomorrow, and start the graphics and then the fights tape study for next weekend's card. But I think what we're going to do for next weekend, we'll do the Tuesday thing again. It just works out a lot better. Work schedule's starting to get a little hectic for old Krager. So, yeah, now we have Aljamain Sterling making the walk.
I agree, Mike Chapler. Sorry to cut you off. The worst part about watching an Adesanya fight week is seeing poor Robert Whittaker get knocked out every single promo that they run.
Aljamain Sterling getting the rub from his teammates here, getting ready for a big-time fight. That chain has to weigh something heavy as we get the boys getting Sterling ready. Now, a lot of people were excited for, come on, Marab! But he's not in the corner this weekend. You don't have Matt Serra in the corner. You do have the creepy vampire that is Ray Longo. And listen, I love a Ray Longo corner. He's one of those corners that really knows exactly what to say to his fighters. And you get a lot of good insight out of Ray Longo. He is one of those guys that I think, you know, if we ever did a series talking to coaches, Ray Longo is one of the ones that I want to talk to. Firas Zahabi being Canadian, we got to talk to him. Mike Brown, Conan Silveira, I'd like to talk to. Some of the guys from Evolve in Singapore, I'd like to hear from. Perillo. There's so many good coaches. Dean Thomas. One that I'd really like to talk to, Antonio McKee at the Body Shop. So there's a lot of people out there. DPS, how long do you guys tape study over each card?
So long.
Sunday, all of Sunday, a little bit of Saturday, and Monday night if it comes out on Tuesday. So I'm not goofing on you. There's so much tape study involved. It would make your head spin. And again, with the notes, I mean, these are notes. Like, these aren't just, you know, chicken scratch. I've got half a page or more, and it's full for every fight.
I will say something. You can watch too much fight tape, though.
Oh,
That's something that I've done a lot, where you watch and you're like, oh, this guy's definitely going to win. And then you watch more, and then you talk yourself out of a pick that was a surefire thing. So, yeah, you kind of need that perfect balance of, okay, I know what I'm talking about, but I haven't looked into it too much to where I know, like, both guys' birthdays and middle names and whatnot. So there is kind of that happy medium between the two that you have to find.
You just let me do that. Now we have the walk for the champ. Making his first title defense is Petr Yan. What are you going to look for from Petr Yan in this fight early on?
The boxing and the stance switching, because it's odd. Petr Yan doesn't switch his stance the conventional way where he stands southpaw for a long period of time. He does do the kind of Dustin Poirier where he'll throw and he'll switch stance in combination, and then he'll switch back into the orthodox. And it's something that a lot of guys don't do because, A, it's very, very difficult to switch stances mid-combination, but it always gives your opponent a different look while you're throwing, and it changes your power hand constantly, too. And we saw that a great example is the first combination he hit to drop Uriah Faber, where he goes like this, hits him with the right hand, and then steps through and hits him with the left straight. Both those shots were power punches, even though they were from opposite sides. It was just the way he was using his footwork to really set those shots up. So I love the stance switching of Petr Yan. I love his combinations. I like the body work. But again, the key to this fight is the takedown defense of Petr Yan. If you can keep this fight on the feet, you will probably win 85% of the time, I'll say, because I think Petr Yan is that level of a striker. But the ground game of Aljamain Sterling, the floor is lava, so why play with it? That's really what it is when you're fighting Aljo.
And such a high-level fight between two guys that are just so well-rounded. I mean, that's the best part of it. A final look at the Tapology picks.
Wow.
4,650, 61% Yan, 59% by knockout. The 39% that have Sterling, 60% by submission. So, listen, the fight fans on Tapology, and there's a lot of them. That's a big sample size. They're out there in full force. I really think it's going to be a great fight between these two guys. I'm really looking forward to it. Phoenix Graves saying smash that like button. You can if you want. We appreciate it. It'd be nice.
Thanks for hanging out, though, guys. This has been a great card so far.
Been a really great card. And listen, I mean, maybe the first fight wasn't the best. You had Rakic taking on Santos. The last one, a dominant win for Islam Makhachev. One that he really needed to get to move forward in that division. Not a stagnant decision. And now you have Petr Yan taking on Aljamain Sterling. First title defense for Petr Yan. And Matt, one of the things, you know, inside baseball, Fight Night Picks that I can't wait to do is maybe it's this summer, maybe it's in the fall, maybe it's next year. But once those live events start back up, we're talking Fight League Atlantic. We're talking New England fights. Maybe we go down for a Bellator in Connecticut. Maybe it's the UFC the next time they come back. But, yeah, really looking to kind of get out there in the space and start doing some more commentary, meeting some of the fans out there.
Exactly.
Going to Boston
There's
Pizza.
a lot more of you guys now than there was before the pandemic, so hopefully we can get a chance to meet a lot of you guys afterwards, as hopefully Craig can hold down the fort for 30 seconds while he's in the bathroom.
All right, Matt. Matt getting ready for a bathroom break as we get ready for the fight that we're most looking forward to. He slams a door, and I'm looking forward to it. Jose Fernandez, Medici, and Bontarine were born on your birthday, 1 and 2 today. That's an interesting one. TJD, you're in Connecticut. Hey, they go to Uncasville quite often. But Bruce Buffer getting us set with the particulars for our title fight at bantamweight. Let us know in the comments section who you're going with in this fight. Of course, Aljamain Sterling, such a well-rounded fighter. Really good pressure. That's what I'm going to look for myself as this fight starts. Is he going to be able to run right in there and really try and cause Petr some problems? Because you've seen that out of Jan. Really able to kind of download his opponent's game plan, really try to figure it out. And for Petr Yan, a guy that's so cerebral in the way that he thinks, will he kind of let off the gas too much himself? And will Aljamain Sterling's pressure really start to cause him issues? So we'll see what happens there. Scarecrow saying to come to Seattle, come to Atlanta. Hot Atlanta. I got to get to one of those sneaker stores in Hot Atlanta, Matt. That's the only thing I can think of in Atlanta is the abundance of sneaker stores.
We're hanging out with Joe from Complex at some point in the near future, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, just hit up the Complex DMs. Just get the boys down there. That'd be a lot of fun. But
the only pair of shoes that I've ever gone out of my way to try to get were the Kobe Grinch editions, and I was not able to, and it's a very sad story. So my sneaker game lacking.
I got some special sneakers ready for those live events, and I will not take a picture of them and post them until we actually go out.
I like it.
And then I've got another special pair that are being made right now, so I'm really looking forward to those. I think they're going to be really cool. But we're getting ready for this one. Petr 15-1. That one lost to Magomedov by split. He was able to come back and beat Magomedov convincingly in their next fight. This should be such a great fight. I mean, on paper, this is an absolute banger. Again, our two fight of the nights. We had Phillips and Yadong. We had Jan and Sterling. You got referee Mark Smith looking after this one.
In the house.
Let Uros Medic just pound away at Elon Cruz early on in the night. Oh, we're going to get them to meet in the center of the cage. We're talking Title Town. We do this kind of stuff, even if it's not the main or the co-main. Mark Smith getting that underarm bump from Bruce Buffer. We're going to get set for our first of 3 title fights. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Morgan for saying great coverage, lads. Tuning in from... Where are you from?
Who knows?
Where are you from? Oh, message retracted.
Oh, no, where is he?
Now we'll never know from Morgan.
Oh, no.
All right, Matt. If you're watching along at home, you know the drill. Sync up with us. There's probably going to be a little bit of a lag between us as we get set. And Aljamain Sterling doing what Aljamain Sterling does. Quick start, throwing that kick. Really trying to establish the center of the cage, and Jan kind of got him backed up a little bit.
We're 5 seconds in, Craig. I can't really say much about it. But yeah, Sterling using a lot of kicks so far, really trying to be active early on in this fight. But he's going to really have to be careful closing distance. He's got to do it behind the jab. He's got to do it behind strikes. Because if he just walks forward, he's going to walk into a massive bomb from Petr Yan. So he's really got to be disciplined in this fight to make sure that he's not just wasting energy for no good reasons. He's got to be smart. He's got to be efficient. And for Jan, you can be defensively sound earlier on in this fight. You don't have to worry about going for that knockout early. If you stay defensively sound, just let the fight come to you and not try to force anything into Aljo. I think that's his best path to victory.
Sterling doing a good job of investing in the body early with some of these kicks, really establishing his range. Nice lead leg kick and stance switches here. For Petr Yan, very high guard. We've seen him switch stances himself so far, but coming out southpaw with the look. Ooh, nice knee early from Aljamain Sterling.
Sterling looking phenomenal on the feet right now. Just throwing a lot. And that's what we know from Aljamain Sterling. He's got such a good ground game, but he isn't afraid to throw a very high volume on the feet. He can throw kicks. He can throw punches. He's a really dynamic fighter.
Really early on, we're at about 3 minutes 45 seconds of our first round, and it's all Sterling so far. But that was almost what we expected out of this one.
Exactly. I think as this fight goes on, Jan will slowly start to take over. But again, Sterling, he looks phenomenal on the feet so far. Really good front kick to the body. Really good kicks in general from Sterling.
Scarecrow hitting us up with a $50 in the super chat. Holy smokes, Scarecrow. You're paying for pay-per-views here. Really good kick catch by Jan, who dropped Sterling.
Wow.
With that trip. That was really interesting out of the Russian fighter and the champion here. Closing out on about 3 minutes remaining in our first round. And if you're Aljamain Sterling, you got to kind of think twice.
You do, but again, this is not the worst thing for Jan. I think the worst position for Jan is definitely on the ground. If you're on the feet, first off, watch out for that flying knee that Sterling keeps on throwing because it's getting real close. But yeah, if Jan could download the game plan and slowly start to take over, I see that being his way to win this fight.
Oh boy, you get Aljamain Sterling continually backing up the champion so far in this one. Again, really nice straight shot so far. Looking for his first takedown. Jan trying to defend.
Now. Wow.
Sterling's got it.
Great job by Aljamain Sterling so far. And I would have liked to see Jan try to go to the cage and not try to get his back. Okay, as he does it now. But wow, insane start to the round so far for Aljamain Sterling. This is the best he's ever looked.
Petr Yan now working in some of the grappling. We're about halfway through this first round, but it's been all Aljamain Sterling so far.
Oh, so you're a wrestler now is what Aljamain Sterling's thinking in his head. So far, like a great start for Aljamain Sterling. The key for Petr Yan, you got to make him work. You have to make him work. Make him work throughout this fight. Hopefully, you can drain some of that power from him as you start to take over later on. But again, Aljamain Sterling could not ask for a better start.
And Corbett saying, does Sterling know that this is a 25-minute fight? Doesn't need to, apparently.
Well, again, and that's going to be the interesting thing. Like, oh, big left hand, big right hand by Yan. Wow, and that's the power that we know Petr Yan has. Like, for as good as Aljo just looked, Yan has those one-punch shots that can really put you down.
Yeah, I mean, a great job there by Petr Yan, landing that right hand as Matt just forgot his sides of the body. And it happens. I mean, you get a great opportunity like that, another laser hook there from Petr Yan, and we've seen it from all sorts of different ways. A leg kick that drops Sterling down to his feet, and he tries to wrap the legs.
Now that Yan is starting to land, you can definitely tell there's a power difference between these guys. And Sterling, he's got to go back to using that high volume. But again, it's kind of a double-edged sword. The more you throw, the more tired you are going to get. But as Yan is getting more comfortable on the feet, you can tell the power is just absurd that this man brings into the cage.
Really different look here from Aljamain Sterling. He's really trying to wrap something up.
Takedown.
Going for a leg here, Petr Yan. It's going to be interesting to see. We got about a minute remaining, Matt.
And that's the type of stuff Aljamain Sterling can do. He is awfully nifty on the ground. So you really got to watch out for all those tricky grappling exchanges of a guy like Aljamain Sterling. But so far, so good from Petr Yan.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting round so far because, again, you saw Sterling running in there. Yan actually got the center of the cage, and then it was Sterling to start to land the volume. He took Yan down, was able to get back up to his feet, and then it's that heavy power out of the Russian fighter. He's taking the back of Sterling right now with about 35 seconds remaining in our first round. A good job from both these guys. We've seen different looks. Yan takes Sterling down and drops him on his head.
Petr Yan, there's something you always have to watch out for when you're watching, or when you're fighting a guy like Petr Yan. As we see some of his grappling, he loves to strike on clinch exits. He's really good at it. You saw Jan Blachowicz knock out Luke Rockhold with that, but you saw Petr Yan was able to land that beautiful head kick on Uriah Faber when they fought from the clinch, so he's really good at making guys pay on their exits from the clinch.
Jay Freed hitting us up in the super chat with $5. 5 seconds remaining in the first round. Is Sterling going to be able to land something of substance? Nice knee at the end of it. Spinning back fist. Matt, end of our first round so far.
Weird round to score, because Yan did have the knockdown. He definitely landed the harder shots, but I would say the majority of that fight was controlled by Aljamain Sterling. So I'm going to slightly give that round to Sterling. I know it's hard to give a guy a round after he's been dropped, but I do think he did just enough. But here's the thing. I think Petr Yan's taking this fight over. Like, I think he won the last 2 minutes of that, and I do think he's going to start taking over from here on out.
Yeah, that's one of those ones. I mean, you look at the total strikes, 35-11 for Aljo, and he did a great job. You see the knee from him early. He had that takedown attempt, but it was very much a tale of two different rounds, or two halves of two different rounds. I mean, Sterling looked great from the start. You see the heavy right hand that lands for Yan that drops Sterling. You saw him kind of clip him with the kick. You saw a lot of nice things out of Petr Yan early. We've got Blue Dash saying it was for Sterling. Really close Sterling. That didn't disappoint. You knocked him down twice. Yeah, Yan minus 295 right now.
Here's the thing. Okay, leg kick knockdowns aren't normally considered knockdowns. That's the thing you have to understand. Knockdowns are only normally scored in the air to the head or to the body. But you will sometimes get it after guys have been dropped multiple times. They will start to count them. So I do have to count that first one as a knockdown. That's all.
Sterling coming out here, trying to land a little bit of kicks. Looking for a takedown of his own.
Jan's going to be confident at the end of that round, though. He was able to drop Sterling. Sterling's felt his power now. And the only thing for Yan, every time he ducks, he's got to watch out for the flying knee of Sterling, because Sterling's gotten close a couple times with it.
Really do like the investment into those body kicks, though, from Aljamain Sterling. He's really landed a nice kick to the liver side of Petr Yan. And if you continue with that, you have to think he's going to find a lot of success as the fight goes on. Now, Yan has Sterling in a bad spot here. Don't want to hit him on the back of the head.
But still, good ground pound from Yan, and that's the key. Make Aljamain Sterling work. You cannot just let him tee off and have his way the whole entire fight. You've got to make him work. You've got to test that cardio of Aljamain Sterling.
Got about a minute into our first round. Aljamain on his back. He'd be fine with working from guard in a fight like this, you would think. Jan's doing the old homie don't play that type of game. We got about a minute remaining. So, again, doesn't really seem like a referee, Mark Smith, is going to stand it up so far. Little bit surprised, but, I mean, hey, with the way some of these fights have gone, maybe you'd be a little tentative if you're a ref.
I mean, probably, especially the way Mark Smith's night's gone. But, again, for Yan, you've got to keep this fight on the feet. Got to land with power. He's done a good job countering some of the strikes of Sterling, but for Sterling, you can't stand in the pocket too long. You have to get in and get out and do your work. And you can't have those really telegraphed takedown attempts. Now, he might actually get it here because he is a very, very good grappler, but you've got to hide your takedowns with the strikes, as Petr Yan shows off his phenomenal takedown defense.
And now that we've seen, again, the original takedown for Aljamain Sterling, it was there. The first one was there. And Petr Yan did a little bit of moving, and then he got right back up to his feet. And now Petr Yan's been stuffing the takedowns. He stuffed a deep single leg. He stuffed a really deep double leg by sprawling. Now they're up against the cage. Aljamain getting kind of back up here. He's going to try and want to rework his grip. And he got about 2 minutes into our second round so far. It's been a lot of pressure from Sterling early. And like I said, I really did like the investment in the body that we saw out of Sterling. I'll be surprised to see, or eager to see, I guess, how he's going to be able to do with the pressure as the fight goes on. But yeah, I mean, it's been a good fight so far.
It really has been. I'm surprised Yan isn't trying to dig for an underhook right now, because if he can get it on the left side, he should be able to walk his back off of the cage. But Sterling, just a phenomenal grappler. And you know that this is going to be the style of Sterling. Like, round 1, he's going to throw a lot of volume. Round 2, he will try to grapple with you. But so far, Yan has been good defensively.
Sterling doing a good job trying to work these takedowns. Ooh, big shot from Yan that whiffs. And again, the knees and the kicks from Sterling, investing in that body.
Sterling's starting to get a little obvious, though, with those takedown attempts. He's going to have to start hiding them a little bit better.
We had a good job there. It almost looked like a clash of heads. We're closing in on 3 minutes into our second round. Sterling, again, still pushing a big pace. Really trying to work on this takedown. Again, this would be the third that he's worked on.
But Jan's doing a great job defending these so far. And again, that's the thing when you're fighting a guy like Aljamain Sterling. Make him work, make him work, make him work. You can't just let him throw with a crazy high amount of volume and not make him pay for it. Watch Pedro Munoz. Front kicks to the body, kicks to the leg.
Now, none of that matters because I just thought of something. The question mark kick parlay, cash, baby. We hit the over 1.5. We hit Rakic. So we get the question mark kicks. Parlay, it's back. We just landed that one there. But Aljamain Sterling working on a deep single leg here. Minute 30 remaining in our second round. The takedown defense has been quite good for Petr Yan. And it's been good for him his entire UFC run as well. That goes without saying. So you look at this one. I mean, Sterling just work. Yan defending.
Jan's getting his back off the cage, though. You're not going to win a fight, and you're not going to win a round with your back up against the cage. You don't win by being defensive. So if you're Yan, when you're in the middle of the cage, you are having success when you throw your hands. You've got to get back to doing that. You can't just be defending takedowns and expect to win this fight.
Mike bringing up a really good point. You need more foot stomps and shoulder strikes, but it's really tough when you're taking on a guy like Sterling who's working for a takedown. So good, nice knee by Petr Yan. 56 seconds remaining. Sterling's got that leg up in the air and Yan away from the cage, trying to work a trip. The balance of Petr Yan in that sequence, really, really good. Gets his way out of the cage. Sterling kind of bringing his hands down a little bit, but he continues to pepper.
But when Yan does land, he's landing a lot harder than Sterling. And Sterling's going for a lot of these elbows. And the thing that Sterling has been doing well, he's getting his head out of danger. Whether that is going for takedowns, whether that is just trying to be smart with his head placement. He's not eating a ton of shots, even though the ones that he has eaten so far have been pretty heavy. But he is starting to get tired, you can tell. Aljamain Sterling's getting a lot more labored with his strikes and with his takedown attempts.
Oh, Petr Yan grabbing the back, taking down Aljamain Sterling. A great end to a round right in front of Ray Longo in the corner of Sterling. But again, he's throwing a lot of good volume. He's throwing a lot of good knees up top. Great right hand there from Yan, who's got the back. David, hi, how are you? 4 seconds remaining in this round. A good end for Petr Yan for sure, but that's another round for Sterling. I've got it 2018 Sterling.
It could be 19-19. That first round was close and it depends on how you want to judge it, but Sterling looks exhausted going back to his corner, and that's not a great body language that you want to be having. Like Petr Yan, again, he doesn't get tired. He has absurd cardio, and if Sterling does start to fall off even a little bit, Yan will start to land at a very high pace. And I'm not saying I like Yan so much that even if Sterling wins this next round, then Yan will win this fight, but I do see Yan taking over a lot in that 4th and 5th round, and I do think Yan probably won that first round if we are being honest. Like, if I really want to think...
The one knockdown there.
Exactly, and a lot of the time you do go with the damage, so let's just say it's 19-19 right now. You've got to be happy if you're in the corner of Petr Yan. He's done a great job defensively, on the feet and on the mat. So right now, if he can just stand on the feet and start to land with a little bit more consistency, he'll be able to take over this fight.
I'm in agreement with Corbett. Only needs one more round as Aljamain Sterling. I agree with you. I've got a 20-18 so far.
If he wins the next round, he's going to exhaust himself so much that he'll be finished in the 4th or the 5th. I really do think that. Like, Aljamain Sterling's going to have to be somewhat more conservative with his cardio in this round. Because let's say he goes out there and burns himself out winning this round. You're going to be exhausted fighting Petr Yan for another 10 minutes, and that's not a place anyone wants to be.
David, I was too big to fit in the lockers of high school because they were half lockers, so they were too small. But that's a good one, bud. So we get ready for our third round here. We're getting close to, really finding out what we're going to get for the rest of this fight. And the reason why I say that, Sterling did a great job in the first round. Sterling did a pretty good job in the second round, working the takedown, working the pressure, out-volume Petr Yan. Now we're going to get to see what, the rest of the tide's going to be here.
Petr Yan is starting to land with a lot more consistency, and the thing is, when he's feinting shots, you're getting a big reaction out of Aljamain Sterling. He's really moving back a lot. He's not just slipping shots, he's really trying to move his feet to get out of range, so not the best side from Aljamain, but if you're Yan, just keep on moving forward, keep on moving forward. He's landing when he is throwing, and I understand, it's hard to throw against a guy like Sterling, who, when you do commit to a shot, he's trying to go for your legs, but Yan is slowly starting to take over this fight, I do think.
Good volume here so far from Sterling. And again, Petr Yan's starting to push a little bit of a pace. You got Sterling behind the black lines there now, which is never a good spot to be in.
And Yan's doing a good job landing when he is getting Sterling up against the cage. But again, Sterling's doing a good job at least staying in this fight. He's not just backing up and letting Petr Yan back him up this whole entire fight. If you're Yan, though, you've got to start letting your hands go a little bit too much.
Yeah, Petr Yan, just got kicked square in the cup. But we didn't get a stoppage, which is great for our timer. We got about 3 minutes and 38 seconds remaining here in our third round. Of course,
good shot by Yan.
Championship rounds. Really nice check right hook there from Yan. Aljamain Sterling still landing the volume, though.
But he's not really landing. That's the thing. Like, Sterling's landing a lot on the arms, whereas Yan's landing on the head. And that's a very big difference in this fight.
Yeah, really lazy takedown attempt there from Sterling in center of the cage. Yan able to sprawl right out of it.
You're starting to tell. Sterling's starting to get tired. He's becoming a lot more defensive. And he's becoming more hittable, too, as a result.
Get hit by another one of those check right hooks. Really working the body, though, Sterling. And listen, I'm honestly surprised that we made it this far and we haven't had that big, huge shift in momentum.
Sterling's doing a good job, at least. Yeah, exactly. Not giving Yan a chance to have one of those big moments like we see in a lot of his fights. But again, you don't like what you see when Sterling does get hit. He doesn't react well to the shots. There is a lot of kind of turning away. So Yan's doing way better in this round than he was in the first two. And for Yan, I kind of expect more of this in the fourth and the fifth. His cardio isn't going to fade. You know how good his striking is. And he's not even going to play around with the grappling of Sterling. The good thing for Sterling, though, Petr Yan has a bit of the, wow, that was a clean right hand. Petr Yan has a bit of the Justin Gaethje where when you're throwing, he's not throwing back because he's going to keep his hands up. You can prevent him from throwing back at you just by throwing volume at him, and you don't just have to throw hard shots at him to really earn his respect that way.
About 2 minutes, 15 seconds remaining. Sterling really trying to pressure, but it was a lazy takedown attempt there. Yan starting to really pick up all of these takedown attempts from Sterling. But again, like you said in the second, you can't really win a fight with your back up against cage.
He's done enough in the first 3 minutes, though, that even if he is defending this takedown for the last 2 minutes of the fight, I expect him to probably win this round. Just, you look at the work that he's been able to do on the feet up until then. He's landed clean a lot on Sterling in this round. And again, when Yan lets his hands go, he's landing every single time. And it is hard to let your hands go against a guy like Aljo who's constantly shooting for your legs. But we're starting to see now, especially he hurt him bad, that Petr Yan's taking this fight over.
All right, Sterling looked like he got rocked there. We got a bit of a clinch situation. Another trip takedown from Petr Yan. Minute 30 remaining in this third round.
Fight's starting to wear on Sterling a little bit.
Yeah, the live odds there, whether Petr Yan's minus 1,600, minus 1,400. Corbett makes a good point. Crazy how good Sterling looks so far, considering Yan made Aldo look like a scrub. At the end of the fight, it was a good fight, though.
It was a phenomenal fight, and I really do think it was one of the better fights of last year. It's just people remember for the awful stoppage at the end. But Petr Yan, he makes adjustments in fights. It's what he's very good at. It might be what he's the best at, honestly. We can talk about his boxing, but mid-fight adjustments are so important, and it's something that a lot of guys don't do. Aljamain Sterling, for instance, has he made any adjustments? No, he's just done the exact same thing throughout this fight, whereas Yan has defended the takedowns. He's been able to keep it on the feet, and really Yan's been able to take over this fight the more it's progressed.
Yeah, Yan doing a very good job here in this third round. This guy definitely the type of guy that, we had hoped for coming into the UFC. And for Aljamain Sterling, fighting a good fight as well. Again, for me, I had him up 2 rounds. If this fight were to end right now, Aljamain Sterling would have won a 3-round fight. But it isn't a 3-round fight. It's a title fight. Sterling looking a little wobbly, but he's starting to land.
He's just throwing wild and lazy, though. Like, Jan's making fun of him because I think he realizes Sterling doesn't have a lot on the end of his punches right now, and this was definitely a Yan. By far the best round for Petr Yan in this fight so far.
Nice leg kick there from Yan. Sterling starting to back up a little bit.
And just to kind of go off what you were talking about a bit at the start of the fight, Petr Yan's grappling is so underrated. The fact that he's been able to defend 11 of 12 takedowns from Aljamain Sterling, and the only time he got taken down, bounced right back up to his feet, is extremely impressive to do against a guy with his level of jiu-jitsu and wrestling.
Yeah, we'll flip it over to those striking totals. I mean, Aljamain Sterling was up quite a bit in the second round. Yan really starting to try and bring it back. Let us know what you're thinking over in the comments section. What do you have for a score so far? I've got a 29-28 for Sterling right now.
I would agree. You could have a 29-28 for Yan. Again, I think it does come down to how you judge that first round, and I don't think there's a wrong way to do it, honestly. Like, if you wanted to give it to Sterling, I can't disagree with you, and if you wanted to give it to Yan for the knockdown and the takedown, I couldn't disagree with you either. So I just think, Sterling, it's at the point where fatigue is starting to take over. You realize how high level of a striker Yan is. And like Makhachev said, Sterling, every time Petr Yan even starts going, he is biting so bad on all those feints, which is a big talking point in tonight's main event. But I think, again, we're just probably going to see more of the same from Petr Yan in this.
Brad H., I'm in agreement with you in the fact that, again, the tide has turned. The time has also come. Fact's a fact. Belongs to them. We're going to give it back. All right, Matt, we're getting ready for our fourth round title fight between Petr Yan and Aljamain Sterling. Let's see what kind of a game plan we do get out of these two guys. Because, again, like I said, Sterling was investing in the body early. And then in the third round, he got away from it a little bit. We saw, some activity from him. And usually he's a very active guy when the round starts. And then as it goes on, you can have a little bit of a shift even mid-round. Now, the greatest thing that we've seen out of Yan is every time that they clinch, every time that there's a position where Sterling might even go for a takedown, you have the trip out of Petr Yan to get Sterling on his back. Mike Heck has it 30-27 Yan. Listen, Mike Heck's a friend of the show. I disagree with it, but yeah, it's an interesting score.
It's been a great fight so far. Again, we're seeing a lot from both guys, and the fact that they are both so well-rounded, because we've seen Aljo, he looks really good on the feet, even though he is a primary grappler. Same thing, well, I guess the opposite for Yan, but I do think Yan's probably going to start putting it on him in this round, and it is wild when you do see Yan start to let his hands go, because he's not afraid to go to the body and the head, as we see Aljo start to throw nice combos, but Aljo's got to start being a little bit more clean with those combinations. He's really letting his hands loose, but he's not being sound defensively at all. His chin's right up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, there was a great move there before the flurry from Sterling, and you got to give credit where it's due, but Petr Yan ripping the body, coming up with a hook. You love to see it. Looking like a Tank Davis out there. Sterling still pushing a pace here. 3 minutes, 37 seconds in our fourth round.
That was a good right hand by... Yeah, Yan's really starting to let his hands go now. And for Sterling, he keeps on going for those lazy takedowns, and Yan has to defend them, and that's why I can't really go for an uppercut or a knee, because if you do go for the knee and you miss, then you're getting taken down. But the boxing of Petr Yan is tough to deal with on the feet.
And the thing that we've seen out of this fight, I mean, we've seen both guys switch stances a lot and find a lot of success. And yeah, I mean, maybe a bit of a surprise that Sterling, so far in the third round, he was 11-12 out of takedown attempts. Well, no, they were defended 11-12 times. He was only successful with one of them. And you saw him against a good wrestler, a very good wrestler, Corey Sandhagen. Whoop.
Corey Sandhagen's not a great wrestler. He's okay. I would say it's the worst part of his game.
Well, now you get Yan pushing pace. 2 minutes, 50 seconds remaining in the fourth round.
But again, every time Yan lets his hands go, Sterling is going for that takedown, trying to keep him honest. But for Sterling, he's just so fatigued with all these takedown attempts that he's not even really able to get much off on them. But again, Sterling has got to start landing on the head, and he can't just keep on giving up the back every single time. I know he's going for the spinning elbows and kicks, but he hasn't landed one yet, so why would you just keep on getting more tired going for them?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a surprise, but again, it's a title fight. I guess you just got to throw the kitchen sink at him.
I get it, but he's feeling the effects because he is so tired because of those spinning attempts and whatnot. So for Yan, he's landing clean. He's landing at a very high rate in this fight. So again, Yan is... Again, I hate to say that we predicted this, kind of to a T, but we did say Aljo's going to have his moments earlier on in this fight, but as the fight progresses, Yan has absurd cardio, and Sterling does start to tire. So Sterling's having his moments, don't get me wrong, but you can definitely tell that Yan's the fresher of the two fighters.
Yeah, I mean, really, the trips are very interesting. Not something that we see all that often, and I mean, Yan doing them to great effect. I mean, the last one didn't work there as we get close to 1:45 remaining in our fourth round. Sterling's still trying to push a little bit of a pace on Yan.
But again, he just walks into shots, eats them, and then rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. He's not really getting a lot of offense of his own off right now. And it's a little concerning because he is getting hit clean more as the fight goes on. And he keeps on turning his back, which you really hate to see. And Yan's starting to land good power shots.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like he's hurt at this point. Looks like he almost motioning to the referee that maybe there was a finger in the eye, but Jan landing the knees. Sterling going for more takedowns. He continues. Jan really trying to break away.
Aljamain Sterling's doing what I do in UFC 4, and I'm really tired and the fight's almost done. I just spam takedown attempts. Good right hand by Jan, and that's the thing with Jan. He's so accurate, and they just pulled up the numbers too. He's not just throwing for the sake of throwing. He's always throwing with a target in mind, and that's what you really like from a striker in Jan. When he goes to the body, he's dedicated to the power. When he goes to the head, there's something behind all of his shots, and he's just a really disciplined striker that way.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be very interesting to see how the judges see this one. I mean, Sterling doing the old Chris Weidman. We're just going to go down. We're going to put our hand on the mat just in case. Jan could land something.
That was illegal.
Was it illegal or was it fully legal?
No, he had a knee down.
Oh, boy.
So, not how we wanted this fight to go. He did knee him in the head. I think a knee was down. Hopefully replay is allowed. I believe it is. And yeah.
Hopefully it's not a fight-ending sequence.
I swear, if Aljamain Sterling becomes the UFC champ based off a disqualification, I'll be slightly upset. Yep, that's illegal. Yes,
we gotta see another. We gotta see another angle.
His knee's on the ground, Craig. Knees on the ground.
Difficult to see.
His knee's obviously on the ground, Craig. It's not.
You don't want to have a title fight in that.
Yeah,
way.
Aljamain's probably gonna win by disqualification. That's wild.
Oh, boy.
What a terrible end to a great fight. Because this is over. I doubt they're going to let Aljo continue. I think his knee was down. I really do. That was illegal. 110%. Darn. Aljamain Sterling, UFC champion by disqualification. No.
Let's see what happens.
He's not going to continue. Yeah, let's let the guy who's been rolling around for the last... Yeah, he's out of it, Craig. He's done.
Yeah, that's not good.
Remember when Anthony Smith could have been champ by disqualification? I don't think he's... I mean, he did knee him in the head really, really hard. Yeah, it's over. He's going to wave it off, and Aljo's probably going to be the winner by disqualification. I don't think he's faking it, guys. I think if you get hit with a clean knee while you're on one knee, you're probably going to be pretty hurt as a result.
Well, that just has to be the most disappointing end to a fight.
Darn. Petr Yan, no longer UFC champ? Can he... Wait. Okay. I did say Yan might go down as one of the all-time greats. Can he still accomplish that? Yeah, it's over.
We'll see what happens.
Like, listen.
If it was Chris Tognoni, we'd still be fighting.
Oh, yeah. Chris Tognoni would have let Jan finish him on the ground with ground and pound, probably. What a terrible end. Yeah, that's it. Wow, what a weird fight card we've had tonight. We've had some great fights. We've had some bad fights. We've had some weird fights. Got a little bit of everything tonight. Could Kyler Phillips just, like, jump into the cage? That'd be kind of cool.
So SC Shoot brings up a good point. What does happen if he doesn't wave it off?
I don't know, honestly. I really don't. I wish I had that answer. I just don't. I think if he doesn't wave it off, yeah, they go back to fighting like they would.
It's over.
Aljamain Sterling and new UFC bantamweight champion.
Well, son of a gun.
There you go. Aljamain Sterling. I'd be crying too if I won a UFC title. I'd be pretty happy. No, not the time for jokes.
Yeah, I mean, Nicholas, you're out of here, bud. You're gone. That's that's a difficult ending to a fight. I mean, it's really tough to try and put into words the way that one went. I mean, you know, Petr Yan had the win, and he thought maybe I can knee him if his knee's not down on the mat. And now Aljamain Sterling's a champion because of an illegal knee. I'm assuming you run it back. I'm assuming that's what they'll do.
Is it a DQ or is it no contest? I don't know. I'm assuming it's a DQ. No, it is a DQ, right? No contest has happened way earlier on in the fight. So yeah, Aljamain Sterling. Get down. Get down. Get down. Get down. Darn.
Wow.
Well, that was awful. That was terrible. That wasn't fun at all. That wasn't good. That was awfully disappointing. I wish he didn't win the belt that way, but we have a new champion tonight, so maybe it will be like UFC 217. Who really knows? Wow. Lots of fun to be had all around tonight.
Yeah, really hard to figure it out. And Corbett, you're right. I mean, DC said that, Mark Smith can figure out whether or not it was a no contest or not. I'm assuming you're going to end up calling it a no contest. He said it was clearly an illegal shot when it happened, so I'm assuming maybe the title will change hands. If they call it a no contest, they call it a no contest. But I think either way, you need a rematch in that one.
Yeah, you would think, but it does suck because now we have to hold up the division for another 6 months, or who really knows how long. So you got guys like Corey Sandhagen who are probably deserving of a title shot themselves, but now they have to wait longer. So it just sucks that the whole division's held up for that much longer. But Aljamain's really gassed after a round and a half. Like, you're going to have to fix that if you're going to want to really beat Petr Yan. I think Petr Yan was on his way to winning that fight, but that was a really bad knee.
Yeah, I mean, Gemini Jake, hope y'all didn't lose money. No, I hit the question mark kicks parlay with the over 1.5. We're going to see what we get, whether it's no contest or a win. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the decision is here. I mean, yeah, on replay, it does look like it definitely went down. So, yeah, I mean, Petr was fighting a great one there. Let's see what we get. Dana White's got the belt.
So... this has been weird. What a strange fight. Oh, wait, do they announce the... Oh, it's going to be a technical decision because it was in the 4th round.
Bruce Buffer.
Yes, they go to the judges' scorecards. Wow. Oh, no.
That's why you don't want the commentary. Due to an intentional foul, it's got to be
DQ.
Yep. Aljamain Sterling, your bantamweight champ.
Wow.
Yeah, that's rough. That's unfortunate. You know he doesn't want to win that way either, right?
That was just terrible, though. I really thought Jan was on his way to win a decision. That's disappointing. What a bad way to end a great fight, you know? And hey, Petr, that's on you, first of all. Like, you're on your way to win a fight. Don't knee a guy when his knee's down. I know he was playing that game with you constantly, but, like, that was, what a terrible end to that fight. What a weird sequence of events that has just happened. But hey, great news. We have Amanda Nunes fighting Megan Anderson up soon, and they've lied to you guys all week saying that Amanda Nunes has never fought a power puncher like Megan Anderson. So that's fun. And then, of course, we have Israel Adesanya fighting Jan Blachowicz to end the evening. So, hey, there's still 2 great title fights ahead of us, even though this one, I don't want to say it didn't deliver, because it's not like it didn't, but it was just, what a shame. What a terrible way to end a title fight.
Ugh, you really hate to see it, but yeah, of course, Sterling doesn't want to win like that. Yeah, it was a DQ, and to go up to the comment, Gemini Jake, you've been here for a while, but it won't buy Aljamain Sterling any fans. He's not faking this stuff. Like, he's not faking it at all. So, it's unfortunate. That knee landed flush. That was on Jan, and, I mean, again, hopefully they book a rematch, but who knows at this point.
Yo, Petr Yan, get it together. Like, again, that's on you. You're on your way winning a fight against a guy who was exhausted. It wasn't really giving much back at you. And you decided, hey, I'll just knee him in the head, even though it's super illegal. So, again, that was just poor judgment on Petr Yan. Maybe he couldn't see the fire knee. I find that hard to believe, though. And, yeah, maybe, or hopefully they do get a rematch. Hopefully we do get this fight again. But what an awful way to end a UFC title fight. Not the way that you want this to end whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge way to really change the momentum going into another 2 title fights. You already had one belt change hands on a DQ loss. You hate to see it.
Why are we interviewing Aljo? He barely walked out of the cage under his own strength.
Yeah, that's insane. Daniel, I don't care about the embellishment. Like, the guy got hit by a flush knee. I'm fine with that. Like, that's, you can't call him out. They shouldn't be interviewing him, though.
Yeah, because they don't interview fighters who lose by knockout. Not that he lost by knockout, but he won by knockout loss. So, just odd. Just odd.
Yeah, just a weird way to really end an interesting fight. I mean, yeah, you have to think that they run this one back as soon as they possibly can. We had a very competitive fight while it lasted. I mean, if that 4th round were to end, let's say hypotheticals, I would have added 2 for Jan and 2 for Sterling. So it was going to be a really important 5th round. But yeah, Mike, you bring up a good point. Don't interview him. It's ridiculous.
Could have brought up the...
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter because you thought that the comments were telling us it was going to be a decision.
Oh my goodness, Craig.
Yeah. Sterling thinking he was down by 2 rounds. Yeah, that's... You should be taking the guy to be looking for a concussion, not having him talk to Joe Rogan.
I mean, this has just been weird all around. Yeah. Just an odd way to end what was shaping up into a really, really good fight. But again, I can't stress this enough. People are going to be, oh, Sterling's embellishing it. Hey, if you don't knee him illegally in the first place, he can't fake getting knocked out if that's the party that you're from. So, yeah, what a strange way to end the fight. What an awful way to end this fight.
2 judges had a 29-28 Jan, 1 had a 29-28 Sterling. Oh, boy. Yeah, really, really difficult. And again, they're interviewing him. Like, what's the point? What's the point of all this?
I just want Amanda Nunes to beat Megan Anderson next because, listen, that's probably going to happen. So, wow. It was illegal, though. Again, that's the point they have to go back to. You can't lose by DQ if you don't do shady shit in the first place, and that's what Petr Yan did. So, don't throw knees like that, and I see that they're saying that his corner gave him that advice. Hey, Conan, whoever was in his corner, I guess, figure that out. You should know the rules. Wow. Wild fight.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, you never want to see anything end like that. It could be a fight on the Bellator prelims, and you don't want to see it end that way, let alone a UFC title fight in one of the best divisions that the company has. So it's unfortunate all the way around. You have to think they're going to run it back. You just have to kind of hold out hope there. And for Aljamain Sterling, you're a champ.
Yeah, but also fix your cardio, and hey, Petr Yan, don't throw knees to grounded opponents. It's not that difficult, as we highlight the next pay-per-view.
If I bet against Sterling, did I lose my bet?
Yes,
you did.
You did.
Yeah, you did.
So the next pay-per-view coming up, Miocic versus Ngannou 2, headlined by, of course, Francis Ngannou versus Stipe Miocic. I guess the other way around. I'm really excited for Alexander Volkanovski, Brian Ortega. You saw how good Brian Ortega's striking looked in his fight against the Korean Zombie, a fight that I thought the Korean Zombie was going to absolutely run over him in. And oh, by the way, don't know if you've heard, Craig, Brian Ortega, pretty crafty on the ground, too. So that's a really fun fight. And another fight on that main card that isn't getting enough shine, Tyron Woodley is fighting Vicente Luque. And you guys know I'm a Vicente Luque guy. I've been a fan of that man since he was 7-5 in the UFC, and a lot of people thought he did not belong. But I believed in him. I was like, wow, his Muay Thai is way better than a guy who is 7-5 in the UFC. And look how good he's become. He's got good takedown defense now. One of the best chins, I'd argue, ever in the UFC. Vicente Luque can eat absolute bombs. And the fact that they're giving Tyron Woodley on a 3-fight losing streak to Vicente Luque might be one of the more disrespectful things you can do to a man who is a former champion, but again, can't stress how disappointed that was.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy card so far. You had Trevin Jones finishing Bautista. You had Medic finishing Elon Cruz. Lemos getting a finish. Brady getting a finish. Chukwu getting a finish. Elliott winning a decision. Then you had another finish out of Kai Kara-France. Decision out of Askarov. Decision out of Phillips. Decision out of Cruz. They had it as a split. Rakic gets a decision win. Then you had Makhachev and Aljamain Sterling with the DQ illegal knee win. So kind of some insane stuff there so far.
Just a wild night of fights so far. And yeah, we still have 2 more title fights, guys. We're getting there.
Scarecrow, you guys like Ige Tuckermat. I'll let you take that one over.
I do like that fight, but again, and this is not giving Dan Ige his due, but I'm still going to say it. I think Dan Ige is one of the more beatable guys in the top 15 because you look at what Dan Ige does. He doesn't do anything that well. He's just really well-rounded. I get it. He's a good wrestler. He has good power in his hands, but he's not a good enough wrestler to go out there and just dominate with his wrestling. He's not a good enough striker to go out there and dominate you with his striking. I look at him like I used to look at Ricardo Lamas when he was in the top 5 forever. It was just, okay, Ricardo Lamas would beat like Diego Sanchez, who would be ranked at featherweight, and then he would fight someone and lose in like the top 3, and they just keep him at number 4 forever. So I do think that it's going to be an uphill battle for Gavin Tucker. But again, Ige's one of the more beatable guys in the top 15 of featherweight. Really excited for that fight, though.
Should be a great one. I mean, and our next fight coming up, Matt, we have Amanda Nunes taking on Megan Anderson. And for Megan Anderson, is she the hardest puncher at 145? Maybe, because there's not a lot of fighters at 145. And you've got a big fight coming up between Felicia Spencer and 1-0 Danielle Wolf. That's what the UFC's putting out there. Former title challenger that's fought Chris Cyborg and Amanda Nunes. She's going to fight a former pro boxer who's 1-0. Alan makes a good point. Yeah, that's just straight up disappointing. But I'm happy the question mark kicks parlay hit. So that's all I can say. I'm looking at this fight, Matt. I mean, Anderson knocked out Dumont with the right cross. And that's about all I had for the notes.
She also left her left hand down by her waist when she hit with that. So, again, it's just... Megan Anderson needs Amanda Nunes to roll her ankle on the way to the cage to win this.
Ramon hitting us up with $10 in the super chat. Good point. Just tuning in. How's that a DQ? How did one judge have Aldo ahead? I had a 29-28 Aljo, I guess. Like, going into the fourth, I had the first 2 rounds for Aljo and the third for Jan, and he was starting to kind of take over from there until the illegal knee that you definitely don't land. For all the... I'm going to sound like Don Cherry. Poor example, but he always used to do this in Coach's Corners. This is where I'm going with it. He always used to say, for all the kids watching out there, hey, this is the hit you got to do. This is the pass you want. This is the shot you want to have from the hash marks. For all the kids out there watching that are practicing MMA or Muay Thai, not Muay Thai, MMA, do not knee a grounded opponent. A knee down, a hand down, don't do it.
Just a good life lesson, really. Just never do it. It's illegal no matter where you go.
Don't do it. Just don't do it. As we get set, Matt, for a co-main event, Amanda Nunes taking on Megan Anderson. Really the narrative for this fight, the length and size of Megan Anderson, coupled with the length and size of Amanda Nunes. And then the other thing that you have to think of, too, is the fact that, listen, they've really parlayed Amanda Nunes being a new mom into this one. I'm sure that's going to be also the narrative for the next fight that you have with her partner. I mean, Nina Ansaroff. Got a big fight coming up against Mackenzie Dern. But if we go back and we look at the numbers, Matt, I mean, what can you tell me out of the numbers? Because if you look at it, Nunes has 10 more wins than Megan Anderson does. Megan Anderson's taken on a decent level of competition. She took on, like, real featherweights over with Invictus, Charmaine Tweet to book her spot in the UFC. And there's a few things that you do have to always look out for in a Megan Anderson fight, but it's the level of competition that Nunes has taken on that really got her over to that GOAT status. So overall in this one, I know we're overwhelmingly in the camp of Amanda Nunes. Unfortunately, we were with Jan, and what happened.
Well, the difference is Petr Yan could lose that fight. There was ways that he could. Aljamain Sterling's a phenomenal fighter. Megan Anderson, I have no idea how she wins this. You say she has a good right cross. I guess. It's okay. She doesn't have great defense, though, and that's my issue. She's hittable. She doesn't have a good ground game, and I've seen Holly Holm take her down with 1,000 single-leg takedowns. Like, I just don't know where Megan Anderson wins this. She's 6 feet tall, so I'd look her dead in the eyes, and that's the only thing that I can say about Megan Anderson that she has an advantage over Amanda Nunes with.
And she's got probably 20 pounds on you even on her weigh-in day.
Yeah, probably.
All right, Matt. Daniel Kovacs' win. Aljo could have gotten
Craig,
up.
like you're jacked.
If Aljo got up, that's 1 point deduction. You can take more than a point. Like, that's the thing with some of these rules.
Well, go back to the Anthony Smith fight. When he ate the illegal knee from John Jones, they actually took 2 points in that situation. So, again, it is possible, but what an awful way to end what was turning into a really, really good fight between those guys. But if they do have a rematch, I'm telling you right now, I'm favoring Young very heavily. Like, Sterling showed me what I figured he was going to show me. He got tired. Not only did he get tired, he got exhausted. And I hate it when fighters just go for spam takedowns to get their head out of danger. I think it's going to be a really tough fight for Sterling in the rematch. But, again, I don't know how Amanda Nunes loses this fight. I really don't. I know we said if we don't have anything good to say, we won't say it. I just don't know what Megan Anderson's going to do.
I won't say it.
What are you going to say then, Craig?
Megan Anderson.
She's got nice tattoos. They're cool. I like the shading on them.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Doesn't really look like she's added a lot to them, especially since moving to the States. I don't know what tattoo artists are like in Lee Summit, Missouri, but I'm sure there's some of them out there. They probably do some pretty good drawings. I will say one thing, though. Over on Early Stoppage, the podcast, John Franklin and I had an over-under in the section, and we said over-under, the amount of titles that change hands. Had it at 1.5. I went under.
Is everything 1.5?
Because I said that Adesanya was going to win. That was my one. And then now, well, you've already got one out of the way. Maybe there's going to be 2. Maybe there's going to be 3.
I mean, yeah, it's MMA. We got to watch to find out. Again, Megan Anderson's probably not going to win this fight. I'm really excited for Jan Blachowicz and Adesanya next. I think that fight's going to be absolutely absurd, but this is going to be a tough fight for Megan Anderson. Unless she's improved her takedown defense tremendously since her last fight, or just really just throughout her whole career, I don't see how she's going to be able to win this. I see this being an easy either ground and pound TKO for Amanda or submission win for Amanda.
Oh, boy. All right, we have the walk from the champ, the Lioness, the champ at 35, the champ at 45. And listen, there's a lot of interesting fights that are starting to shake out down at 135. I mean, we saw Irene Aldana start to make a move, and then she fought Holly Holm. Now Holly Holm has a big fight coming up, and maybe again, we're knocking on the door of another title shot. And who wouldn't want to see that? But at 35, obviously a much deeper division than we have up at 45. At 35, we have had some movers and shakers. Again, it has been a lot of the same. I know Juliana Pena seems to think that she's going to get a shot. You've got GDR up there that's making some noise. But we do have some younger fighters as well. And that's what makes this very interesting. What's the next play? If Amanda Nunes wins here at 45, you're still double champ. Do you go back to 35? Do you keep it at 45? It's different because, you know, with the other double champs, the Cormiers of the world, with McGregor, listen, you got to start taking some fights. What do they do with Amanda Nunes after this fight?
I have no idea. I don't think anyone knows. I don't even think Dana White knows, because she's beaten everyone who's considered elite in both divisions. And I look at the people who are kind of on the outset of that elite right now at 135. Arena Aldana's got nothing for Amanda Nunes, and here's the problem. You have to beat either Holly Holm or Germaine de Randamie to justify a shot at Amanda Nunes. You have two fighters right now who are also head and shoulders above the rest of the division. So unless Juliana Pena can somehow not get guillotined by a striker like she did against Germaine de Randamie, I just don't really see how she gets to Amanda in the first place. And Amanda's already beaten JDR twice, so I doubt they're going to do a trilogy fight between those two. I really don't know what they do with Amanda next.
It's really difficult to try and tell. I mean, let us know down in the comment section. Voodoo thinks that all three belts are going to change hands. Do you agree?
I don't. I've said this a lot. Again, Megan Anderson is a terrible wrestler. Amanda Nunes is an amazing grappler. It's going to be like Islam Makhachev, Drew Dober, but even worse.
Man, going with the hot hand. We'll see what happens in this one, but it should be a very interesting fight. Again, for Megan Anderson, you've been champ over with another organization. You've really kind of made moves. You were supposed to be the next big thing coming in from Invicta. And while I said she was champ, she beat Charmaine Tweet. You know, you focus on the career of Megan Anderson, and listen, it's difficult. And for Anthony, me arguing that it was legal, I couldn't see the knee. I couldn't see it. I couldn't see it at all. So it's really difficult. But yeah, I mean, you focus in on this one, Matt. For Megan Anderson, one of the most difficult fights she's ever had. She didn't fight Chris Cyborg. Felicia Spencer did.
Craig, it's the most difficult fight she's ever had. Like, again, I don't know why you're not just saying it black and white like I am. Quit dancing around it. Megan Anderson has no chance to win this fight. She might be able to. She might be able to catch her. But again, we're dealing with a fighter who has beaten everyone. She's beaten them at their own games before. Megan Anderson has one opportunity to win this fight. There's been fighters who have had a lot more than just one opportunity to beat Amanda Nunes, and they haven't even come close. So I don't think Megan Anderson is going to be the person who all of a sudden shocks the world.
All right, Matt. So we have our second of the title fights. Obviously, the first one ending in controversy once we finally were able to see a good angle. Yeah, 100% illegal.
What do you think the odds would have been on 3 title fights going to a disqualification? Someone out there is going to make millions of dollars if that happens.
Yeah, that one was something. I mean, it really takes you take a pretty big hit there.
Tomorrow it'll be like richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos, then like Rick from Saskatchewan, who thought that there were 3 disqualifications.
Way to go, Rick.
I don't know if she does. Again, Amanda Nunes has fought Holly Holm and Germaine de Randamie and Chris Cyborg. Not only 3 of the most powerful strikers, but 3 of the most technical strikers. She knocked out 2 of them and completely dominated the other one, and then TKO ground and pounded the other one.
Great point by Michael Roth. Having the courage for fighting Nunes is a win.
It is. No. I wouldn't. I'd get absolutely dominated. But again, it's just really tough. For Nunes, we're talking about a fighter who's cleared out 2 divisions, who hasn't had a competitive fight in a very long time, up against Megan Anderson, whose best wins Norma Dumont.
Matt, we're getting ready for our second of the title fights. We appreciate you tuning in at home, supporting the boys, hanging out at 1:22 a.m. local time, 12:22 Eastern, here on this great night that is UFC 259. The fights from the Apex, they've been awesome. So if you can toss us a like, if you're not already subscribed, please do so, because we appreciate it. Anderson and Nunes, the final particulars out of a green suited. He looks a little bit like the Green Goblin, Bruce Buffer. Ha ha ha.
I'd love a Bruce Buffer laugh like that, but we're never going to get it. Jason Herzog getting the call for this co-main event. Again, Megan Anderson is much bigger than Amanda Nunes, but guess what? You're all the same height when you're on your back, and I do think Amanda Nunes takes her down early, and I really think her grappling is going to showcase in this fight.
Matt, we're getting set for our first round. If you just tuned in, sync up with us. There's a bit of a delay, a little bit of a lag. We're getting ready for our second title fight at featherweight. You have Amanda Nunes defending her belt against Megan Anderson of Australia. And she is taking on one heck of a tough test. Anderson coming out of here with that long stance that we've seen time and again. Both of these women out of the orthodox stance. And it's Anderson controlling the center of the octagon here early.
And that she's going to need that wide stance to defend some of the takedowns. That's going to make her center of gravity a little bit lower, making it easier to defend some of the takedowns. But for Anderson, she's going to have to get the respect of Nunes early on in this fight. And it will be interesting to see how she's able to do that, or if she's able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, Nunes on the back foot here so far. We're about 30 seconds in. Randy Fowler, what's in the cup? It's just water. I could show you. It's just water. Taking her nice and easy tonight. Bit of an exchange in there so far. Nunes starting to land. Heavy calf kick there from Nunes 45 seconds into the first round.
And that's the thing about Nunes. It's not just the hands. It's the kicks, too. And she sets them up really well with her boxing. It's something that you have to watch out for. And she's not afraid to go to the head or to the body. She's a really dynamic fighter in Amanda Nunes. There's a reason that she is the women's best fighter of all time. And really, arguably the best fighter of all time, regardless of gender. She is starting to get into that category.
Steve McDermott. Habs guy first. Big right hand.
She hurt Anderson with that one.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the swelling early and her eyes were rocked.
The speed advantage that Nunes has in this matchup is absolutely insane. You can just tell that Megan Anderson, she's so hesitant for what's coming her way, and Megan Anderson shouldn't be shooting for takedowns on
oh
Amanda Nunes.
Boy, that's pretty much it. I mean, yeah, that's got to be it, Jason. Jason Herzog, great referee,
one of the best in the business. But yeah, like Amanda Nunes is good no matter where the fight goes. And here's the crazy thing: you're probably thinking to yourself, but wait. If someone takes her down, could they have success?
I mean, Nunes is a little high if she was trying to go for the neck, but she is trying to go for the armbar here so far. Guys need a drink sponsor. Listen,
I love one.
If you or yourself or a friend maybe know a rep for an energy drink company, we could use it. That's
go
what
for
I'd
a
like.
reverse triangle right now with the armbar. Just a tricky spot for Megan Anderson.
Yeah, she tapped. That's it. Wow. Pure domination from Amanda Nunes. Not even a snowball's chance, and HE double hockey sticks for Megan Anderson. And Matt, I gotta say, why did they even book this fight?
It's almost like that's what I've been saying this whole time, Craig. It made no sense, let's be honest. I understand the UFC wants to keep her active, and it looks nice that she has 2 belts and whatnot, but Megan Anderson should not have been in there with Amanda Nunes, and I think we saw that from the second Nunes landed her first shot. She rocked Nunes with the first, or she rocked Anderson, with the first punch she threw, and then it was the beginning of the end from there. That reminded me a lot of the Yana Kunitskaya Chris Cyborg fight, where it was like, okay, the second she landed once, you could kind of tell where the fight was going, but I don't really know what Megan Anderson does from here. Like, if that's your ground game, I don't know if you can ever really beat an upper echelon fighter, and at 145, there's not a lot of other fighters out there for her to be competing with. So it will be interesting to see where Megan Anderson goes from here on, or even if she's in the UFC anymore. Like, maybe she does go back down to Invicta. Maybe she does go... Exactly, a Bellator that has a more established featherweight division. So I do think that there's still options out there for Anderson, but yikes, she did not show anything in this fight.
Yeah, that's good. Listen, I'll be honest with you. You know, I was going to say... That was the most disappointing title fight I've seen. Well, no, the fight before that was the most disappointing title fight with the way that it finished. Now, the fight was a lot better than this one, but, like, come on. You know, you book a fight and the initial odds are minus 1,000 for one of the fighters. Like, what are we even doing here?
You got mad at me for saying that Amanda Nunes is going to win this no matter what.
You got to be nice.
You don't, though, in a fight like this, Craig. She was a 10 favorite.
You gotta Tim McGraw your life and always be humble.
She's the greatest fighter of all time, Craig.
That's true.
It wasn't going to be close. We both knew this. This was bad. That was just awful. Like, that was a massive mismatch. She shouldn't have been in there at all. Amanda Nunes is insane, though. Like, I love watching Amanda Nunes fight. I've got to say that. When Amanda Nunes fights, I get excited. Because you know what you're going to see? A finish. She goes out there and dominates people. And again, I love watching Nunes fight.
Matt, let's get into it. I mean, Ramon hitting us up with another super chat, not sugarcoating anything. Listen, you got to be nice. But I focus on this one. Again, you mentioned it about, the challenger in this fight, Megan Anderson.
Where do you think she goes?
Again. You either fight the winner of Felicia Spencer, Danielle Wolf. If Danielle Wolf wins, she's 2-0. I don't think Danielle Wolf wins that fight at all.
And stylistically, Spencer's an awful matchup for Anderson. Like, we saw that before. Just the grappling isn't even close between those two.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you either go to... Do you go to PFL?
Well, that's adorable.
Do you fight at 55? Do you fight like the Sarah Kaufman, Larissa Pacheco's, Kayla Harrison's? Because they've already,
Craig?
but the trouble is they've already got that book. So do you throw her in there?
That's what I mean. I never considered that, and I think that's a very neat wrinkle because that's not something I ever considered was her
And
fighting.
she'd still be huge there too.
Exactly. She is a massive 145er, and her frame would work for 155. So I gotta be honest, not even something I ever thought about. Good looking out, Craig. That's smart.
So I mean, to me, it's either PFL. Bellator has a healthy women's 145, and I know some of the fighters over there. We might be talking about fighters with 6-7 pro fights, but they're good. They're good, but there's not much left in the UFC. This division's very silly.
There's not much left in the UFC for even Amanda Nunes, and I mean that in the best way possible. Like, you've gotten to such a point where every number one contender in there is starting to be that, like, plus 500 underdog, plus 600 underdog. There's not many people who can even come in there and have a competitive fight with her, because that's what we were saying. If you're a primary striker, Amanda Nunes is going to knock you out. If you're a grappler, she can out-grapple you at this point. Like, she's a well-rounded specialist, if that makes any sense. Like, at this point, Amanda Nunes is basically a 10 out of 10 at everything. So I don't know how you beat her at this point.
It's really difficult to try and figure that one out. It will be a tough nut to crack. I'm interested to hear after the fact what we're going to get out of Amanda Nunes in terms of a post-fight speech. But you have to think, I mean, the family's together. You got the kid.
It's a cute kid.
With quite a bit of hair. Nina Ansaroff's still fighting, though. So are both fighters going to keep fighting?
I'm just not really sure. Again, it's just... I don't know what you do if you're Nunes. You've done everything you possibly can in the sport. And it's not like one of those cases where, like, Ronda Rousey's so good. Like, Nunes she's beaten everyone.
Phoenix Graves, UFC will pick up Shields to fight Nunes. She's in the PFL tournament, so no, they won't.
And you know what happens if they fight? Nunes either knocks her out on the feet with a head kick or chokes her unconscious.
Remember, nobody remembers this, but remember when the UFC, they were going to do Zuffa boxing in December and Clarissa Shields was going to fight for them? What happened there?
It's probably a good thing that she didn't. Here's the thing. Like, Clarissa Shields is a good boxer, don't get me wrong. If she fights Amanda Nunes, even in boxing... No, okay, in boxing she wins, don't get me wrong. But if you add any other rule other than just pure boxing, Nunes destroys her and it's not even close. Like, Nunes is at that level now where she can beat people at almost anything. Now, in MMA, no one's beating her no matter what. Yeah, just wild. Amanda Nunes is amazing. She really is.
Yeah, it's really tough to try and figure this one out. That girl that just beat Sabina Mazo beat Nunes before. She needs to call out Nunes for a big payday.
Alexis
Davis is really a flyweight, though. I know that fight was at bantamweight. Okay, Phoenix Graves, she's taking one-off fights for the PFL. So she could do like an Umar Nurmagomedov or some of those showcase fights that they've had. I guess you're right. I will cede my argument.
So maybe we get a Megan Anderson, Clarissa Shields, one-off in PFL? Probably not.
I'm not interested. Yeah, it's just one of those tricky things that... Listen, we'll see what happens. You're excited for Shields' debut. I'm excited for the PFL this year. They've actually brought in fighters that aren't boring wrestlers, so it's exciting.
Exactly. That has been my big problem with the PFL. I like wrestling and MMA, don't get me wrong. I just don't want to see it in every single matchup. And you're right. The quality of fighters that they've been able to bring together for this season is phenomenal. You've got Anthony Pettis is over there now. Rory McDonald. Like, they signed some really big name free agents in the last year and a half, and it feels like, remember Bellator had their stretch where they signed Rory and Ryan Bader, and they kind of got that big influx all of a sudden. PFL's in that area right now, and it's nice to see.
Debbie, we appreciate you with the super chat.
Thank you.
Love the show. We appreciate you. So let's get into it, Matt. We're looking forward to this main event. Jan Blachowicz looking to make his first big splash, his first big title defense against one of the bigger up-and-coming stars that we've had in a long time. Israel Adesanya, undefeated, 20-0. I mean, we've seen Phoenix rise. Unfortunately, not you, Phoenix Graves, but unfortunately, not Khamzat Chimaev, but you can still ride that train in Adesanya. He's been there. He's done that. He's your champ. He baby birds food to his dog, but we'll just kind of glance over that. And we've seen City Kickboxing so far go 1-1. Will we get 2-1 so far in this one? This is a tight fight, and I know, Matt, we both have Israel Adesanya to win, but you can make compelling arguments for both guys.
Okay, I'm going to bring up another basketball thing, and I'm very sorry. Again, wonkiness can work to your benefit. Like, you can be a non-traditional kind of player. Like, Sean Marion made a bunch of All-NBA teams by having the ugliest jump shot you've ever seen. It's just, since it was so unorthodox, you couldn't really guard him that way. And with Jan Blachowicz, he has a stiff way of moving. And I'm not saying that the Polish power of Jan Blachowicz is the key of beating a guy like Israel Adesanya. But the wonkiness of his style might give Adesanya a little bit of, at least pause, of being aggressive and really trying to go for the finish early on and letting his hands go. And here's the thing. If Adesanya stands in the pocket for one punch too long and Blachowicz is able to crack him, he might not knock him out with that first punch, but the respect that he will gain from landing power shots early on in the fight will definitely help him as the fight progresses.
And Scarecrow 586, what do you think of Jan's rope? It's the weirdest friendship bracelet I've ever seen in my entire life.
Metal.
It's very scary. Very, very scary. Adorable Cheat, I've seen you post how awesome was Islam. He looked great. And Izzy has to get the KO. Has to get KO'd. I don't know about that. I don't know. I don't think you need that. The prelims were better than the title fights. Yeah, they were. 100%.
They were. But again, it's not Amanda Nunes' fault that she's so far better than Megan Anderson. And again, I wish I could hear what they were saying because they seem to be talking for a long time. Maybe Amanda Nunes could be on the Joe Rogan Experience sometime soon. But again, for Megan Anderson, for Amanda Nunes, what more can you say? Like, she's done everything you possibly can as an MMA fighter. Has she achieved champ status? Yes. Can she knock you out? Yes. Can she submit you? Yes. She's just the ultimate MMA fighter at this point, and it's been really nice to see her evolution throughout her career. From being that kind of, I'm that really power-heavy fighter, I don't really, I can get a knockout, I can get a submission, but I do tire as the fight progresses. And now you just see this really well-rounded MMA fighter who has great fight IQ, just a really smart fighter in general. And it has been wild to see the overall evolution of Amanda Nunes throughout her career.
And automatically Dana White whispering into her ear, they better not make the Juliana Pena fight, as they have the tweet up there. I mean, there is a line, and it's a small line. It's like if you go to like Arby's in off hours, there's nobody there. So it's a pretty small line, but you can still get that beef and cheddar.
Sad songs always at Arby's. Arby's, quit playing breakup songs there.
I mean, the Waterville, Maine one, it's always sad songs. I did go to an Arby's last week, though, in St. John, New Brunswick, Canada.
Was it happy?
It was tasty.
Oh, good.
No, it was great. But hey, we're getting ready for a really interesting fight at 205 pounds. Again, Jan Blachowicz, the Polish power, taking on the Nigerian nightmare, not Kamaru Usman. It's Israel Adesanya in this case, representing Nigeria and New Zealand. Out of city kickboxing. One of the more dynamic strikers I think we've ever seen in MMA is Israel Adesanya. You can see him whipping in his kicks, and I worried about it. And listen, if you're following along with Fight Night Picks and you're playing a drinking game, I've mentioned this before, and I said it in the original prediction videos, and I know you can back me up on it, but I'll still say it. When Adesanya made the walk, and we saw that little pec kind of flab going on, I was worried initially. But I thought it was a torn pec, and I thought, hey, this guy's going to have no power in his right hand. And he went out there and he kicked, and I thought, oh boy, well, this is really, really bad. And then all of a sudden, Paulo Costa just crashed like the tide, got hit, down, bam, bam, bam. And Israel Adesanya ends it, and he throws in a couple more pumps just for added measure, which are not very classy. Really classless, if you ask me. But now he's taking on Jan Blachowicz, a guy that can really strike, he can really wrestle. He's one of those guys that doesn't get too excited, usually stays on his bike. However, he did get excited in the Thiago Santos fight when he walked into everything. But normally, pretty mellow. And if you're Jan Blachowicz, he just continues to move forward. And he continues to throw kicks. He's not the type of guy that usually gets very hesitant in his fights. And that's the thing that I like in this match.
He's going to have to move forward on Adesanya, but that's the most dangerous thing you can do against a guy like Izzy. And it will be interesting. Can Jan Blachowicz eat the power of Adesanya? Because let's say he can stand up to that power early on, and Adesanya tires himself out going for the knockout. If he is trying to punch himself out, Blachowicz might be able to get the fight to the ground in the later rounds, and we know how good of a black belt Jan Blachowicz is in his fights, so there is a path to victory for Jan Blachowicz, but I do see Adesanya at range. He's another animal. He's got the kicks. He has the range attacks to go along with the power. So I think this is Adesanya's fight to lose.
Going back to Craig Robb's question or comment, there are an abnormal amount of Arby's in New Brunswick for some reason. I think we had one in Toronto. There's only two I can think of. There's one in Moncton and there's one in St. John, and that's it. Fredericton doesn't even have one. Like, I have to go for a drive to try and go to an Arby's. And you followed up with that one. Craig and Matt, what would you say this one's power versus speed? Yeah,
100%.
Power versus speed, and then Adesanya has power too. So, yeah, I mean, it is a great stylistic matchup, though. Like, I love this fight. Normally I don't get overly excited of somebody jumping up, somebody moving down. Like, listen, Amanda Nunes is different. She's great at 45. She's great at 35. She's one of the best fighters of all time. One of these guys, I don't think Jan Blachowicz, because he's kind of come back from it. But I think if Israel Adesanya keeps winning, then he can be one of the best of all time. Jan is a great fighter. Jan is a guy that late in his career really turned it on. He figured it out. The Corey Anderson knockout, amazing. Calling out John Jones, probably should have made the fight, but it didn't happen. You look at the way that he finished Luke Rockhold with the old left hook Larry. And I mean, listen, Luke hasn't been the same fighter in a little bit. He wants to come back. Raquel making a great point. But I look at this one as, you saw Jan do it to Dominic Reyes. Everybody expected Dominic Reyes, myself included, to come out like he did against John Jones and really put together a really impressive performance. And it was Jan investing in the body kicks, really switching his angles, and just totally dominating Dominic Reyes to the point where Reyes didn't get a chance to implement his clinch game or his wrestling. So for me, I love this fight. I couldn't be behind, a double champ type of fight as much as I am right now. I just love this one.
I really do love this fight, and it will be interesting because they're in very different stages of their career. Like, Jan Blachowicz, I know he's a new champion, but he's kind of been there and done that. Like, he's been around the block for a long time. Approaching his, I guess he had his 37th birthday this week, 38th birthday. Like, he's near the end of his 30s, but the good news for him is at 205, at heavyweight, you've still got a few years to still be one of those top guys in the division, but against a guy like Adesanya, you need speed to match his speed. I don't think you can just go in there with a power-based mindset, because if you're going in there trying to knock him out, he's just going to move out of the way the whole entire time and make you look silly. So I really do think you have to invest in the legs if you're Jan Blachowicz. I think you're going to have to try to clinch him to try to get some of that energy out of him. Make Israel Adesanya feel your weight early on in this fight. And Jan Blachowicz does have a path to victory.
And I mean, for Kent, for Craig, for Scarecrow, for Gemini Jake, I'm nowhere near on the same level as Pharrell Williams, so I probably can't get that Arby's cheddar. But we'll see what happens. Now we're getting the walk out of our challenger. The man himself, Israel Adesanya, a guy who's been told to tone down his walkouts because I don't think Dana White wants to hurt himself. And I don't think we're going to get the cool dancing out of him.
I like them.
But listen, I really am excited for this one. I can't kind of contain it or hide it, but you've got a great fighter here representing City Kickboxing, really heading the charge from the gym.
Oh, 100%. Like, when you think City Kickboxing, you think Israel Adesanya, and I'll say, if he wins this fight, when you think UFC, you're probably going to think Israel Adesanya. Like, I really do think he's that level of a star. He's a more marketable star than a John Jones just because he doesn't have kind of that, like, bad baggage like John Jones has. Listen, he's a little eccentric. He's kind of weird. But he hasn't done anything, like, bad yet. So I do think Adesanya's going to be the face of the company for a while to come. And the great thing about Adesanya, too, he's active. A lot of stars aren't active in the UFC, but Adesanya, ever since he first joined the UFC, it's not like he won the belt and then was like, okay, I'm only going to fight once every 6-8 months so I can hold this belt for a long time. He's been active, he's looked out, he's seeked the top contenders, it hasn't been the other way around, and that's a really great thing to see from a guy like Adesanya, who is trying to make a big name for himself. If you're willing to fight anyone, anywhere, at any time, that's a very good way to gain a lot of fans. So if Adesanya can go out and get an impressive win tonight, I really do think the sky's the limit in terms of his marketability.
And I think it's a great fight. I mean, I've just continued to say it, but you look at Jan Blachowicz, you talked about it, a guy that celebrated a birthday here recently, walking into the cage, 38 years old. Adesanya's almost 32, and I think that plays into it a little bit. We're talking physical prime right now. We really have to kind of get things moving. And it started with poor Rob Wilkinson. It's really carried over from there. You look at all the performance bonuses that Adesanya's won, and I focused on it with Jan Blachowicz as well. So let's kind of talk about those a little bit. Because for Adesanya, 7 of his 9 fights have garnered a bonus. 5 of them performance, 2 of them fight of the night. That Yoel Romero fight was not one of those fights. And for Jan Blachowicz, he's been around the block for some time. But 6 bonuses, 5 performances, 1 fight of the night. And he's really kind of changed things around. We talked about it. No longer is this the guy that lost to Durkin, Pat Cummins. Like, this is a guy that's really changed some things in his life. This is the guy that we knew and loved from KSW that was putting on impressive performances, and it's amplified that at a later stage in life. You rarely ever see that.
You really do, and I don't want to say Jan Blachowicz is like a newer Michael Bisping, because Bisping was at the top of the division for the majority of his career, but the late career resurgence of Jan Blachowicz has really been something to witness, because you remember him fighting Pat Cummings, and he has good moments in that fight, but he gets tired. And then you always see Jan Blachowicz, when he loses, he doesn't just come back the same fighter. He always improves. And when you have that I'm going to improve mindset, you're going to age a lot more gracefully than someone like a Sarah McMahon, for instance, who still refuses to go to jiu-jitsu classes. If you are Jan Blachowicz, a real student of the game, you're constantly going to be learning. And again, like Chris Paul's going to be good till he's 50 years old because he's so smart when it comes to basketball. Israel Adesanya, he has that kind of fight IQ where he's going to be able to fight for a very long time. And I do think Jan Blachowicz is another case of that. Very smart fighter, very cerebral fighter. It might not always look like that because of sort of the stiffness of the way that he fights, but you don't accidentally get yourself to a light heavyweight title. Like, Jan Blachowicz has put in the work. He's constantly improved. He's never just stayed stagnant in this division. That's what I really like about Jan Blachowicz' career.
And making the walk here is Jan Blachowicz. He is wearing a flat-billed hat, something I thought I would never see out of him in my entire life. But here he comes. He's taking the hat off and the hood. No, he's keeping that hat on. I mean, this is the play-by-play that I hope you expected out of us. But we really do appreciate everybody who's tuned in. I mean, we used to do Fight Companions way back when. We do the whole card. We would talk ourselves into exhaustion. And listen, nobody would comment in the comment section. So now it's great to see that people are really tuning in. And it's
Marty from Nebraska did. There was one guy, and I'll never forget his name.
Marty from Nebraska did. All right. Chris Paul will not be good at 50. He can still shoot threes.
Hear me out. No. It's just when you're really smart in basketball and you know where everyone's going at all times, IQ matters more than anything.
Like Jose Calderon.
Not like Jose Calderon. More like Steve Nash was good.
Tony Parker.
Exactly. Tony Parker, Jason Kidd, like guys like that. If you're a floor general, you can play.
Marcus Camby.
You gotta stop. You can play for a really, really long time. Like Kyle Lowry's the same kind of guy. If you're really smart, you can play for a long time.
Udonis Haslem?
And Jan Blachowicz making his way to the cage, just getting checked out by the doctors.
That's commissioner, Matt.
That's not a commissioner.
That's referee Chris Tione, but he's a part of the commission for tonight.
Wait, Toyone's not the ref in this fight, is he?
No, he's not the ref.
Oh, thank goodness. That could have been bad for both men.
All right, Matt. So we're getting Jan in the cage. We're getting set for our main event of the evening. Listen, this is the light heavyweight title on the line, the baseball jersey on the line. Again, I gotta say it. We really do appreciate everybody out there in that comment section. Eddie Curry, that's another one.
Here's the thing. I'm gonna ask for a way too specific prediction out of you because I'm gonna give one. I like Adesanya by third round TKO. I do. I think by then he'll start to get the timing of Jan Blachowicz, and he will start to take over a little bit. And I do think Blachowicz will walk into a shot, not the same way he did with Santos, but I do think he might try to rush the fight at some point and walk into a punch.
I was thinking second or third. I was gonna go with third.
Fair enough.
Way she goes. We're getting the particulars on this one. Of course, Adesanya came in at 200.5 pounds. And listen, I'll change up the narrative in this show a little bit. There it is right there, hanging up on the ceiling almost. You have Daniel Cormier throwing Dan Henderson. Now, why do I show that to you? Well, it's because Dan Henderson came in light for that fight at light heavyweight and got his stuff rocked.
Do you think we'll get do you think Jan Blachowicz will at least pick up Israel Adesanya over his head one time?
Oh boy. Josh Hart's wearing the baseball jersey, so we appreciate you.
I have a theory for you, and I'd really like to get your opinion because I was asking some people earlier about this. I think the heavier Jan weighs right now is the bigger disadvantage. I really do. I think if Jan showed up right now at like 230, he's at a big disadvantage. But if he's in the cage right now at like 215, I like his chances slightly more.
He is looking
thick.
Fit and ready, as they say. Adesanya's pecs still looking a little different. But yeah, we'll see what happens. David S. Izzy KO within 3. I thought Izzy came in at 193. No, he just said that on the Ariel Helwani show. Oh no, it's Herb Dean. Oh yeah. How much does Izzy weigh right now? Probably close to the same. I doubt he rehydrated.
Exactly. He didn't dehydrate. That's the thing you have to remember. Jan right now probably does weigh north of 220 pounds. And I'm very comfortable saying that. He weighs more than 220 pounds without a doubt. Adesanya's walking in right now at about 200. Whatever he ate for breakfast is probably what's in his stomach right now. Like, Jan does have a massive size and power advantage. But again, I keep on bringing it back to boxing. There's a reason why in boxing you can move up 9 weight classes and beat somebody. It's because speed matters a lot more in striking than power does. If I can get to my target faster than you can, then you won't be able to hit me and I'm going to be able to hit you. Manny Pacquiao made a career of doing it. So I think Adesanya has a massive speed advantage. I like the kicks. I like the body attacks. I like Adesanya in this fight. But here's the thing. I'm a fan of Jan Blachowicz. I don't like admitting that, but I do really like Jan Blachowicz. So even if he wins, I'm not going to be upset.
Scarecrow 586. We got to sell out of the baseball jerseys, and there's a lot of baseball jerseys. I'll get hockey jerseys after. All right, Matt. I am, again, like I said, I'm really looking forward to this fight. It is such a good one. I mean, you look at the height and the reach, and they're close. They're close. Adesanya, reach advantage. Adesanya, height advantage. Obviously, the weight advantage going the way of the champion. We're getting the particulars on him right now. Again, win percentages for Jan so far in his UFC career, 30% by knockout, 33% by submission, 37% by decision. For Adesanya, 3/4 of them by knockout, the other 25% by decision. Average fight time, 12:01 for Jan, 15:07 for Adesanya. Knockdown average per 15 minutes, 1.21 for Adesanya to 0.45 for Jan. So interesting stats to kind of have a look at. Listen, I mean, I see a lot of people going about 50-50. Any chance Jan just lays on him? There is a possibility.
There is, and it would be a disappointing way for this fight to go, but Jan isn't a bad grappler by any means. He's a very good one at that. So if he's able to get the takedown early, could you imagine if we just saw Jan Blachowicz put on the wrestling shoes like he's Daniel Cormier all of a sudden?
Oh,
It'd be
boy.
a sight to behold.
I'm excited. Again, if you're at home, pause and sync up with boys. So we're ready for our main event of the evening. We're getting ready for round one. For the light heavyweight belt, Jan Blachowicz taking on Israel Adesanya. Never thought we'd get this fight.
Never.
Never,
Of
ever.
all the fighters Israel Adesanya could have fought at 205. I like how he didn't touch gloves. I respect that. Luke Rockhold, the fighter who I always remember, he touched gloves, and then as he walked back to his corner, you go, no touch at the start. I like that. Let him know that you're not going to do it before you actually do it. Be respectful.
Both guys feeling each other out in the center of the octagon. A lot of feints so far from Adesanya, which is something we mentioned.
It's really the key to this fight because Jan Blachowicz does have a nasty habit of biting big on feints. And listen, he knows what the key of this fight's going to be, but you can already see every time Adesanya flexes that back hip, making you think he's going to throw a kick, Jan, big reactions, big reactions, big reactions. And that's how all those guys at City Kickboxing really set up their combinations. Brad Rendell's another really good example of, he'll throw with power and he feints too and really makes you bite. So if Adesanya can get Jan Blachowicz to bite this bad early on in the fight, it's just going to get worse and worse.
It is quite bad so far. I mean, it'll be interesting to see when Jan tries to close distance what we'll get out of it, because you have to think he's going to do it. But really on his back foot is Blachowicz so far. Even with the kicks, we've seen the stance switches out of Adesanya, who himself invests in the leg kick. Nice high kick from Adesanya earlier, about 1 minute and 10 seconds into our first round so far. And SC Shoop, I got Jan hedging my emotions. Ugh. You have to in a fight like this.
You really do. Like, Jan Blachowicz, you're not going to dislike the guy. I doubt many people... Jan Blachowicz doesn't have a lot of guys who speak poorly of him. You know? Like, if you ask people around his town, he's probably a very nice guy and everyone really likes him. So, you don't want bad things to happen to him. But, again, stylistically, this is a tough matchup. And I don't want to say this is kind of a fun fight because you have to look at some more intricacies to figure out who's going to win, but it's not as obvious as just, oh, these guys are both good strikers. Like, Adesanya and the feints of Adesanya are really going to give Jan trouble in this fight, and I think we have seen that so far.
Yeah, I mean, you did see Blachowicz kind of march forward like we've seen him do, landing those 2 shots. And it's not so much Cindy Dandois out of him, because he does a much better job of hiding things and landing. And there is a lot of high-level technique. Like you said, you don't end up with a title around your waist by accident. But it's been a very, very much a feeling out process so far in the first 2 minutes and 10 seconds of our first round.
And you can tell that Adesanya doesn't want to be in boxing range. Listen, he's still a phenomenal striker, and he's probably the best striker in UFC history. I'm not afraid to say that. You don't want to be in boxing range with Jan Blachowicz, though, because if you do stand there for one too many punches, he's going to be able to land one of those big hooks. And power is the great equalizer. It always has been. It always will be. You don't want to rely on power to win a fight, but if you do have that in your back pocket, it's always going to be there.
I mean, more stance switches from our challenger here so far. Still throwing the feints out. Michael Chaplow, your phone's going to die. You have a good night too, Michael.
Take it easy, Michael.
Getting into about 3 minutes into this round so far. Again, very interesting feeling out process.
And I'd expect Adesanya to start going to the body early because every time he is feinting, Jan brings his hands up very, very high. And it's kind of funny because that's the opposite of what Jan did to Dominic Reyes. He got Reyes to keep his hands high and he went to the body.
And I think the reason why is because we saw, well, the head kicks so far from Adesanya. They've just been glancing blows, but every time you get a little bit of a shift in the hips, he starts to bring his hands up high. We have a little bit of a feint of an uppercut to the body from Adesanya, from Orthodox. It's just always interesting to see a guy with a totally different style than the other striker that's in front of him.
Oh, 100%. And it is fun, too, because this is the great thing about MMA. There's not a right way to do it. Like, in basketball, I can tell you how to be a really good player. Like, get good at three-point shooting, play defense, and you can probably make an all-star game like that. But in MMA, there's just so many different areas that you have to be good in, and you can be a specialist in different things. So,
and Daniel makes a great point. Power equalizes. Derek Lewis, we've seen
Deontay Wilder. Like, Deontay Wilder's the best
Jones.
example. Where Wilder, is he the best boxer? No, he's not even a good boxer. Does he have crippling power? Of course he does.
All right, Matt, about a minute remaining in our first round. Again, heavy feeling out process. Adesanya starting to throw some push kicks in there, added in, faking the question mark kick.
Starting to land a lot more as the round goes on, and you can tell the feints are starting to get to Blachowicz. And if you can freeze a guy like Blachowicz and then land afterwards, you're going to be able to hit him clean constantly. But Blachowicz has done a good job. He's not being there to be hit. He's staying sound defensively throughout this fight so far, and that's what you really like to see. And for Jan, it is kind of funny. We saw in the embedded, he is predicting a second round left high kick finish himself. So maybe Jan Blachowicz could be the next Mystic Mac, and we could get Jan Blachowicz predictions fights.
And I mean, Adesanya doing a good job of getting out of the way of the power. We did see a nice double jab land from Jan, which is something that we heard early on in the prelims. The fact that, you know, a double jab, it's not something you see in MMA very often. I know Perillo's a guy that would like to see it a little bit more, but with MMA as compared to boxing, you have to worry about the takedowns. You have to worry about the leg kicks. So you don't see that very often. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how that factors in with Jan kind of opening his hands up. But a very interesting and close first round here so far. I would have to give the first one to the challenger. How about you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, excuse me. Israel Adesanya won that round without a doubt. He landed the cleaner shots. He landed one really nice right hand over the top. But again, and Daniel, you say, Izzy looks a little tentative. He does, but it's only in the boxing range. Like when he's at range and he's flowing, you see he's switching stances, his hands are down, and he doesn't really have to think. But when he does get close with a guy like Blachowicz, you got to realize Blachowicz outweighs him by probably 30 pounds right now. So if you do get hit by a guy that much bigger than you, you are going to go down. So you do have to be careful, especially early on. But I do think as the fight progresses, you can sap some of that power from Jan Blachowicz. Adesanya will start to let his hands go a little bit more, especially in the closer range.
Total strikes go by way of Poland in that one. Jan seems to be checking the leg kicks. You guys are better than Joe Yannick DC. I mean,
it's very nice of you to say, but
maybe one day, maybe there'll be a promotion that takes a chance on the Allen brothers. All right, we'll get set for a second round here between Jan Blachowicz and Israel Adesanya. And again, yeah, it was a close first round. Let us know in the comments section who you thought won the first round. I'll get set to kick off the timer for our second one here. Again, yeah, Jan Blachowicz predicting a second round finish. Let's see what happens.
Could you imagine? Like, just first of all, if Jan Blachowicz is somehow able to predict the way he KOs Israel Adesanya, I'm going to lose my mind like I've never lost my mind on the show before. And I'd like to think we've lost our minds a few times. So, just a wild fight so far. Really good technique from both guys, too. But you can see Adesanya is starting to let his hands go a little bit more. But Blachowicz blitzes in with those big, wild shots. And if he catches you with one, you're going down.
For being the bigger guy, Jan still has impressive speed. He does. That's 100%, I think.
And I've got to be completely honest. I assumed Adesanya would have a massive speed advantage in this fight. And I do think he's the faster fighter, don't get me wrong. But it's not nearly the discrepancy that I originally thought it would be.
Jan's starting to march forward into these shots here now. And I say into. He's starting to land some of his shots here. He landed a nice right hand on his entry there. Adesanya's starting to open up with the kicks again to kind of deter that movement from Blachowicz. And now, again, you talk about biting on the feints. That's where we're getting them.
Good left hook from Jan. But again, Adesanya's so fleet of foot, you really have to be catching him on the way in or stationary because he's so good at rolling with shots on the way in and out that you're really going to have to catch him with something big if you're going to want to finish him. But Jan Blachowicz doing a great job forcing Izzy back with power, and that's going to be the key. If you have it, you have to use it, and that's what Jan has in this fight over Adesanya. You've got the power advantage. You can kind of brute forward and eat shots, and I would never recommend that to be your style, but if you're a guy like Blachowicz, you're used to eating punches from guys like Dominic Reyes, from guys like the Thiago Santos of the world. They all hit much harder than Adesanya does. Yes, he's more technical, he's the better striker than those guys, but just for talking about hauling off and hitting something, Blachowicz is more than used to eating power like that, and that was some great trunk movement for that head kick.
Phoenix Gray's making a good point. He has the speed of a middleweight, but the hands of a heavyweight. 100%.
Jan Blachowicz.
And the added X factor, the better ground game in this fight, too.
Exactly. Now, again, it's weird with Jan, because we do talk about how good his jiu-jitsu is. The wrestling isn't really there, and if Jan was a better wrestler, I probably would have picked him in this fight. I'm not going to lie. But Jan's done better than I thought he would throughout this fight so far, and I think that's really all you can ask for. Like a 38-year-old Jan Blachowicz just going out there and doing the darn thing.
I mean, we're about 2 minutes into our second round so far. Blachowicz been doing a good job Adesanya stumbles and gets right back up to his feet. Blachowicz thought about blitzing him there. He does blitz.
And that's the thing that he did really well against Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes would just shell up and move, but Jan Blachowicz is good at fighting his way around your guard. He's not just going to punch himself out on your arms. And I hate to bring up the Aljo fight again. I'm trying to get that out of my memory. But we did see a lot of Aljo would throw, but a lot of it would land on the guard of Petr Yan. When Jan Blachowicz throws, he is very smart about where those shots are going, as we see kind of a clinch/takedown attempt from Jan Blachowicz.
Nice knee on the break there from Blachowicz. Whew. What an interesting fight we've had so far.
I know. It has been an interesting fight, and I personally thought that Blachowicz would have a lot more trouble in this fight, especially on the feet, but he's done a good job being defensively sound, not eating a lot of big shots, and again, making Adesanya pay. Just moving forward and landing good shots of his own. And he's landing that left kick to the body that we saw over and over again against Dominic Reyes, and I like what he does. We talk about guys who switch their stances as they're moving forward. Not that Jan Blachowicz is a big stance switcher, but that's how he lands that left body kick. He takes that big step forward with his right and uses his left kick as the power kick and not the lead kick.
Nice leg kicks there from Adesanya here. An attempt at a body kick that's grabbed. We got about a minute 40 remaining in our second round. And yeah, I mean, it's been a close one so far. I would say, this far into it, you've got Blachowicz, and again, with a nice right hand is Blachowicz. Both guys landing jabs of their own.
If Jan Blachowicz wins this, good for him. And I really mean that. For a 38-year-old guy who no one thought would win a UFC title, to have this late career resurgence, now you're on the biggest platform in the sport, is kind of wild.
Yeah, I mean, we got a bit of a cup check, another illegal blow there, and that'll screw up our timer. So you're just going to have to bear with us as we get reintroduced to our second round here.
Jan Blachowicz was smiling, though, and a happy Jan Blachowicz is a dangerous Jan Blachowicz.
All right, Matt, we have a minute 15 remaining in our second round so far. Minute 10 here now if you're trying to sync up with the boys. But yeah, you definitely don't like kicks like that. And the right hand from Jan Blachowicz starting to cause issues. He really landed a nice solid
and
one.
I really like what he's doing too. And I sort of mentioned it before. The fact that Jan Blachowicz isn't a conventional striker in the sense that he's going to go out there and work behind the jab and do everything with a lot of technique. He's leading with his right power hook. And that's not something you see all that often, but it is landing often for him.
I mean, even Blachowicz off of the cage trying to land a nice jump knee. Wasn't able to do it, but doing a good job here in this fight. We have the total striking numbers. I mean, Blachowicz is up for sure. You can see where Adesanya really tried to work in those low kicks early.
But Blachowicz, again, he's being smart. That was a really nice left hook to the body, too. Not something you see from him all that often. But again, Jan Blachowicz adding wrinkles to his game at 38 years old.
Checked another leg kick in there as we get one from Adesanya. About 15 seconds remaining in this second round. Yeah, the hooks are finding a home.
They are, and again, those are shots that normally don't land on a guy like Adesanya. We see guys like Robert Whittaker is definitely faster than Jan Blachowicz. He's a better striker than Jan Blachowicz, but the fact that he is more traditional in the way that he strikes, I think allows Adesanya to really download that game plan a lot faster. That's what he's used to. But with Blachowicz, he's leading with the right power hook. He's throwing the left kick to the body afterwards. They're not combinations that often get thrown together, and I think that's what's giving him so many issues this early on in the fight.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, strikes by target. Blachowicz investing in the body. You see that out of his kicks that are up there on the monitor now. And then you have a look across the way at Israel Adesanya. He's been landing those leg kicks, really trying to chop down that base and get rid of the Polish power.
Exactly, and for a guy like Adesanya, that's what you're going to have to do. You got to put water in the basement, invest down low early on, try to fatigue him, try to tire him. Stole that quote from Teddy Atlas. I'll give him full credit. But that's what you have to do. You got to slow down the bigger and the stronger guy. Adesanya, he might be down 2 rounds. It could be 1 round apiece. He won the first round. I definitely think he lost that second round. But it's going to make for a very interesting last 3 rounds. Because cardio-wise, Jan Blachowicz is not a guy who's going to tire as the fight progresses. Whereas, I hate to bring up the Paulo Costa fight too, but Paulo Costa fight, we kind of realized, okay, if Costa's going to do well, he'll do well early on. He might tire later on. I don't think that's a problem that Jan has.
All right, we're getting set for our third round. And if DC and Rogan are saying that Jan's getting outstruck, we're all watching a different fight. Matt, we're getting ready for our third round. Getting it kicked off between your middleweight champ, punching up, taking on the light heavyweight champion. Yeah, I've got it 1-1 so far. It could be 2-0 for the defending champ. But again, I would have it 1-1 here so far. Really nice land there for Blachowicz.
Yeah, no, he's doing a really, really good job so far. And this was a fight that I did not see being very competitive, if I'm being honest. But yeah, he's done a great job checking the leg kicks, making Adesanya pay with power constantly.
Nice left hook landing for Jan.
And exactly, the fact that Jan is landing consistently is very important.
Ooh, Jan's starting to land with power up against
Go
the
for the
cage.
takedown. Wow, Jan Blachowicz, a man possessed.
Giving up the back is Adesanya. Blachowicz is a little high.
And
He's going for that back take, just
he's-
like he did
oh,
early
wow.
on.
Great
Oh,
little
boy.
sequence for Blachowicz, though. Late
Oh,
with big power.
Adesanya lands a nice left hook.
Wow, their boy's getting after it now. Adesanya might have stunned Blachowicz after he had a really nice sequence there up against the cage.
Yeah, we've got a fight here now. Minute into our third round, nice kick there from Adesanya, who's really starting to land with power.
Yeah, he's really feeling himself now, really letting the hands go, starting to become a lot more dynamic on the field.
power jab there from Adesanya, but a minute 10 in.
But again, Blachowicz isn't just taking the shots. Like, he is responding every time Adesanya's landing.
Yeah, another nice left hand there from Adesanya. And you have to think huge confidence builder out of getting out of a terrible position where we've seen Jan finish fights like that.
It's a scary position. Just ask Devin Clark how that feels. It is not a good spot to be in. And yeah, defensively, Adesanya is a much improved grappler since when we saw him in his first UFC fight against Rob Wilkinson, where he got taken down multiple times by Wilkinson.
Oh, Adesanya's starting to land. Jan really engaging in the clinch. He's got underhooks here. We're about 2 minutes into the round.
And for Blachowicz, this is best case scenario. Drain the energy of Israel Adesanya if you can. Just don't stand at range with him and let him start to tee off, because he was starting to catch him right before Blachowicz was able to get that into the clinch. But yeah, Israel Adesanya, as you guys said in the chat, definitely leveled up there after that takedown.
Matt, we're about 2 minutes into this round, and about a minute ago, we had the full-on, let's get into it. And now, man, I mean, what a fight we have. Now, Jan trying to slow it down, trying to tire him out. And we saw this in a different way when Tim Elliott fought Jordan Espinoza.
Yeah.
Head position, grinding on him. Adesanya lands a nice knee on the
knee.
break.
And again, this has just been a phenomenal fight. This round has really been great. But
Ooh, nice
yeah,
leg kick.
now both guys are letting their hands go. Both guys seem to have their timing in. That's the thing. Jan's landing a lot on Israel Adesanya, and I didn't see that happening. I thought when he did land, it would make a big effect, but I didn't think he'd be able to land consistently throughout the fight.
Adesanya starting to meet power with power. Jan landing his own jab there. We still have the stance swishes. Now we're getting some more of those feints, but from both of these men here.
Exactly, and again, it just shows the evolution of Jan Blachowicz. This is not the guy who fought Patrick Cummings all those years ago. Like, this is a much improved version, and the fact that he was never just comfortable as staying as the same fighter, he always went back, he always improved. Jan Blachowicz doesn't have all the physical attributes. He's not the fastest guy, he's not the strongest guy, but he's just good at MMA.
Matt, we got about 2 minutes remaining in our third round, and I mean, these guys are going at it, just meeting in the middle. And again, like it's been said before in the comments section, now we've got a fight. And we really have Jan starting to guess a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Israel Adesanya is starting to get the timing of Jan Blachowicz. Landed a really nice right hand over the top. But again, Blachowicz is doing a good job staying in this fight. He is starting to eat more punches, and Adesanya is slowly starting to take over. But Jan Blachowicz is still doing decent.
Yeah, that was a nice right hand by Blachowicz as you were going over it. But Adesanya is starting to push the pace. Jan's still investing in the body in this third round. Something I do like to see as we get into the championship rounds.
Oh, 100%. Because for Jan Blachowicz, he's doing a good job with the jab, too, especially on the way in. And Adesanya's known as a guy who he's got that phenomenal pop and jab. He's always going to pop that out there. So the fact that Blachowicz is also able to land is really impressive. And he's got a nice left hook, too.
Blachowicz landing that left hook. We're closing in on a minute remaining in the third round. We thought we'd get a finish in the third round. Jan thought he'd get a finish in the second. Ooh.
Great fight so far, though. Like, this has really been a great one.
Very close round, as Michael is saying. I agree with you 100%. Jan's starting to get in close. He's got underhooks again.
And he's getting this body lock position every time he goes for it, too. And that is really good if you're a Jan Blachowicz believer, I guess, or backer, because he has that get out of jail free card. I know that's something we talked about a little bit where some guys, oh, I'm in trouble, this is what I'm going to do. With Jan, every time he is in trouble, he's able to get those double underhooks and push Izzy up against the cage. So let's say Adesanya is able to hurt Blachowicz later on in the fight. Blachowicz might just be able to clinch his way out of that bad position.
You had to think that the smaller fighter in this one would have had a more difficult time in some of those grappling positions. Adesanya's done great so far. We got about 10 seconds remaining. Nice right hand there from Blachowicz.
It really has been. Blachowicz showing off good striking himself.
This is going to be a really difficult round to score as we get a final jab out there from Blachowicz. Just how good is Jan? He got TKO'd by the guy who lost in the opening fight for tonight's main card.
It's wild, isn't it? But that's the thing, like, that just shows how much better he's got. He started off his career as this slow, brooding fighter. He beat Sokaju. He lost to Sokaju. Like, that's the fighter we're talking about. And now he's out here having a super competitive fight with Israel Adesanya.
Yeah, I mean, the striking number is getting closer. Here we go. But yeah, ultimately, that was the best of the 3 rounds that we've seen so far. Both guys really starting to open up. You saw Adesanya land, hurt Jan. Jan started to land some hooks of his own, and he's keeping that jab out there, is the Polish power. We've seen the jab continue. He's continued to work that left kick to the body. Really something that you love to see. Tyler's loving it. And Daniel, you're down on Israel Adesanya, and that's fine, but you think that Jan's got to be winning. I'd like to see what the scores are out there. I mean, Scarecrow's got Jan up 2-1. I'm having a tough time trying to figure out that 3rd round. I mean, to me, I might have Adesanya 29-28, but it's close. It's really, really close.
By the sounds of it, if Joe Rogan was judging, it would be like 30-20 right now, but...
Chael Sonnen, allow me to offer you this. Just how good is Jan?
It's wild. Honestly, I'm really impressed by Jan Blachowicz. I never thought in a million years he'd be in the 4th round with Israel Adesanya, but Izzy is starting to land a lot more.
We're about 15 seconds into our 3rd round. Blachowicz trying to work another takedown.
It's what he needs. He's going to have to switch up this fight. He can't just stand at range constantly with Adesanya, because we started seeing near the end of that round, Adesanya was landing.
He's deep into that, and look at that. Adesanya right there, working the hands, getting out of it. You have to think he's probably going to circle away, and there it is. Wonderful job of the takedown defense there.
And again, like for a guy who only kickboxed growing up, it's not like he has a wrestling or a jiu-jitsu background. Great right hand by Jan Blachowicz, though. And again, what's the great equalizer? He's got the power.
Holy smokes, Jan Blachowicz. When he comes forward, you got to watch out.
You really do. That man has bricks in his hands.
That train is coming.
Choo-choo.
You know what? You really have to think about it, too. Those polar ice baths, how much do they play a factor into these championships?
Supposedly they're great for recovery. And I don't know if you've seen the video of Jan in the middle of that river, but he didn't care at all about the temperature.
Christian Martin wants to know who signed the glove behind me. Good question. Butterbean. Butterbean. King of the 4. Exactly. Eric Ash. Big Butterbean guy. Great combination there from Jan, ending it with a nice kick.
Jan's doing a great job checking leg kicks, too. It's something that, you know, you want every fighter to do it, but they don't, of course. And Jan Blachowicz really good defensively, especially in the lower half.
3 minutes and 30 seconds remaining. Another nice combination from Blachowicz, who gets turned around a little bit.
And it's really been the story of the fight. Like, can Adesanya land close? Of course he can, but that's a dangerous place to be in when you're fighting Jan Blachowicz.
Adesanya doing a really good job. That hook is starting to land. Jan gets a takedown.
Blachowicz gets him down to the ground, and this is his first real takedown in the middle of the cage. I'm curious to see if Jan Blachowicz immediately into half guard. This is not good if you're an Israel Adesanya fan.
Ooh, Jan Blachowicz working from half. Adesanya holding him down. Let's see what we get out of this. Is he going to be able to move right into mount from half guard?
And Jan Blachowicz is a legit grappler. Like, he's not just some guy who was gifted a black belt, Thiago Santos. Like, Jan Blachowicz, when he has you on the ground, you are in danger. Really beautiful takedown, too.
Sometimes you get a brown belt, too, after you haven't grappled in a fight.
Exactly. Hey, Aleksandar Rakic. Still a very good grappler, though, if you're Aleksandar Rakic. But great position for Jan Blachowicz, currently just in half guard, floating on top. Not landing a lot, but doing enough to not get this fight brought up to the feet. And for Adesanya, again, I've said this too many times, and you're probably going to get mad. I wonder if Adesanya does have the Gustafsson-type takedown defense, where he's got the first good move, he's got a first good move back up to his feet, but after that, can he be controlled on the mat?
I mean, we've got about 2 minutes and 15 seconds or thereabouts remaining in this 4th round in a close fight so far. I mean, seems like people are split. Seems like Twitter's got Adesanya, and the fans here on YouTube have Jan winning. But this is a big statement move here.
Oh, 100%. And you're taking him out of his comfort zone. Like, every second Israel Adesanya is on his back, he's not comfortable. And I don't know if you've ever been nervous playing a sport, but you get tired a lot faster just because you are kind of clenched up when you're playing and you're not letting everything flow like you can on the feet. So right now, Adesanya is the one getting more tired on the mat right now. Blachowicz is just sort of laying on him, making him feel that weight and the power that he possesses. So Adesanya is being forced to work a lot right now in these positions. And in the 5th round, if Jan Blachowicz is the fresher fighter, he might be able to land one of those massive hooks.
Yeah, I mean, you got about 1:30 remaining in this 4th round. Blachowicz still working from half guard. Whew. What a tight fight we've got so far. That's the trouble. What do we think who's winning on the scorecards? It's tough to tell.
They've been 3 razor close rounds really up until this point. And then this round, I would say Jan Blachowicz is winning. So again, really interesting fight so far. And for Jan Blachowicz, wow, right into side control. Jan Blachowicz grappling is legit. He's not like Sean Brady, but he's still very, very good.
Minute or so remaining in this round. Phoenix Graves, if it ended right now, you get a 2-2 going into the 5th. And that takedown, again, you have to think that zaps the energy out of the challenger.
Well, and the fact that we've seen him go from full guard to half guard to side control without really much effort. Like, he's so much better than Adesanya in these exchanges. If Adesanya can make it out of this round, he's really got to make sure he keeps this fight on the feet for the last one.
Really nice right forearm there from Blachowicz as Adesanya gets out of that bad position. He's done a decent job in some of these, but he's really getting hit, and Blachowicz, again, is just wearing as we close in on 30 seconds remaining.
Exactly. It's tough to win a fight off of your back. And again, both guys are already fairly fatigued up until this point, but Jan Blachowicz has had a 3-minute rest in the middle of this fight, whereas Adesanya's had to fight every second for the last 180 of them, if you will. So, again, I think Jan put himself in a great position to win this fight in the next round.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. We got about 10 seconds remaining in the round. Jan hammering away, head body, doing a good job.
He really has been. Again, I did not think Jan Blachowicz would be looking this good against Israel Adesanya. I'm happy it's happening, though.
Yeah, I mean, very tight fight. Again, we'll flip it back over to the stats, but you're going to see Jan pulling away in this one, and it was close in the 4th.
And listen, we both had Adesanya to win. Even if Blachowicz wins, do you know what I want in a UFC title fight? I don't want what I saw with Amanda Nunes, Megan Anderson. Like, this has been a really competitive fight and a really fun fight, no matter where it's been. So, I just wish that we would get more competitive matchmaking like this and less of that old Amanda Nunes, Megan Anderson squash match. Like, this is what you want. You want high-level MMA, and that's what you're getting.
Tyler doesn't want it, but that's another story for another day. Again, you have a look at the total strikes. Jan up on top. And, yeah, I mean, strikes by position, strikes by target. It's been a very, very interesting fight so far. So we'll get ready for our 5th and final round. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. We do appreciate you. As always, we've been going for more than 3 hours, Matt.
We have been. Look at us go. Good job, Craig.
Let's see who gets it done in this one, Matt.
It'll be interesting.
Light heavyweight title.
Rose Namajunas versus Amanda. It'd be a tough fight for Amanda.
Here we go. 5th and final round. A lot of people, 38-38. Let's see what we get.
Very well could be. And it will be interesting. Does Jan go for the takedown early? Does he go for the takedown? Like, how is Jan going to treat this round? Great strikes landed so far by Blachowicz, though.
Blachowicz doing a great job. You're right. I mean, working the leg kick, going back up top, and then you always have to worry. Now Adesanya is most likely worried, hey, that takedown's going to be coming.
Exactly, and that's a great point, Craig. I'm glad you brought it up. Now that is in the back of Israel Adesanya's mind, so he can't let his hands go like he normally can, because if he does, Blachowicz has been able to get those double underhooks every time, and if he goes to the body lock, he can very well get that trip.
And you almost don't want to back him up too close to the cage, because there's an opportunity that he clinches, pulls you over to the cage, works down a takedown.
Exactly. When you pressure a guy, you're almost forcing a takedown attempt out of him, because you've only got a few ways to get. You can go left, you can go right, or you're going to have to shoot a takedown attempt forward. So for Blachowicz, that's a great point. He will have to engage in that clinch if you're forcing the fight to him.
Both guys really starting to throw leather. And to answer some of the comments over there, the fact that to be the champ, you got to beat the champ, or you get DQ'd in the head.
That's a dumb rule, let's be honest. To beat the champ, you have to win 3 of the 5 rounds. That's all you have to do. And I firmly believe that. I don't think you have to prove that you really beat them. Like, Jan Blachowicz has done more than enough in this fight to really justify that. Here's the thing. Jan Blachowicz in that embedded video was walking down the stairs and he was like, oh, I'd like to be on the Hall of Fame. Keeps on fighting like this, he might be.
I mean, you look at this, Jan, every single time he throws something out there, he's landing or at least getting a reaction out of Adesanya.
Yeah, and again, it's not really Adesanya's forcing the feints out of Jan in the reactions. I think Jan's gotten the respect from Adesanya. Adesanya's felt the power of Blachowicz, so a really interesting fight in this 5th round.
Really, really good job, you're right, from both of these guys. We got about 3 minutes, 15 seconds remaining in our 5th and final championship round. What a fight that you almost didn't expect to get out of these guys.
No, not at all. This has been just a really odd fight between these two. But Jan Blachowicz really showing how technical he is on the feet, standing with such a phenomenal kickboxer like Israel Adesanya.
The head kicks from Adesanya. He's going spinning body kick in the 5th round of a fight up a weight class.
I got a question for you, Craig. How confident are middleweights right now?
Probably a little bit more so than they used to be.
That's exactly. Like, Jan isn't the fastest guy in the world, and he's been able to land quite a bit on Adesanya. And Adesanya, normally, he just seems a lot more fluid. I don't know what it is. If it is the wonkiness of Blachowicz, just Great job by Blachowicz. It really is.
And I mean,
Another
a huge takedown from
Wow.
Blachowicz halfway through the round. You have to think that if Adesanya can't get out of this, that was every bit of a win just zapped totally away.
It really was, and Jan Blachowicz doing a great job mixing up. It's not a kickboxing fight. This is an MMA fight, and Jan Blachowicz came in here fighting an MMA fight, not just a kickboxing fight with a kickboxer. So for Blachowicz, really showing off that, yeah, you might be the better striker, but I'm the better fighter, and I think that's an important thing that he had to prove tonight.
The bigger man, able to get these takedowns late, and it was one of those things. He couldn't get them early, but he kept going for them.
Exactly, and for Jan Blachowicz, if he is able to end up winning a decision in this fight, like, again, how impressive is just the whole career arc of a guy like Jan Blachowicz. He was underrated, he was almost cut from the UFC, and now he's on the biggest stage, beating one of the biggest stars in the sport.
Jan Blachowicz, let's go Poland. About 1 minute and 38 seconds remaining. Adesanya getting backed up towards the cage. It doesn't look like he's going to be able to get out of this
Maybe
position.
that rope is legit good luck. It's weird to say that, but, like, Jan Blachowicz is an absolute monster nowadays.
Oh, boy. I mean, yeah, we need a knockout from Polish Power in the last minute is what we're getting. He's kind of laying on top here.
This is what you need from Blachowicz. Don't let him get up to the feet. Don't let him get up to his feet. Because all you have to do if you're Blachowicz, you probably won one of the first 3 rounds, right? Like, you definitely won the 4th and the 5th. So, for Blachowicz, he really put himself in a great place to win this fight, especially with these takedowns later on. And it was interesting. He wasn't able to get them early. Adesanya showed great defense, especially up against the cage. But when he took him down in the middle of the cage, you can tell it's a lot different in grappling. When guys have their back up against the cage, Michael Bisping's the example I always think of. Where, was Bisping the best grappler? Not at all. The best wall walker, though, by far. And no matter how good of a wrestler you were, he'd be able to get back up to his feet.
I mean, you got about 40 seconds remaining. Adesanya doing everything he can to try to get up to his feet, but he can't.
This has just been really impressive by Jan Blachowicz. And again, couldn't happen to a happier guy, I guess. But, yeah, for Jan Blachowicz, like, again, you just can't say enough good things.
And Lopez. You like both, but you can't be happy if Jan takes a win. I don't know why you can't.
Why not? He's 38 years old. He almost got cut like 3 years ago, and now he's one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world.
12 seconds remaining, Matt, in our 5th and final round.
Wow. And listen, Adesanya might have some bad excuse for after this, but Jan Blachowicz put on an absolute masterclass of performance tonight. He really did.
Ooh, great end to it for the Polish Power, and
Wow.
he's feeling it. So, I mean, Matt, yeah, for me, I've got it 3 rounds to 2 for Blachowicz. He got the win there. For Adesanya, I mean, you still got business at 85, but that John Jones fight, never going to happen.
I'm not excited for the John Jones tweets to come out. I gotta be honest, they're not gonna be fun at all. But here's the good news. Hey, John, fight Jan Blachowicz, because I got news for you. I think he beats you.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think about it. Like, you've got Israel Adesanya. You move back down to middleweight. You got a whole host of contenders that they put in every promo that he had nobody to fight at 85. And for Jan Blachowicz, he's probably going to fight Glover Teixeira next.
I like his chances against Glover quite a bit, Craig. I gotta be honest in that one. But for Jan, again, what more can you say? Like, he went out there, he had, I would say, kept it even on the feet with one of the best strikers we've ever seen and absolutely dominated every single grappling exchange. So you can't really say anything more for Jan Blachowicz. Like, he put on the absolute performance of a lifetime tonight.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I've got it 48-47 Blachowicz. But we'll see what we get out of a decision here because, yeah, I mean, Aaron Bronstetter gave what? The first 3 to Adesanya? So you never know what a judge thought.
Yeah, you never do. It's really hard for me to say that Blachowicz didn't win at least one of the first 3 rounds, but wow, what a fight. That was a great job by Jan Blachowicz. It really was.
We got Dana White in the cage. Haven't really seen Bruce Buffer, though.
Calculating them scorecard. Is he? I wouldn't be happy.
PSN saying, why would he fight Glover? Because Glover weighed as an alternate,
He's
and he's
contender.
the number 1 contender.
Blachowicz is a bad matchup for Glover, though. To be completely, like, Glover has good takedowns, he has a good ground game, but Blachowicz has great takedown defense, and I would say he's quite a bit better at striking at this point. But wow, great job by Jan Blachowicz. Really, again, he didn't come in here with the mindset of, I'm in here for a kickboxing fight. I'm an MMA fighter, that's what I do, and he showed off that he's good at every realm of MMA.
Ground control sways the judges. Well, it didn't when Ketlin Vieira fought Yana Kunitskaya.
Very good point.
Yeah, I do not really love the suspense here right now.
Yeah, this is weird. I hope it's not a split decision, because Jan Blachowicz won this fight. Spoiler alert. I definitely think he won 3 rounds to 2.
Yeah, I mean, you can't think that...
Dana looks upset, Phoenix says.
Adesanya, I don't think won this one. If we better not end up with some kind of funky draw or something. Bruce Buffer's fired up. Was the ground control enough for a 10-8? I guess the commentary is actually saying. Adesanya did enough in the striking at the start.
I would say
and then
so.
the takedown was at 2:30. So 49-46. 49-45. Another 49-45. Is that what they got? Yeah, Jan
Blachowicz just blew the doors off Israel Adesanya.
Wow. Big win for him. I mean, you got to feel good for the Polish power. That's a huge win for Jan Blachowicz. I mean, again, what a late career resurgence. You were able to finish a guy in Dominic Reyes that a lot of people thought got, unfairly treated in the John Jones fight. Then you beat just one of the best fighters that we've seen in a very long time, who was undefeated. Jan Blachowicz is the man right now.
Yeah, you just beat a guy who had never lost. Now, Joe, I think it is deserved. He did not do a ton of damage. Jan Blachowicz did more than enough to win that fight. Really impressive performance. You can't say enough good things. He just beat he took Israel Adesanya's O from him, and that means quite a bit. So, yeah, great job by Jan Blachowicz. I don't know what the confusion is around the decision, but I thought Jan won that fight.
Yeah, and I mean, a great win for Blachowicz. Oh, boy. I mean, yeah, interesting to see the 10-8s in there. And, yeah, clearly some 10-8s, maybe some 9-9s they're saying on the commentary. I'd be interested to see those scorecards once we get the opportunity. But, yeah, overall, props where they're due. Jan Blachowicz had a great showing there. Thomas Howard saying, let's go. And Matt, we've been on the air for about 3.5 hours. We had a full hour for question mark kicks or thereabouts. We're going to cap the weekend there. So look forward to the predictions for next weekend. We'll have those out Tuesday night. So you're here. And yeah, just appreciate everybody for tuning in, Matt.
Thank you,
pretty
guys.
much all I can say. Really looking forward to next week in fights. And Matt, as we always say with Fight Night Picks, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, it's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and